So hey guys, welcome back to my channel. What if Naruto was the half-blooded demon king and had Artemis's wives as his mistress? Movie 2. Special reviewing. Welcome everyone, demigods, hunters, mortals and other sordid beings of the universe. Apollo's voice boomed as he appeared in a flash of light in the middle of the stage. Taking a bow to the audience, he turned towards the cameras. It has been an interesting time leading up to the winter solstice, and I must say that I do hope that the members of the quest find Artemis. Otherwise I may find myself practicing my archery skills on some unfortunate individuals. But today isn't about me, no. Tonight we celebrate the 10th chapter of a wonderful story by a fiction writer named Curious Kitsune 654. His From the Other Side that Miss Phoebe found has been full of twists and turns. I must be dreaming. Phoebe coughed in embarrassment as a light appeared over her and gave the sea of faces a wave with pink on her cheeks. Apollo laughed before going on. Well, to celebrate 10 chapters of this story we have a special guest. Presenting the one the only, Curious Kitsune 654. Wait, I thought I was only going to do reviews. I didn't agree to this. It's in the contract and implied. Apollo stuck out his tongue. And I am the god of the arts and I want everyone to know how great you are, or possibly get back at you if something happens to Artemis. Curious Kitsune 654 looked to one side and whistled a tune like a bird. Why did I agree to this at all? It's always the fine print that gets you. Must be a dream, as there is no way this is real. Did Mr. D curse me? Phoebe said softly as Apollo chatted with the author of the book. Anyway folks, we have a collection of reviews to answer and I hope you both are ready. Behind me is our panel of judges, Kyron, D and Leto. They will be ranking your reviews' responses and then the audience will choose who was the better reviewer. Ready? Curious Kitsune 654 shrugged. Sure. Phoebe said, lost. Good enough for me. Apollo snapped his fingers and a card appeared in his hands. From Monster King. Awesome, great work, please keep them coming. I am a big fan of From the Other Side in this story. You have the first response, Foxy. Well, thanks Monster King, the first to appreciate that you enjoy my work, and I guess this one as well. I hope you keep following my work. Apollo nodded his head. And you, Phoebe? The same, I guess. All I did was pick out a story and start reading it. Phoebe answered plainly, mentally wondering why she couldn't think of a good response to her dream. I do hope that Artemis' journey with Naruto continues to be interesting. We all do, Apollo said in a flirtatious tone that turned dark. He then whipped out another card. Habu 2010. You should bring Kushina in, cause those two gods making Naruto an idiot. Please continue. Oh Mr. D Umbus, haha. You can't do shit to me. Amaterasu will burn your purple fat ass. I think Leto and Ria need to spank all your ass being bad children. Mr. D growled as his face changed color from that response. Lord Apollo, I thought we weren't going into larger matters such as the metaphysical. And if we were, wouldn't it break the ancient rule of gods cannot cross each other's territories except by invitation? Phoebe stated before going on. Besides, how would a storybook character appear here? I am not a storybook character and I am here. Curious Kitsune 654 stated before taking a sip of water to avoid seeing the glare the hunter sent. Also Habu 2010, please don't upset the god that can make you insane. Wise words from the monkey named Curious George. D grunted out. It's Curious Kitsune 654, and I am not a monkey. You're an ape, aren't you? Now more on with questions, Sunspot, before the mortal bores me. XXX 777, next up Giant Bowser. Prepare the freakouts. Wait, Bowser, not Godzilla. Aw man, I knew I should have not been paying attention to those models. Apollo bemoaned his bad luck. Comments from the audience. How about the harpy with the pink fringe? Well, said Harpy stood up. It does make sense with the Mario theme, wasn't it what Curious Kitsune 654 wanted? Yes, came the simple reply of the author. Wait, doesn't Bowser have flamethrower powers? Phoebe said with wide eyes. No spoilers, dear. Leto waved her finger at the huntress. I know how much you enjoyed the arcade in the 80s. Well now, that's news for the campers and mortals. Apollo said with a grin. But let's see what BBW has, shall we? Blizzard Blood Wolf 77. This LL be funny to see how they react to Naruto facing baby Bowser. That's just a mindless monster after being experimented with the help of Kabuto. And it's not Leo and Stitch, it's Lilo and Stitch. The close title besides that is Leroy and Stitch, another experiment that was created after 626. Thoughts from the hunter or our guest? Phoebe raised her hand. What's Lilo and Stitch? Is it like Leo and Stitch? No idea. Grinning, Apollo looked at the card. Must be a multiverse difference. Anything else you want to add, Foivi? Ectos Apotun Ilithio Apollona. I don't know how everyone will react. It's not like I've read the chapter. Hopefully they'll like it if the review responses are as good as the ones I got before the reading came out by Roman Trooper. Curious Kitsune 654 said. And was that Greek? Yes, it was Foxy. Now on to the next question of the list, but first a commercial from our sponsors. Are you feeling depressed, non-energetic, unable to start your day properly because of the poor meal standards in your diet because of your 9-to-5 work week? Try the new and improved meal of the day brought to you by Demeter Cereals. Made the way the gods crave, it's nutritious and delicious. Order now for an important breakfast meal to get you going. Hey girls, are you looking for a chance to explore the world without the annoyances of males hitting on you? Do you want to flex that independent streak and not be concerned about having to fix into standards that put you down? Then join the Hunters of Artemis. All it takes is to swear off boys for an eternity to gain the skills needed to be a successful heroine, hunter and immortal. Talk to the nearest hunter recruitment office today. Remember folks, trust in Olympus Mailing Services. Once you pay, the mail will be there with no delay. As the god of messages, I, Hermes, approve this message. Those were interesting. Apollo beamed at Curious Kitsune 654's comment. Why thank you. Now, Yuki Kruger too says the following. I want to see Apollo's reaction to the fact his sister and her host have to fight. Better save the reveal for the next chapter. As a side note, Yuki Kruger too, my sister will be the reason Naruto wins, as the boy isn't as awesome as Artie. Or Apollo's just jealous of Naruto. Phoebe and Curious Kitsune 654 thought to themselves as Apollo went into a rant about how amazing Artemis was while Naruto was some no-good poser. I know you've been asked why you said Leo and Stitch in the reviews, but I was wondering, was that a mistake or deliberate, as it is repeated several times? If it was deliberate, is it to make the world of PJ slightly different from ours to show that while some things are the same, others are not? Loved your chapters and good luck with chapter 10. Apollo quickly spoke to avoid having the duo answer the last question. Well, for me it's Lilo and Stitch, so maybe. Or perhaps it's just Roman's way of having a bit of fun at the reader's expense. You know, we just had something similar, TP, that Kitsune 654. Phoebe muttered, making the author's eyes roll. Yes, but they are asking if it was a mistake or not. Considering it's mentioned multiple times, it's safe to guess it was deliberate. Next question please. Guest. Zeus is a lawyer. Phoebe snorted. Hera is. Zeus is her secretary. Really? Nope. Next one please. Shanxi. Ufse viene la época pelea del intento de Godzilla vs Naruto, Artemisa y posiblemente algo que sorprendera y o congelera a todos los que están leyendo esto. Gracias por el capítulo. That was the review in Spanish. Now, Apollo grinned, in a language dear to me, now in Greek. English. Please in English for my sake. Apollo frowned at Curious Kitsune 654's request. Fine. In English it says the following. Is coming the epic fight of the attempt of Godzilla vs Naruto, Artemis, and possibly something that will surprise and or freeze everyone who is reading this. Thanks for the chapter. You're welcome, Shanxi, and I can't wait to see how they're going to react to chapter 11. Curious Kitsune 654 answered with a straight face. Wait, what's going to happen in chapter 11? Phoebe asked with concern. Curious Kitsune 654 only shrugged, making her upset. Why won't you tell me? And ruin the story. By the way, it's time to wake up, Phoebe. Phoebe jolted awake as her sister Hunter shook her. Seeing her awake, Kowalski took a step back. Have a nice nap. Nap. Phoebe yawned as she sat up. Kowalski nodded her head. Yeah, you and everyone else fell asleep after Apollo read. Apparently he forgot about his bet with Hypnos, where after Apollo reads a book for the next decade every time he says the end, people go to sleep. He's upset he forgot about that. Or his voice just puts people to sleep. Phoebe grunted as she rubbed her head. Seeing the look Kowalski sent her, she opened her mouth. It's nothing, just a strange dream. Demigod dream about Lady Artemis. No, I think it was a game show, but it's faded like sand through the fingers. By the way, who's gonna read? And now, 5 minutes later. Looks like you get to read Chiron. Goody. Can you sound any less interested, D? Apollo asked before slurping up his drink. He was leaning against a pillar looking out of place with his change of clothes, looking like a Californian volleyball player in the middle of winter. Burping, he looked up. You need to chill out. Chiron sighed as the two immortals began to argue, to the point Leto muted them in a bubble. Silently thanking her, he began the 10th chapter as the last of the campers sat down after their surprise nap. Naruto groaned weakly before coughing out a mouthful of mud as he tried to push himself up, only to collapse as a massive amount of pain shot through both his arm and head alongside a heavy wave of nausea. What happened? He asked with a heavy slur. Godzilla happened. Probably should go see a doctor for a concussion, Naruto. Michael Yu voiced the thoughts of his siblings. You almost got roasted alive and then knocked out, Artemis said in a calm tone. That too. Yu tapped his chin. Mostly happens to the Ares campers. Shut it, Yu. Though with no small amount of concern. I am channeling as much energy as I can into your injuries to bolster your regeneration, but it's going to take a while. Healing was never specialty. Leto sighed. You do well enough for your hunter's deer, even if it's your brother's domain. Thanks Athena, illust lay here, and rest, Naruto mumbled as his eyes started to droop shut, only to flutter back open as something grabbed his uninjured arm and flipped him over. Oh thank Kami, I finally found you. Naruto, Naruto, can you hear me? A familiar voice asked as a slender hand gently patted his cheek. Then Sean, Naruto asked back as his blurry vision focused in on the bun-haired girl standing over him. Snickering broke out at Naruto's mangling of Tenten's name. Yeah, that's right, Tenten said with a small sigh of relief, before grimacing as she took in her companion's condition. His arm was covered in various third and second degree burns and an alarming amount of blood covered his head and the ground around it. Oh Theo a nymph gasped as well as many others at the sight. Only the veteran campers and hunters could look but felt their inside churn. Thankfully the burns didn't seem to be too much an issue as a soft silver glow started to emanate from them before they began to gradually shrink. Score 1 for being the host of Artemis. Kowalski grunted out while holding her bow to be comforted by the familiar texture. His head on the other hand, was much worse and the weapon specialist visibly recoiled after taking a closer look at the source. There was a visible dent on top of his head, with small bits of bone mixed around with the torn up flesh. Like the burns, a small amount of Artemis power, though much more concentrated than around the burns, was seeping into it, gradually repairing the damaged tissue and bone. Oh wow, Nico exclaimed in excitement, look how it oozes. An Aphrodite girl shook her green face. Please, no. Shaking off her shock, Tenten reached down and picked Naruto up bridal style, making Naruto hiss out as the movement caused his head to throb and a bit of bile to rise in his throat. Sorry Naruto. It's fine Ten-chan, Naruto said as his head drooped against her chest, his slur a little bit better. Lesh get going, I think that thing was hishing for a mocha. The princess is in danger. A Hermes child called out. Quickly, as the protagonist I must ignore my life-threatening injuries to save the pretty damsel in distress against a foe I am woefully unprepared for and many times my size that my teachers could defeat due to their experience with combat. Snickering and poor attempts at hiding a laugh through coughing broke out before Chiron went on with the story, even if he agreed with what was said. Yeah, it was, Tenten said while turning around and looking at the trial of destruction that had been left in the creature's wake. Hold on, she told him before they both vanished in a blur of movement. Thanks to Tenten and Artemis' attention focused solely on Naruto's injuries, and the blonde himself too concussed to think of much else, none of them noticed the broken case lying on the ground or the pieces of eggshell and glass that lead to where Naruto had been laying. Baby Godzilla as well, Selena asked carefully. Better be, Mark dug at the dirt under his fingers. 'Cause if it's something like a face hugger from Aliens I am out. It took almost 10 minutes of non-stop sprinting for the pair to reach the village, at which point Naruto had recovered enough to stand on his 2 feet. If Poseidon's children trend with healing via water and immortal food, drink is correct then Artemis must really like this boy. Leto hummed to herself, ignoring the glares her son and Dee were sending her way in their muted state. Dropping down at the edge of the woods, both were met with the sight of a giant bipedal turtle with vibrant yellow skin with glowing green veins branching out everywhere. Oh come on, it's freaking Bowser, Apollo yelled out, breaking the bubble. He began to attempt to steal the book away from the trainer of heroes. Give me that, I wanna trade with Artemis. I have the best score in Mario to prove I am the master at defeating him and I am not letting her up me by killing him. So, Godzilla no but Bowser? Questioned Phoebe, a strange deja vu moment passing for a sec. Why do I feel I should have known about it sooner? Giant spikes easily as large as a human covered the back of its massive shell, and its beak-like mouth was chock full of razor-sharp teeth that glinted menacingly. Flames and smoke billowed around it as it stomped through a mocha, multiple buildings having been crushed, shattered, or set aflame. The Ares campers were all grins as bloodlust began to sharpen their senses. They wanted to fight that. Oh come the fuck on. Now there's a chaos damn Bowser. Artemis yelled, making Naruto flinch as the sheer volume caused his still-present headache to skyrocket. I know Artie, I want you to stay away until I kill it first. Mr. D shook his head. Quiet down, I am sure you can manage without facing an IRL Bosmer. Bosmer are wood elves from Elder Scrolls. Bowser is a turtle. Right, Bowser is a fantastic race to play while Bosmer you kill by jumping. I get it now. Apollo hung his head in distress. Dynamic entry. Guy's voice screamed out as he suddenly shot into the air and struck the now dubbed Bowser's face with a flying kick, making it stumble back a few steps. Go Luigi, Nico called out. The spandex guy certainly looked like Mario's brother. A more awesome one at that. At the same time, Asuma zipped around the giant turtle's feet, slashing at every inch he could reach with his now glowing trench knives as he passed. Not silver or bronze, chakra-laced perhaps. Beckendorf muttered as his smiting brain analyzed the weapons. Sadly, Neither of their attacks did much as the smoking Jonin's blades barely made a scratch in the Bowser's thick hide and it easily shrugged off Guy's kick. You have to kick and land on his head, you fool. His head. Malcolm facepalmed himself. Mark, this isn't a video game. Roaring in anger, it retaliated with a powerful swipe that the beautiful green beast of Konoha barely dodged, leaving the hopefully empty structure he had been standing on to get utterly obliterated. Phoebe gulped. So glad we're not facing that. Whoa, gah, Naruto and Tenten exclaimed as they were almost knocked down by the force of the attack, causing the entire area to shake. And it's just as brutally strong. Perfect. Artemis said with a grimace. Hey, since you seem to know so much about this thing, how about a way to beat it? Naruto asked as he readied his bow and Tenten pulled out several kunai. Well, since there isn't a fire flower nearby or a bottomless cliff to trick it into, let me think. Artemis muttered sarcastically. Jump on the head, sis. Mark nodded at Apollo's sound advice while Malcolm banged his head against a pillar in disbelief. I'd suggest either aiming for the eyes or hitting it with something that makes a really big bang, preferably both if you can manage it. Tenten, you have any more explosive tags? Naruto asked, his response coming in the form of a large stack of red and white papers with the kanji explode on them being handed to him. Thanks. Chiron was swift and made clear his view before any camper spoke up. And no, the Ares and Athena campers are denied the manufacturing of their own. Taking a couple of the deceptively dangerous papers, he drew a plain arrow and wrapped the tags around it while Tenten did the same to her knives. You do know that these will probably only piss the thing off, right? That's the idea, Naruto said while knocking the arrow and lining up his shot, though his normally steady hands were trembling slightly. Still better than our fart arrows, Jules. Zip it, Michaela, you went over the top with the amount of fart arrows in the last game. The two hunters huffed at one another before looking at Phoebe, who decided to ignore them in favor of the story. In her mind, however, she was attempting to figure out ways of incorporating explosive tags for their arrows to reduce drag yet increase detonation potential. I was afraid you were going to say that. Tenten muttered with a sigh as she took aim as well. With Guy and Asuma, Kuso, we aren't even tickling it. Asuma swore as he skidded to a stop beside Guy, his breath coming in short ragged gasps and a bit of blood dripping from his side where a claw had grazed him earlier. This most unyouthful beast is powerful, that is for sure. Guy agreed, his usual boisterous and cheerful attitude replaced with one of complete seriousness. His body was covered in bruises and scratches while his normally tanned skin was a deep red with veins bulging visibly and a greenish aura surrounded his body, a sign that he was using his signature technique, the 8 celestial gates. Damn, that is one high pain tolerance. Too bad Ares is a whiner over a paper cut, or a lucky cut by a certain demigod. Apollo noted, taking out a notepad and scribbling quickly notes of Guy's condition for study. But we must not let that stop us, we need to at least hold it off long enough for our youthful students to get the civilians clear. Their original plan when the monster had shown up was for the two to keep it distracted while their students got the civilians to safety so that the Jonin could really let loose. This proved easier said than done, however, as the giant turtle was soon to reveal that it had not only an extremely high durability but also an immense amount of strength to back it up and a startling amount of speed for a creature of its bulk. I am open to suggestions, Asuma said, getting ready to move again when his ears picked up a soft but familiar whistling sound. Wait, isn't that? Before he could complete his thought, an arrow and several kunai flew into sight. Sailing through the air, they struck against the beast's head and exploding, with the kunai hitting the skin covering its ear canal and the arrow hitting just below the left eye. Raahhh. Roaring angrily, Bowser and the two Jonin whipped their heads towards the direction the projectiles came from to see Naruto and Tenten, who were quickly booking it. Oh, thank Kami, they're all right. The men thought with relief, having been worried sick about the missing trio including Artemis ever since they didn't return to town on the agreed upon time. That worry had only increased tenfold after the monstrosity they were fighting arrived from the same zone they had been assigned to. Their relief was only short-lived, however, as Bowser roared again before turning around fully and charging. A daughter of Athena shook her head. Never let an enemy recover after a surprise attack. I thought it was have a plan of an attack, asked a Hermes camper. Do you think that requires a plan other than kill? Okay, we pissed it off. Now what? Tenten asked nervously as the beast started bearing down on them. We keep it distracted until we find a way to beat it, Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Hundreds of clones puffed into existence around the pair, each one giving a loud battle cry before they charged towards Bowser. Naruto moved to join them, only for his body to suddenly seize up, making him start to collapse until Tenten caught him. Mr. D shook his head. Too much stress on his body, and after he pissed off a giant turtle. Nemesis must be playing with the boy. What do you think you're doing? Artemis demanded as she used all of what little control she had to briefly stop Naruto from moving. I stand corrected, helping stop the giant turtle from destroying everything. Naruto thought with confusion as he tried to wrest back control of his body, which was much harder than it normally was as his headache made it difficult to concentrate. By blindly charging at it in your state, you can barely walk straight right now. By Zeus, it's a miracle you are walking at all. Not to mention your aim is almost completely shot, Artemis said, sweat dripping down her forehead as many chains burst from the ground and restrained her, severing her control. Apollo glowed for a moment before calming back down, sending a few nearby dryads to the lake to get cooled down from the sudden heat. I am fine, Ardine, Naruto told her as he stood back up. Trust me, I won't do anything too stupid. That statement does not fill me with any confidence. Or us. Leto gripped the goblet she was holding tightly. Stay safe, dear. Naruto didn't respond as he tuned back into the real world, and saw that already almost all of his clones had been destroyed already. Shrugging off the concerned look that Tenten was giving him, Naruto made more clones, but instead charging like their predecessors had the copies of the whiskered blonde readied their bows and fired as many arrows as possible at Bowser. Most did nothing more than bounce or shatter harmlessly upon impact, but a few managed to dig into the softer patches of skin around the neck and joints while spools upon spools of ninja wire unraveled all over it. While nowhere near strong enough to stop Bowser, they did manage to trip it up some, thus slowing it down long enough for Naruto and Tenten to get the hell out of dodge. Sprinting around it as it struggled with the metal cables, they made it about halfway around before being cut off by Asuma. Naruto, Tenten, glad to see you two are okay-ish. The smoker said, trailing off a little when he got a closer look at their battered forms, mostly Naruto's still healing arm and mud-stained head. You too, Entatsu-sensei, Naruto said with a quick joking salute. Where's everyone else? Yououth. Guy screamed as he hit Bowser with a devastating uppercut that sent the off-balance turtle tumbling over with a heavy thud, inadvertently crushing the remaining clones underneath it. And he's down, folks, Apollo yelled happily, waving a Go Guy flag with Nico next to him waving a foam finger with a number 1 on it. They're still in the village evacuating the civvies, you two go help them while me and Guy deal with this thing. Asuma said. But Entatsu-sensei, we can help with the Bowser. Naruto argued, earning himself a pair of weird looks from the man and Tenten for the name. Ardine called it that. Ah yes, blame the goddess in the head method. That's for sure going to provide believable reasoning you're not suffering from a concussion. Mr. D drooled out. Look Naruto, now isn't the time for this. I am your leader and ordering you to help with the evac. Am I clear? Asuma said sternly with a glare that made Naruto recoil before drooping his head in acceptance. Yes sensei, he mumbled before sprinting off towards Amoka with Tenten. Waiting until they were out of hearing range, Asuma sighed slightly with a frown. He didn't like acting harsh like that, but it was necessary as he didn't want any of his students to get hurt by trying to take on something that was clearly out of their league. Example number 1 in memory, Percy Jackson. Chiron grunted out, was that out loud? Gah. Crash. Speaking of which, Asuma hopped out of the way as his fellow Jonin crashed into the spot he had been standing when Bowser managed to get a lucky hit on him. You alright Guy? Yosh, for such an unyouthful creature, it certainly packs a most youthful punch. I'll take that as a yes. With Naruto and Tenten arriving at the destroyed part of the village, Naruto once again spammed out several clones which began scouring the whole place for anyone. I'll meet up with the others and keep looking with your clones, you check the castle and make sure Princess Momo is alright. Tenten said, getting a nod from the whiskered blonde before they split up. Smart girl, Artemis thought, easily seeing Tenten's underlying reasoning. The castle was the farthest place from the fight and the naturally most fortified, meaning it would be the safest place to be at the moment. Connor shook his head, but isn't Peach's castle always breached by boss? We're defeating the purpose of sending him there. Oh yeah, Apollo hissed out before looking with concern. She was getting Naruto somewhere safe under the guise of helping the princess. Definitely need to recruit her once I am out of these chains. Kowalski tapped her chin, she would make for an interesting sister. She would, agreed Jules. Sorry Naruto, Tenten thought, feeling bad for tricking the boy, but even with how fast he was healing she was certain he was in no state to fight properly. Especially after that weird seizure he had a minute ago. So uncool, Travis glared at Tenten, to think she was being nice to Naruto. Unaware of either of the two girls' thoughts, Naruto continued to make a beeline towards the castle by rooftop. It took him almost 5 minutes to get there, mostly because he ended up stumbling a few times due to the pain in his head and arm flaring. The Apollo family winced at the mention of the damage and how long it has been. If this was camp or the real world, Naruto would be in the ICU by now. Leaping over the gates with ease, he zipped around the panicking guards and through the front door. He then ran down the main hall until he reached the throne room where a scared and concerned-looking Momo sat on her throne surrounded by guards. Momo-Heim, what are you doing? You should be getting out of here. Trust me Naruto-san, I would like nothing more than to leave. Momo's voice shook slightly with nervousness and her hands gripped her throne's armrests so tightly her knuckles were white. Unfortunately, my military advisor has other ideas, she said while giving the man standing next to her, an elderly fellow with graying brown hair, a handlebar mustache, a military tux, and a cane with a brown spotted mushroom handle, a dirty look. Does he look like Otto von Bismarck? Or am I confused? Greenshade asked as she stared at the image. He does, doesn't he? A satyr named Jack Oakland replied. With all due respect, Your Highness, the castle is the safest possible place you can be. The man said with utmost certainty in his voice. It has withstood hundreds of invasions in the past and it will withstand 100 more. What are you doing? He demanded when Naruto suddenly walked right up to Momo and scooped her up into a bridal carry. Getting Momo Heim to safety before it's too late, Naruto trailed off as the ground started shaking and a shadow started rising over the room. Slowly looking towards the giant stained glass window, Naruto's eyes widened in shock before he tightened his grip on the princess and leapt straight over the guards towards the exit. Play Bowser theme, whichever version you prefer. With pleasure. Snapping his fingers, Apollo summoned a CD player. Is the original preferred or the remake, Chiron? No comment. He wasn't a moment too soon, as not even a second later Bowser's arm burst through the roof and tore out an entire section. Huge chunks of stone fell, killing or injuring many of the guards, with Momo turning completely pale as a particularly large piece squashed both her throne and military advisor. Ah, I wanted Mushroom von Bismarck to live, Connor whined. What the fuck? I thought Asuma-sensei and Super Bushy Brows were dealing with that thing. Naruto yelled mentally as he hopped around several more times to avoid more falling debris. Yeah, talk about a poor job and they're veterans. Travis yelled. They're trying to, look, Artemis said while mentally nudging Naruto's eyes to the side where he could see Guy and Asuma attacking with everything they had, only to be blatantly ignored as Bowser kept attacking the castle. I don't get it, why is it so focused on the castle? Naruto asked, stumbling back a bit as a chandelier crashed down in front of him. This could be an interesting premise for new Mario game, Apollo quickly wrote down the idea. I don't know, I've only seen animals or monsters act like this when. Artemis paused as Bowser sniffed the air and swiveled its head to look right at them. When they were chasing down their prey, Naruto. Move, now. Kuso. Naruto swore as he barely managed to leap out of the way as a torrent of fire ripped through the space he had just been occupying. So, Phoebe began, who else is glad they aren't the ones fighting a fire-breath turtle? Nearly every hunter and camper's hands went up. By Kami, Daimao Kuppa. I thought he was just a myth. Momo muttered in shock, making Naruto glance at her briefly before focusing back on Bowser as he dodged a wild swing that took out another section of the castle. Ardine, what the hell is going on? You're being hunted, that's what. I got that, I meant why, Naruto thought while moving to an undamaged section of the castle for cover. It's a predator you pissed off a lot, why wouldn't it be hunting you? Or just an angry, upset giant turtle that is hungry for a main course hero with princess dessert. That was morbid D, I tried to be realistic. Also, incoming on your rear. As soon as he heard this, Naruto leapt to the top of a nearby staircase and spun around, only for his jaw to drop at what he saw. Oh come on, it can spit fucking lava. Sure enough, down below Bowser's head could be seen sticking through the wall with red-hot molten rock spraying out of its mouth. Good for cleaning dishes, a harpy chirped out as the campers who had experiences with lava rubbed the parts that have been once scorched by the hot earth. Said head snapped to his position right after he spoke, forcing Naruto to jump out of the way as a stream of lava narrowly missed him and his screaming passenger. That's new, Apollo muttered. While he would enjoy Naruto being roasted, his sister was trapped inside the boy, making it difficult for him to cheer for Naruto's death. That's it, no more of this crap. Finding another hiding spot, Naruto made a single shadow clone and handed Momo over to it. Get her to safety, now. Hi boss, the clone said before running towards the main entrance while the original prepared his bow. Aren't you worried that Bowser will try and attack them? No, I think it can tell me apart from the clones, otherwise. It would still be attacking the clones that are running all over the village. Artemis finished, nodding her head at the logic since both she and Naruto could still feel the heavy pull on his chakra reserve signifying that his clones were still active. So what now? Nothing you've done has done anything more than pissing it off, hence why we're in this situation. You're going to wing it, aren't you? You know me too well, Nei-chan. Naruto said while quickly knocking an explosive tag arrow. Are we agreed that Naruto and Percy should never meet? Say aye. Aye, came a chorus of those who knew the son of the sea. As they did so, said Demigod shivered and wondered if he was coming down with something. Popping out around the corner, he fired at Bowser's eye again while running to another section of the castle. Sadly, while the shot was on target, the massive turtle's head moved at the last second and the projectile exploded harmlessly against its beaked maw as it continued to spew lava at him. Undeterred, Naruto continued to run, jump, hop, flip, and just about every other acrobatic maneuver you can think of that helped him avoid getting roasted, sliced, smashed, or melted. All the while, he continued to try and fail at hitting Bowser's eyes. A few nymphs cheered him on. Go Naruto! Meanwhile, outside the castle, Guy and Asuma were forced to back off as all the excess lava started flowing outwards, rapidly covering the grounds and preventing them from getting close. On the plus side, Naruto's clone had managed to get the princess to safety as he had managed to get a glimpse of it handing her to his sensei before dispelling. Naruto, this isn't working. Why won't he just jump on him 3 times? Leto yelled as she threw her drink in excitement. Yeah, I noticed, Naruto grumbled while rolling behind a chunk of stone just as a massive column of fire filled the area. That's why I am going to try something really stupid. Of course you are. Do you have a better idea? Naruto asked, his voice just a touch snarky but also a bit desperate. When he was met with silence though, he just sighed heavily while knocking his last arrow. I didn't think so. Artie is the hunter but Athena has the brains. Apollo nodded his head to Mr. D comment even if it was slightly biased. Hunters need to be smart but sometimes fools were good hunters as well, so the god of truth held his tongue. As did the hunters, although glares were sent towards the humming god of wine. Waiting for the flames to die down, Naruto took several deep breaths to steady his heartbeat before standing up and walking out from cover. When Bowser spotted him, he stopped and raised his bow. Naruto, please tell me you aren't trying to play chicken with a several-ton lava-spitting turtle. The Ares campers began crackling with excitement, making everyone scooch away. Naruto didn't respond as he kept his focus firmly on Bowser as it opened its mouth wide to reveal the lava bubbling up in its throat, before giving off a gurgling roar as it spat out the molten rock in a condensed stream. Despite this, the whiskered blonde didn't move an inch, watching as the lava streaked towards him at high speed. He's not gonna make it, Nico whispered. Naruto, Artemis said nervously as the lava got closer and Naruto still didn't move. I can't watch, Selena declared, covering her eyes yet peeked through the gaps of her fingers. Naruto. Finally, when the scorching was mere feet away from him, Naruto reacted. Jumping to the side at the last second, he bid down the urge to yelp as the lava missed him by a mere inch, the heat alone causing his exposed skin to start blistering. Ignoring this as best he could, he quickly realigned his shot and fired. For a brief moment, time seemed to slow down as the arrow started to fly through the air, sailing towards its objective. Briefly blinded by the glare of its own attack, Bowser never saw the projectile coming until it was too late. Squelch boom. Graahhhhhhhhhhhh. A scream of rage and pain burst from Bowser's throat as it clutched the gaping hole that used to be its eye, its red. Stop music. Everything was silent before cheering poured out of the arena for Naruto. Taking this as a mini break, Chiron took a glass of water for himself as he waited for everyone to settle down for the rest of the chapter. Naruto smirked at this for a moment before pausing as he heard a crackling sound. Confused, he looked down towards the source and froze when he saw his bow. While most of the weapon looked fine, the bottom of the lower limb was blacked and shattered, having been scorched from the lava as it passed, then snapping from the stress of firing. Apollo, his children and the hunters all winced at the sight. That bow was now useless and beyond repairable. Gently grasping the small segment still dangling from the string, he felt his heart ache as the charred wood crumbled apart between his fingers. Staring at the ashen remains in his hand, tears quickly to build up in his eyes and threatened to fall. Naruto, I am sorry, I am so sorry, Artemis murmured softly, not knowing what else to say. Poor Naruto, a figure by the fire quietly said in pity for the boy. Don't be, Naruto said as his hand closed into a fist, the remains of his bow groaned as his grip on them tightened. It wasn't your fault. Play. Animal I've become by 3 days' grace. It's his, he said while glared at Bowser as he howled in agony. And he is going to pay for it. Within the seal, Artemis was trying to think of a way to console her host when she blinked as she felt a sudden invigorating and draining sensation. Looking at herself, she was shocked to see her whole body glowing a bright silver as a lot more of her power than normal was being drawn away. Looking behind herself, she saw that her bindings were also glowing, only this time a dark red signifying the power of the Kyuubi as it was being forced into her. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Naruto started to gain a soft silver glow around his form, not that he noticed as he was blinded by his anger. Damn it Artie, did you make him your champion? Apollo yelled out as he sat down after turning off his music device. Champion? Nico asked, confused. Apollo glanced at the new camper. A champion is a mortal we gods blessed to have powers other mortals do not. The Oracle is one such champion of mine. The last one of Artemis was back in ancient Greece, a prince before becoming her temple caretaker. Ooh, Nico looked back at the screen. Cool, Naruto, I know you're upset, but you need to calm down and, you're not listening to me. Artemis said with a sigh as her host charged at the giant turtle. Moving at speeds much faster than he normally does, it only took the whiskered teen a few seconds to reach the beast's legs. He then used his chakra to stick to Bowser's leg, quickly scaling his way up the thrashing turtle's side and up to its head. Too focused on the searing pain of having its eye socket blown apart, Bowser didn't even notice its unwanted passenger until they were literally staring eye to eye. If you think that hurt, then you are going to hate this. With rage-filled silver eyes, Naruto raised up his broken bow like a spear and promptly stabbed it as deep as he could into the until recently uninjured eye. Fatality. A daughter of Ares yelled out like in a game. Graahhhhhhhhhh. Bowser stumbled back several steps howling in pure agony while blindly swiping at its face, managing to scratch both itself and Naruto's back several times before it tripped over a large chunk of the castle it had torn off. As it fell, Naruto summoned the dancing lunar blades and proceeded to hack, slash, and stab everything in reach all the way down. Combo. Triple combo. Impossible, Yu yelled out, following the daughter of Ares' example. Og squelch Garagruel. Coincidentally, the place Bowser fell was directly over a church which had a large metal sun statue on top that pierced right through the back of the monster's head and erupted out of its mouth and forehead in a shower of greenish-red blood. End music. Bowser's once mighty roars were reduced to a pathetic gurgling as it thrashed around in a desperate attempt to get back up, to no avail. As each second passed, its struggling got weaker and weaker until eventually it fell still entirely. After a whole minute of not moving, Naruto slowly stood up and dispelled his daggers before reaching down and pulling out the remains of his weapon with a sharp tug, his breath coming in long ragged puffs. Limping over to the edge of the beast's head, he sloppily hopped down and ended up fall flat on his scratched up back. Ow. Wow is right, Phoebe said in awe. Congratulations, you just took down a giant mutated monster turtle basically single-handedly. How do you feel? Artemis asked sarcastically, though with a strong hint of concern mixed in. Peachy, Naruto said tiredly as he stayed sprawled out across the ground. Good, then you can deal with the thing that just slithered onto your chest. Say what now? Naruto mumbled as he lifted his head up. And promptly had his jaw fall straight back down as he saw, am I hallucinating or is there a chibi snake lady on my chest? Everyone blinked. Ha, and irate and in great annoyance Mr. D glared at the collection of bunnies, kittens, goats and puppies that weren't at all cute and cuddly as they looked back at him inside the grapevine cage. Apollo and Leto were hanging from a pillar upside down with gags with golden red expressions as they attempted to wiggle free from the celestial bronze weaved ropes that held them in place. The dryads, nymphs and cleaning staff were in hiding as well, making the area mostly quiet as a place can get with baby animals and gagged immortals making gnosis. Feeling violent struggle, the god looked down at the struggling trainer of heroes as he tried to free himself from Mr. D's grasp holding him in ice water. Sighing, the god of wine let him up to breathe. Ah, damn it D. I am calm now, Chiron yelled after gasping for breath before trying and failing to slug the god. Rolling his eyes, Mr. D ducked Chiron back into the water. Don't you think you're going too far? Mr. D sighed as he looked over to his aunt who was flipping through the book. Next to her was an assortment of silver arrows, blast marks and a small green flames of Greek fire. The new recruit, Nikki Phi Bongo or whatever, was on the other side of the goddess making sure she was between him and the god of wine. Hestia looked back at her nephew and repeated her question. Don't you think you're going too far, nephew? This is mild for me, Mr. D said in a calm, even in polite tone as if he was talking about the weather. And stop whining. Well, more like complaining about the weather that had ruined a perfectly acceptable miserable day without his wife and wine. Yes, Lady Hestia. Grumbling, Mr. D took a deep breath. But their reactions were too extreme and those two nearly nuked the camp with energy from their reactions to that chapter. Then the hunters nearly wiped out the camp themselves with their arrows and the screaming of the campers in terror and or shock. An acute reaction to having to avoid the angry hunters' fire arrows. Dionysus. The sound of a page turning was barely heard over the chorus of yips, meows, muffled yells and the bubbles coming from Chiron as he yelled in the water. Hestia and Mr. D ignored them as they thought about the reaction to the chapter. Or rather not, as a certain god of the sky had noticed a certain lack of demigods and caretakers at Camp Half-Blood. But that is a story for another time. While the campers had been enjoying this tale of how Artemis was trapped in an immature, socially awkward and zany adolescent male, they hadn't noticed that they weren't the only ones listening and later watching the story. What the heck? Where is the next chapter? Altus shook his fist at the TV from his place on the lawn chair. The Cyclops looked up from behind the device before going back to working on the TV that looked like it belonged to 1958 catalog. Hey evil Skywalker, what's taking so long? If only, Luke thought as he idly wished he had the ability to force choke the Titan. Right now the Titan general was insufferable because he was denied knowing what happened after Naruto killed Boswer. When the spy had reported that a strange book was discovered by Phoebe about Artemis who was in the future or alternate future going to be sent fleeing into the body of a human male by Artemis, Luke and Altus thought it was a joke. That was until they got into the story, and now we're waiting for the next chapter. Also watching from their places were Artemis and Annabeth, the former under the sky and the latter in shackles near her. If I am going to be trapped inside that boy by the fates, I hope that at least Altas or that treacherous demigod is neutered. Artemis grunted as she toiled under her burden. Annabeth tugged at her shackles. I don't think you'll get the chance. Thank you for that comfort. Annabeth looked away as Artemis sent her a look. Sighing, the goddess shifted the weight of the sky from one side of her shoulders to the other. I hope that Zoe will be able to get here in time along with Talia and Poseidon's son. Percy will make it, with his luck. He must have Erktik and Hecate and some Manar as a child with the way his luck has been and the way the mist reacts to him. Artemis paused to contemplate what to say next as the Cyclops working on the television yelled in frustration. Stomping down a tunnel, the monster came back with a film projector one sees at a theater. Looks like the next chapter is up. Looking forward to seeing the fallout of your apprentice killing a flame-throwing giant turtle. Artemis chuckled at Annabeth's words. Perhaps a little. He's a little slow, but I am sure he'll make a fine hunter one day. Perhaps I could convince father of the need of a minor virgin hunter god. The duo fell silent as the film began to roll with the image projected onto a reforming wall. Altus sighed and popped open a can of soda when he saw the show begin. By Kronos, I love the new mortal technology. Perhaps it would be best to preserve the media, if only for more entertaining uses it provides. Last time, Peachy, Naruto said tiredly as he stayed sprawled out across the ground. Good, then you can deal with the thing that just slithered onto your chest. Say what now? Naruto mumbled as he lifted his head up. And promptly had his jaw fall straight back down as he saw, am I hallucinating or is there a chibi snake lady on my chest? And now, turns out he wasn't hallucinating. It had been a day since the turtle monster attacked Amoka, and Naruto could be found lying on a luxurious king-sized bed with a bored expression on his face. Several bandages covered his bare torso, his entire right arm, and a good portion of his head. Worthy of his first true challenging hunt. The chibi snake lady, or Lamia as Artemis said her kind was called. Annabeth scoffed. That is no Lamia. Are you questioning my ability to identify prey demigod? Artemis spoke as if talking about the weather to Annabeth, who shook her head no. Was still on his chest. She was roughly 1.5 feet long tall, with 2/3 of her body consisting of a black and yellow snake tail that ended at the hips. Not only that, but a pair of small gray wings attached to her shoulder blades, each one about an inch big and covered in soft down feathers. Past that, she looked almost entirely human with soft peach skin, long black hair that reached a few centimeters past her shoulders, and bright amber eyes. She looked to be about 7 to 8 years old with slightly chubby cheeks and somewhat pudgy physique, only made more apparent with the cute blue dress she was wearing. Hey look boy, a monster version of your crush. Altus pointed at the strange creature while looking at the son of Hermes, who made a dry laugh before looking back to the flim. She was currently sitting just above where his heart was, her tail curled up messily around her as she watched a cartoon on the TV in front of the bed. Ever since Shed first revealed herself, the tiny snake girl spent most of her time in that spot, with the only exceptions being to go to the bathroom, eating, when he moved, or if someone moved her. Like when his comrades had first found him after he slew Bowser. To say it was an awkward first meeting would be an understatement. I can't believe Naruto took that thing down by himself, Ino muttered as she kept glancing at the mutated turtle's corpse. It had only been 5 minutes since its death, and yet it was somehow already badly decayed as its rotting flesh started falling apart. Artemis narrowed her eyes at the description, mind racing. There was something about how it was decaying like a monster, but not. I saw it my own eyes, yet I still can't believe it. She knew Naruto was much more skilled than she'd given him credit for before graduation, but seriously. How did he go barely win a spar in class to toppling giant 100-foot monsters in just a few months? Because he's Artemis' little pet boy. He is not, you filthy titan. Atlas turned his head lazily towards the goddess of the hunt. Says the conscious. Tell me, what was the punishment again that your daddy said about immortals possessing? Getting no answer, he turned back to the show. That's what I thought. Is it strange that her being trapped inside a male appeals to me? Luke asked the titan, who sent him a grin. Luke, I knew there was a reason that the boss liked you. I know what you mean, Guy-sensei, and Asuma-san barely even scratched it. Tenten said as helped the gossip queen move some rubble that they'd seen a glimpse of orange under, only to groan when it was just a broken store sign. She was having just as much difficulty understanding how Naruto managed something that both their senseis couldn't. Who's narrating again? Annabeth whispered to the goddess, only to be hissed at by Altas. Quite. I am watching here, Altas yelled as he grabbed another soda. Artemis smirked, seeing an opportunity. Taking a deep breath, she yelled as loud as she could with a mortal next to her, my mother. Altas' hand jerked, spraying soda all over his face from Artemis' yell. Gripping his spear, he took aim only for Luke to step between the titan and the goddess. The demigod stared at the titan, daring him to try. Seeing this, Altas grumbled and sent the goddess a glare before sitting on his chair once more. It wasn't worth waiting to see what happened next. However, unlike Ino, whose confusion was towards Naruto's skills, her disbelieving thoughts were focused on the boy's condition. He was still recovering from head injury and third-degree burns when they'd separated after all. Looks like a mini-me. Without the pride, Luke said, rolling his eyes. He probably just got lucky is all. Neji said with a scoff as he landed beside them with his usual stoic expression on his face. There is no other explanation for one destined to failure, Lee. Bullshit, was the collective reaction to comment made by Neji. Neji, this is not the time for your fate crap, Tenten cut him off, stunning the pale-eyed boy briefly. I can normally stand it when we're training and such, but right now we are in the middle of a mission. Not only that, but we just got attacked by a giant fire-breathing turtle. Bowser. Its name is Bowser, not Godzilla but Bosmer. Annabeth griped, remembering how Altas whined about how unfair it was that Artemis got to face off against a moral television monster while he couldn't. And now a squadmate is Mia, possibly Kia. So, if you'd please, shut up and keep looking, or I swear I'll find out exactly how many of my weapons I can fit up your ass. Hey Annabeth, think Tenten and Clarice could be friends? Luke asked, only to get spilt to the ground as an answer. Caught off guard by his teammates' actions, Neji instinctually backed up a few steps before catching himself. Shaking his head slightly, he quickly recomposed himself and offered back a bland expression. Fine, whatever, he said emotionlessly while walking off to look around Bowser's left leg. Watching him leave with a raised eyebrow, Ino turned back to Tenten and asked, is he always so pessimistic? If by pessimistic you mean complete ass, then yes, he is. Tenten huffed angrily while going the exact opposite direction with the blonde girl in tow. Even in the academy, it was always fate this and destiny that. I can't believe I used to have a crush on him. Like most girls before their hearts get crushed. Artemis sighed at the common reason morals joined the hunt. Seriously, you had the hots for him? Ino asked curiously, getting a short nod in response. What did you even see in him? It was just a typical schoolgirl crush. He was the best in class, looked cute, had that high and mighty attitude of his that made him seem cool. Tenten said, rolling her eyes as she listed off her reasoning for liking Neji. Annabeth's face turned red as her mind shut down at the similarities between Neji and Luke came to mind. While making sure to pay attention to her surroundings for any sign of Naruto. Once I started spending more time with him as a teammate and had to deal with his cool attitude all day, however, his appeal quickly dried up. Oh, I guess that makes sense, Ino said with a nod as a look of contemplation appeared on her face. That sounds a lot like why I like sass. Better take notes, Luke, or else you might lose those girls you care for. Luke growled at the Titan's words but made no move to counter. Naruto. Her thoughts were cut off by Tenten's shout as the bun-haired girl shot off ahead. Following the direction the girl went, Ino's eyes widened as she saw the missing whiskered blonde lying on the ground not far from Bowser's head, large scratches covering his body and his broken blood-soaked bow lying next to him. She started to rush to his side as well, but was stopped halfway there when a hand suddenly grabbed her shoulder, stopping her on the spot. EEMPH. Another hand clapped over her mouth, muffling the startled cry that escaped her lips. What happened to the audio? Maintenance. Yes, General, an Empisa said before racing off to find a Cyclops to fix the audio. Grumbling, Altas stretched out, making a series of popping and cracking sounds. Nothing like a good stretching to pop the vertebrae and shoulders back into place. He said before wiggling back into place. Frowning, the Titan snapped his fingers and summoned a beverage in a coconut with a little umbrella perched on the fruit slice. I must give credit to you Olympians, these tropical drinks Apollo and Ares pitched to Poseidon are delicious. Glad you appreciate the gods. Altas ignored the sarcastic response of the daughter of Athena to appreciate and savor the flavor of the tropical delight. The Empisa came back. Sound is on again, my lord. Rewinding back to where we eat off. Eyes snapping towards the owner of the hands, Ino's surprise swiftly turned to confusion as she found that it was none other than Asuma who stopping her. Guy stood a few feet away holding an equally confused Tenten with Lee and Choji behind him. Removing the hand from her shoulder, he raised it up to his lips and made a shushing motion before pointing to Naruto. Getting the hint, Ino kept quiet as she turned back to the down-whiskered blonde, her eyes bugging out of their sockets as she finally noticed his little hitchhiker staring back at her with a tilted head. What the hell is that thing? She yelled after pulling the hand off her face. Luke rolled his eyes. A female monster girl, or a chimera of a harpy and Lamia. I wonder what traits she'll have. Perhaps something of a mockery of Aphrodite or Cupid. Most likely another escaped experiment. Asuma whispered back, all of them having been informed earlier by Tenten about the lab that she and Naruto had stumbled upon. Speaking of which, Tenten, didn't you say you two had taken one? Yeah, an egg, but it was destroyed when that thing first attacked us. The weapons girl said once Guy let her go, gesturing towards Bowser's head as she spoke. At least, I thought it had been. Like how the crooked one thought he ate Zeus. Moronic move there, Altus said, making the area darken for a moment as the Titan King made his presence felt. Atlas glared at the sarcophagus. Oh, so scary, dimming the lights. You know it was your stupid ego that led to your defeat in the end of the Golden Age, Dusty. Lord Altus, perhaps you should stop. Luke begged as his breath along with others began to venture visible with the drop of temperature. The Lord of Endurance grumbled but conceded in antagonizing his uncle. Well, now we know better. Asuma sighed while rubbing his beard in thought. So what do we do, sensei? Choji asked as he nervously chomped on a bag of chips. I don't know. Hey, not to rush anyone or something, but could you guys stop whispering crap to and help me? I am bleeding out here and I just lost feeling in my legs. Naruto groaned out as he slowly lifted his head up to glare at the whispering group. Artemis hummed in approval of Naruto's no-nonsense during a hunt mission. Sorry Naruto, but we can't risk getting close until we know if that thing on your chest is dangerous to either you or us. Asuma called out, now don't move, I've dealt with snakes before and they don't like sudden movement. That should be movements. Movements. Plural, not in singular, for the love of Annabeth, you have to agree. I'll show you movements when I get out of here, Luke. How the hell could she be dangerous? Naruto asked dully as he sat up as best he could despite everyone quietly yelling at him not to, and gently grabbed the snake girl around the waist with his good hand. I mean, look at her, she's so tiny and doesn't even have teeth. Altus groaned as he recalled how his daughters met laden when the monster was just a hatching. They had said the same thing before it tried biting them. Much to everyone else's surprise, the Lamia did absolutely nothing in response to the manhandling other than look at the whiskered blonde curiously with a soft hum and curl her tail around his forearm. After waiting a few more moments and still not seeing any hostility, Asuma gradually approached his downed student. Kneeling beside the bleeding blonde, he reached out and cautiously reached out for the snake girl. Grabbing her by the scruff of the neck like one would a venomous serpent, Asuma gently prized her out of Naruto's grasp, once again receiving no reaction other than her tail curling around his arm once it came free in another hum. General sir, are you going to answer reviews that the mortals are asking online? A Cyclops asked, only for Altus' spear cutting off his head. Well, that answered that question. Luke wiped his eyes to remove the golden dust that got into them. Back to the present, the cause for her behavior would later be revealed after the smoker went through the files that Tenten had sealed up. As it turned out, the Lamia. Not a Lamia. A Lamia complained as she coiled around a reforming pillar. That Naruto had named Tisho soft singer due to her humming, had been genetically engineered to be extremely docile and submissive in order to be the perfect test subject. A task made rather easy since the DNA used in Tisho's creation, other than human of course, were that of a garter snake and a pigeon. With everything pointing to the little Lamia being harmless, Asuma and Guy made the decision to give her the benefit of the doubt and let her stay with Naruto, whom Shed apparently imprinted on as her parent due to her avian DNA. Well, it's not a wold pup for him. Artemis got a look from Annabeth. What, I can't possibly get him a puppy now, can I? This choice was rather well received by the rest of the genin, with Ino and Tenten finding little Tisho to be quite adorable. The gossip queen of the duo was even the one who refitted the dress Tisho was wearing from a doll. Choji helped prepare food she could eat since she truly didn't have any teeth yet, though they did look to be growing. Thankfully, other than a preference for slightly undercooked meat, her diet was roughly the same as a human. Lee had been his usual enthusiastic self and happily welcomed her amongst their group. Luke shook his head. In another life he would be my brother. Neji just didn't care, enough said. And now we're back to Naruto laying in bed, recovering from the plethora of injuries he'd gotten from, as Asuma put it, his absolutely craziest and stupidest stunt head ever pulled. It better be his last. Miss Artemis, is that concern you have for the boy? How touching. The luxuriousness of his room was because he was currently inside one of the royal suites of Amoka's finest inn, the Golden Truffle, courtesy of Princess Momo herself, who was staying there as well until her castle was rebuilt. However, no matter how nice the accommodations were, they did little to stop Naruto's rapidly mounting boredom. Not even the TV helped, since all that was playing were educational cartoons for Tisho since she was only a day old and had a lot to learn. Of course, even if he could do anything, the whiskered blonde wasn't sure he'd want to, as the loss of his bow was still hitting him hard. Glancing over at a corner, his chest clenched slightly as he once again saw the broken weapon laying across a desk, the blood and viscera cleaned off but the damage still clear as day. His teammates and Team 9-Neji had given him their condolences for its destruction and had even offered to help him get a new one, but it was sadly clear that none of them truly understood how much his bow truly meant to him. Not even Tenten, as while she cared for her weapons, her style of fighting often led to them breaking on a regular basis. Annabeth frowned, nodded her head in agreement to Naruto's. As a daughter of the goddess of war, she was well versed in a number of weapons. However, she still kept the remains of her first training spear that had shattered a year before she met Percy. It wasn't just his primary weapon, it was the proof of his success under Artemis' instruction. The first thing she had him do before teaching him was make that bow, something that had taken weeks of hard work and multiple failed attempts. The tedious process of finding the right wood for the body of the bow, debarking, treating, carving, and finally stringing had left Naruto on the brink of total frustration many times before he finally got it right. Artemis slowly closed her eyes. She felt something akin to sorrow for the boy, as if he was one of her hunters. Perhaps, he is rubbing off me. It was from that bow that had fired his first shot, which still brought him, and Artemis laughs, gotten his first bullseye, ended up becoming friends with Hinata, and passed the true genin exam. It was such an integral piece of who he was now that losing it was like killing a part of himself. That was why he never even named it. It was as pointless to him as giving a name to his arm or leg. The worst part, though, was no matter how much he wanted to hold all the blame towards Bowser, Naruto knew that it was just as much his fault due to his reckless actions. Artemis did what she could to support him, being one of the two people, the other being Asuma, who could really sympathize with him, as she held her own bow in a similar regard, hence why she refused to even let him touch it, unlike the dancing lunar blades. Atlas whistled as he summoned Artemis' bow and twirled it above his head, mocking the goddess. Unfortunately, she'd never been particularly good at emotional support. Ever since the incident with Orion so many years ago, Artemis had always kept herself from getting too attached to others. This even included her own hunters, whom she'd instead taught to rely on each other for such things. Perhaps I should have relied more on them. Artemis knew that if she had taken at least a single hunter with her, or perhaps a small batch of volunteers, this may not have happened. This self-made mission she made because of disturbing emotions of a threat. "It's not your fault, Lady Artemis," Annabeth whispered to her as if sensing her distress. Artemis slowly looked down, her loose hair covering her face. "You don't know that." Artemis would have done the same here, but the problem was that was the physical link to Naruto's soul created by the chains binding her. Because of this, she felt his every emotion, heard his every thought, spent every second of every day with him. "I wonder how she'll react when he reacts. Go puberty." Luke smiled as he took a sip of his drink. "That," Atlas hollowed and bellowed with laughter. "Oh my lungs. Wait till he starts crushing on her and she feels the same way. Ha ha ha." There was literally no way she couldn't become attached. However, despite her inexperience in the field, Naruto greatly appreciated her attempts and had hugged her inside his mindscape as thanks, then promptly promised not to tell anyone on her insistence, aka threats of unending pain. Laughter filled the air at the knowledge that Artemis was hugged by a boy to make her feel better, threatened to harm him if he told anyone, only for the threat to be useless. "Okay, that's it, I am going for a walk," Naruto said, lifting Tisho off his chest as he sat up and placing her on a nearby pillow, having reached the limit to how long he could sit around doing nothing. "As long as it's only a walk," Artemis told him strictly, getting the blonde to grumble quietly but nod in agreement. Yeah, Tisho, stay here, I'll be back in a bit," he said while scooching to the edge of the bed and standing up with a small hiss. Cute, the allies of Olympus thought. "I hope that means she understood," Naruto muttered. Luke shrugged his shoulders. "Possibly. Pigeons are smart enough to be used for messengers in war and times of peace." His eyes flickering to the Lamia as she continued to stare at the TV before grabbing his jacket from a nearby chair and walking out of the room with a slight limp. Crossing through the equally posh and thankfully empty living room, he headed straight for the front door. Just as he was reaching for the doorknob though, Naruto jumped in surprise as loud knocking echoed from the slab of mahogany. Opening the door, his eyebrow rose in confusion as he saw one of the royal guards bowing to him. "My apologies for the intrusion, Naruto-sama, but Her Highness Momo-sama has requested that you join her for lunch in her suite." Altas and several Cyclops applauded loudly, before the Titan sent them away to check on the harbor for when the ship arrived to dock. All right then, I'll head right over. Thanks for the heads up," Naruto said with an awkward smile as the guard bowed again and left. "I am never going to get used to that." For a boy who grew up ostracized and downgraded by almost all his peers, the sheer amount of respect and admiration the people of Amoka were showing him was overwhelming. Shutting and locking the door behind him, Naruto walked down the long hallway until he reached the princess room, marked by the two men standing guard in front the door. "Hey," Momo-chan wanted to. The guards immediately moved to the sides and the left one opened the door for him. "See me? Why do I have the oddest feeling?" Artemis looked at Annabeth. "What's wrong, Miss Chase?" "It's nothing. I just feel as if someone was wondering if I was going to contribute more and not be a side character. As though I was being watched in my interactions with this film of Naruto and you." "The prisoners will be silent. Can shut it one eye." Sweet dropping slightly as he stepped past the two men, the whiskered boy's gaze swept across the room, which was identical to his group's, until they settled on Princess Momo. She was seated at the dining table wearing a more casual and less puffy version of her usual dress. "Naruto-kun, I am so glad you could make it, Momo said with a bright smile forming on her lips as soon as she saw him. Despite hearing that you were mostly recovered, I was worried that you'd be unable to come due to your injuries. No problem Momo-chan, I've always healed fast. Besides, I may not be the sharpest kunai in the pouch, but it would be pretty stupid of me to ignore a princess request, especially one as pretty as you. Naruto said innocently with a grin, missing the light blush that appeared on the princess' cheeks at his words. Silence fell on the mountain as the Titan army leaned forward as if to get a better view of the film. As for Artemis, a look of uneasiness came to her as warning bells rung in the back of her mind. Fair enough, please have a seat, Momo said while gesturing to the open chair next to her. Actually it was the only chair open as all the others sans the one she was sitting on were oddly missing. No. This has to be a joke. Altaz took out some popcorn. Is this feed hacked? No sir general sir. Of course, Naruto thought nothing of this as he happily plopped down next to the girl and started to marvel at the large spread before them. There were regular dishes like onigiri, and tempura, local delicacies such as roasted truffles and turtle soup, and several desserts such as dango, crepe, and pocky. To top it all off, a simple but delectable-looking cake sat in the middle, made with white, yellow, and pink frosting. I wasn't sure what you'd like, so I had the chefs bring up a little of everything, Momo told him, giggling a little as she saw the small trail of drool slowly dripping from his lips. Looks like I made the right choice. Snapping out of his little trance at the sound of her laugh, Naruto smiled sheepishly while quickly wiping his mouth. You could have just asked. But then it wouldn't have been a surprise, Momo said as she started serving herself. Oh, wait, surprise for who? Naruto asked with a tilted head. For you silly, the princess said, giggling again at the cute baffled look on his face. You saved not only my country and my people, but my very life. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, so I had to thank you somehow. Leto's voice filled the area from the speakers. Apollo, did you exchange the chapter for your corny teenage trash romance novels? No, boo, more story less family fighting, Altaz yelled as he shook his fist to the speakers, as if they could hear him. Well I did, but it was because of me that you were in danger in the first place, and that your castle was destroyed, and a lot of your soldiers were killed. Naruto muttered sadly, guilt flowing through him as he thought of the good men and women who died during the assault on the castle. Before he could wallow in those dark thoughts for long though, he was brought back to the present by Momo's hand cupping his cheek and turning his head to face her. That wasn't your fault, there was no way you could have known that would happen, she said while gently rubbing his whisker-like birthmarks with her thumb. Besides, if anyone is to blame, it would be my stupid stubborn ex-advisor for not letting me evacuate the castle when we had the chance. Yeah, but Naruto tried to argue only for the princess' hand to move over his lips. Even my bravest and most loyal guards fled in terror at the mere sight of that beast. Yet you faced him all by yourself while injured and exhausted without even an ounce of hesitation, just so that I could get to safety. Momo continued, never in my life have I ever seen such courage and selflessness. Oh by chaos I know where this is going, a groaning Artemis said, thought to herself. Annabeth was confused by the soft words spoken by the government. What was that? It's nothing. Naruto flushed slightly from all the praise he was getting, and at the same time Artemis groaned. Oh chaos, I know where this is going. ... By us no. What are you talking about Athena? Where is this going? Naruto asked the goddess in confusion, only to get no response other than unintelligible grumbles before he returned his attention back to the princess. So please accept this meal, it is the least I could do to repay you for everything you've done, Momo said while placing a filled plate in front of him. Not knowing what else to say, Naruto nodded in defeated acceptance and picked up his chopsticks. Itadakimasu, he said while grabbing a piece of onigiri and popping it into his mouth, the princess doing the same only with some sushi. So how are your people doing? He asked after a few minutes of somewhat awkward silence. Good, there were thankfully very few casualties and those who've lost their houses are being taken in by neighbors or inns until we can rebuild their homes. That's good. Any idea what you're going to do about Bowser's body? I say keep it as a trophy. That's one for legends, Luke said as his mind whirled at the bragging rights of defeating a Bowser IRL. Or, Atlas grinned, perhaps make our own giant Bowser to attack the gods. Everyone looked at the Titan with strange looks at that suggestion. Yes actually, Momo said while pouring herself a cup of tea. Once the last of the flesh is cleared off, its bones are going to be turned into Kanoko's newest tourist attraction. I am hoping that it'll help make up the income lost. Or they can do that. During Bowser's rampage, the mutated turtle had destroyed almost a third of the surrounding farmland, and with it thousands of ryo worth of produce. On the plus side, the turtle population was back to manageable levels. Sounds like a good idea, Naruto said as he sipped at a bowl of his second favorite food, red bean soup. I thought so as well when the merchant's representatives pitched the idea to me earlier today. Speaking of which, the princess hesitated for a moment before continuing. I am sorry if this upsets you, but they wanted me to ask if you'd allow to let them have your bow. Artemis winced. Of all things to occur, that was probably the most insensitive thing to ask someone who lost their weapon. Yes, it was an inanimate object, however Naruto had connection to the bow with strong ties to it. PFFFFFFFFFFFFFFT. What? Soup went flying all over the table as Naruto did a spit take of epic proportions. Cringing a little at his reaction, Momo quickly explained further. They were hoping that since the bow was broken, that you'd be willing to part with it. That way they would have both the body of the beast and the weapon that killed it to show off in the exhibit once it's set up. Hearing this, Naruto calmed down as he got what she was saying. They wanted the full set, as it were. Hell, now that he thought about it, he wouldn't be surprised if they tried scrounging up the arrows that no doubt littered the interior of the destroyed castle still. They'll think about it, Momoheim. Of course, take all the time you need, Momo said, patting his shoulder comfortingly before turning back to the food and grabbed a bread knife. Now enough of this seriousness, how about we dig into this cake finally? Glad for the change in topic, Naruto nodded his head as the princess cut the cake and placed a slice on each of their now empty plates. You know, this'll be the first time I've ever had cake. Really? Why's that? Momo asked curiously. Never really had the urge to try it, to be honest, Naruto said with a shrug. While he did like sweet foods, again red bean soup being his second favorite, he didn't really have that big of a sweet tooth. Well, that and he personally felt that any money not spent on ramen was money wasted. Ms growled. Note to self, if ending up with the boy is in my future, make strict diet plans. Then find way to enforce AMD, ensure a proper diet. Then when able to return home, take him with to be given a meal made by Mother and Hestia after claiming him as my adopted brother or son. Well then, I guess that means you can honestly say that the first cake you ever had was personally made for you by a princess. Said princess said, once again breaking into giggles as she saw the dumbfounded look on his face. Also, be the first one to make him cake. Artemis blinked at the rather protective and jealous thought that came to her mind. You made this yourself? Naruto asked, his gaze switching from her to the cake and back again several times. Yep, baking has always been a hobby of mine, something I picked up from my mother before she and father passed. Momo said with a sad nostalgic smile. I am sorry for your loss, Naruto said, setting a hand on her shoulder in what he hoped was a comforting way. If you don't mind me asking, what happened to them? They died during an Ebola outbreak 3 years ago. One of our ambassadors contracted it from a brothel in Kaminari no Kuni, Land of Lightning, and ended up spreading it to several others, including the king and queen when he came back with his reports. Poor girl, her pain all because of a male who couldn't keep it in his pants. Luke glared at the goddess. Your brother is the one to blame. After all, he is the god of plagues and you refuse to get him to stop or prevent him from using your domain as a vector to harm millions of innocents, goddess. And destroying the gods and returning the world to the rule of Titan's will. She hissed. Enough. Atlas' voice boomed out from his seat. I want to know what happens next. This is only as close as I can get to the old plays from Greece with all that reality TV. The princess told him, sniffling a little as she subtly scooched closer to her fellow blonde and leaned against his shoulder. Before you ask, I can't officially become queen until either my 16th birthday or I marry. Annabeth cursed. Damn that number. What is with 16 and fate? Nodding in understanding as that was something he had been curious about, Naruto decided not to delve into it any further and focused back on his plate. Setting his chopsticks down, he picked up a fork slightly awkwardly, not used to using such a utensil, and lightly stabbed it into his slice of cake. Pulling it back out laden with a moderate-sized chunk of the dessert, he took a brief moment to enjoy the soft vanilla scent it had popped it into his mouth. As the delightful amount of sweetness hit his tongue, his lips curled into a smile as he chewed. Wow, this is delicious, he said once he swallowed, quickly scooping up another bite and shoving in his mouth. You are a really great cook, Momo-chan. Thank you, that means a lot coming from you, the princess said, taking a few bites of her own piece as she got closer. I spoke with your sensei earlier today and he said you'll be leaving tomorrow. Silence came from the speakers. What's wrong with our connection? Altas roared as he threw his popcorn bowl away. You, son of Hermes, fix this. I said don't call me that, Luke muttered under his breath as he went to check. 5 minutes later he returned and sat down, swiping a chilled drink from a subordinate demigod. There, sounds back on. Naruto started to talk with his mouth full, which naturally ended up with nothing but garbled mess coming out until he caught himself swallowing the cake in his mouth. He coughed slightly from a chunk that went down the wrong pipe before talking again. Yeah, he said our mission was to help deal with your country's turtle problem, and since that's done we have to head back as soon as we're able. He told me the same thing. Such a shame, I was hoping you all would be able to stay longer, I've really been enjoying your company. Momo sighed as she scooted even closer. Oh, my gods. Aphrodite Camper's squeal too loud. A rogue wiggled a finger in her ear to speed up recovery of hearing. She then looked at Luke. Why now are we getting the campers' voices? Luke shrugged. We should NT. Well, you could always request another mission, Naruto said jokingly with a chuckle, missing the serious consideration that passed the princess' face. And it's not like we're saying goodbye forever, we'll definitely see each other again, and until then we could always write. That is true, but there's no telling how long that would be, and there are things that can't be put into a letter. Momo said, a blush forming on her cheeks as her chair lightly bumping into his. Really like wa Naruto was cut off when a pair of soft supple lips pressed against his. To Hades with this story. I'll end him en. The small audience booed and jeered as the movie cut out. Distracted, none but Annabeth saw Artemis' eyes glow white as her face turned red with fury. Focusing a bit of her power, Artemis was able to send a small blast of divine energy at the device used to receive signals, shattering it and vaporizing several monsters AMD demigods. Luke and Altaz avoided the blast, but both looked at the goddess rattled. Right then. Perhaps you need a tighter leash. With a grin the Titan marched over to check on the chains that bound her to the mountain under the sky. Somewhere on a tropical island. Wah. Who? Keep the drinks going. Lachesis yelled as she spun around the pole at high speeds. With her was a young man she had been hitting on, a nice boy that was studying her and her sisters on a collage paper and how they, the Fates, appeared as three throughout multiple cultures in European myth. I am on top of the world. Atropos shook her head as she leaned back against the bar, her companions cuddling each arm. Come here often, cuties. Watching all of this was Clotho, the mortal's supposed selected driver for the trio of young women who had came to the collage bar. Shaking her head, the Fate goddess watched her sisters flirt with mortals. Most of the time they didn't bother interacting with mortals, but at times they enjoyed the company and joy of living for a night of fun to brainstorm new treads, events and deaths of mortals. Nursing her Sunday, she twirled her knitting needles in her left hand. Athena might have been the goddess of sewing, but she wasn't the first spinner. But this wasn't the time for spinning. Now then, yes, the last chapter was not as good as the author wanted. Perhaps something a little more regular. Rubbing her head, the goddess groaned as she attempted to figure out what to do next. However, it was difficult to think as her siblings made out with the mortals that caught their eyes. The poor boys and girls would not remember what happened in the morning other than a hangover and found impressions of a memory. I'll just change the reactions so that, no, the mortals will notice that. Well then, no need for their approval. All right readers, here's the newest chapter. And remember to bash the author for placing me in this situation to fix his mess. That is true, but there's no telling how long that would be, and there are things that can't be put into a letter. Momo said, a blush forming on her cheeks as her chair lightly bumping into his. Really like wa Naruto was cut off when a pair of soft supple lips pressed against his own. His face turned bright red as he was enraptured by the lovely baby blue eyes that stared into his own silver-flecked cerulean. Frozen in place like a deer caught in the headlights, he could nothing but sit there. Apollo and Leto snickered at the play on Artemis animal. As the princess' slender arms wrapped around his waist and pulled him deeper into the kiss. It was a good thing he was sitting already, as his legs turned to jelly and his heart felt like it was going to explode in his chest from how rapidly it was pounding, with it only getting worse as he felt something start softly prodding his lower lip. So Artemis is Prince Charming or Abu? Snickered Connor, making his siblings and cousins smile. However, the god of wine was not amused that someone took his bad naming to name people. Snapping his fingers, the god smirked as Connor was now cursed with only being able to taste bad juice for the rest of the week. Finally, after what felt like hours, Momo broke the lip lock and whispered into his ear. Since we may not see each other for so long, how would you like to be my little prince for the next few hours? The daughters of love were on the edge of their seats in excitement, as were the hunters, for other reasons. If at all possible, Naruto's face became even redder and steam started rising from his ears. Oh my Kami. Oh my Kami. Ardine, what do I do? What do I do? Ardine, beep, I am sorry, the number you are trying to reach has been disconnected or no longer exists. Please check again to make sure you have dialed the correct number, or try again later. The virgin ran away, crowed Alice before being pelted by half-eaten food from the hunters. Snapping back to reality with a small yelp as he felt something settle on his lap, he looked up slowly to see the princess looking down at him with a smirk as she leaned in close again. I'll take that as a yes. Damn, she's forward than most princesses. Apollo clicked his tongue as he attempted to figure out how to congratulate Naruto while beating him to an inch of his life for the same action. 6 hours later. Where the heck is that baka? Ino demanded in worried frustration as she paced back and forth in her team's suite. After a long day of helping clear rubble, finding still missing villagers, and other such things, the three members had decided to call it a night, only to find Naruto missing. Relax, Ino, I am sure Naruto's fine Ino. He probably just got tired of being cooped up and went to stretch his legs. Asuma tried to reassure his student as he sat at the table with Choji. Tisho was on the table in between them, still on her pillow watching the gossip queen curiously. His third leg and the dumber head. Phoebe grumbled as she ripped apart a hot dog making ketchup spray everywhere and the males watching pale. They were better than the boys sitting near the largest grouping, which was boys breaking walnuts with their bare hands. Cucumbers, carrots and other assorted veggies as well were also appearing but also disappearing from the satyrs who were near Aries campers. A complete mystery, a total one, know why the veggie-hating children of war wouldn't eat their veggies. It's been almost 2 hours. And, this is Naruto we're talking about. 2 hours, that's good for a young mortal. A dryad snickered with her sisters at some of the good memories of mortal lovers they have had over the years. Ino opened her mouth to keep arguing, only to pause when she couldn't come up with anything. After a few moments of this, she huffed in annoyance and was starting to pace again when the doorknob suddenly jiggled. Everyone's attention snapped to the door as it opened, and eyebrows rose as a disheveled Naruto walked into the room. His hair was messier than normal, his jacket was open enough for them to see the slightly askew and sweat-soaked bandages underneath, and there were light pink smear marks all over his lips, cheeks, and neck. While the younger ones in the room looked at the boy with shock and confusion, Asuma had a small grin and was barely holding back the laughter that was threatening to burst out. The demigods and immortals however were belting out laughter at the condition that Momoheim had left him in. Had seen enough shinobi come back from their first seduction missions to figure out exactly what happened. Naruto, are you alright? Ino asked, her previous aggravation forgotten at the sight of her fellow blonde state. The cake is a lie, he muttered dazedly, a glazed look in his eyes as he absent-mindedly brushed past the girl and headed for his room, not noticing as the contact caused something to fall out of his hair and clatter against the ground. It better not be, Phoebe murmured as she did her best not to giggle as the laughter in the air attempted to bring in the hunters. Ino did however and was quick to bend over and grab the item. What the hell, she asked herself as she held up a familiar, teacup-sized crown for the others to see. Isn't this the princess? What's it doing in Naruto's hair? The ponytailed girl's eyes widened as her gossip-wired brain finally put the pieces together. Oh my, thump. I was wondering how long it would take her to figure it out. Asuma said with an amused chuckle, one that grew into the laughter had been restraining when Choji continued to look at him with confusion. Everyone but the hunters had a laugh at that. Then the arrows began to fly and they finally had a laugh. Why can't the author finish this story faster? It's so slow. Banging her head against the wooden table she groaned as her sisters began to sing a drunken duet making their fellow immortals and their parenting skills. Looking over the story she waved her hand and huffed. At least now the worst of the writing was gone, although she wished the readers of the reading could have read the part of the war between cute animals and the hunters. It was lovely summer day, with warm sunlight shining down from an almost cloudless sky and through the forest canopy. A gentle breeze flowing past carrying the sweet scents of the plant life in bloom. All around, a plethora of various chirps, squeaks, and other such noises sounded out, creating a somewhat chaotic yet soothing atmosphere. Come on Naruto, you gotta tell me what happened. And one Naruto Uzumaki couldn't enjoy it one bit as he, his team, and Team 9 walked through the forested terrain of Hinokuni, thanks to the unending badgering of his fellow blonde. Apollo looked around in confusion. Okay, who broke the fourth wall? Apollo, are you sure you're not gone mad in your worry for your twin? D. Shut it, all right then. But you can help me answer some of these reviews. I love how upset this WhatsApp man fellow is. Apollo looked over his brother's shoulder. How disappointing. I was expecting this but you didn't even finish the chapter, and with how irregular you update, how annoying. D. I must say that they are right as it does seem we're not going fast enough for this story. Sunbeam please. Leto sighed as she picked her teeth with a toothpick. Why are we bothering answering reviews on this anyway? They all seem upset. Porque se siente inclusivo y esto ha tomado 4 meses para tener un nuevo capítulo. Apollo grunted out as he typed away at his phone. Oh, idea for a song for a new series. Her temple raised from silver light, our queen, the goddess of the night. Where's that from? Fetcher asked his father. Apollo grinned and tapped his nose before waving his son off. It had been 4 days since his lunch with Princess Momo, and Ino had been absolutely relentless on trying to get all the juicy details out of the whiskered boy. Well, that and how had been able to fully recover from 20 deep lacerations, 11 broken bones, and almost a fourth of his body getting burnt to a crisp in only a few days. Apollo and Chiron rolled their eyes at the details. That was lava climbing injuries, demigods deal with that enough with some nectar. So who is reading anyway? Nico whispered to his seat partner who shrugged. No idea. Looking over Naruto as he walked, it was practically impossible to tell that he had actually been injured in the first place. He didn't have any scars, scratches, or even a bruise left over, and he was back in his usual attire thanks to the princess having it repaired for him. The only real differences were Tisho, who was sitting on Naruto's left shoulder quietly humming as she looked around curiously, with the princess crown atop her head oddly enough, an empty space on his right where his bow would be slung. 4 days ago, outskirts of Imoka, Momo and Naruto stood before each other with somber expressions that were contradicted by the heavy blushes on their cheeks. A thick tension filled the air between them, with the only one not affected being Tisho, who was curled up in Naruto's hair teething on a piece of jerky. "Well, I guess this is farewell for now," the princess said with a sad smile, her eyes glancing towards where the rest of Team 9 and Team 10 were standing not far away. "Yeah," Naruto said while rubbing the back of his head, unsure of what else to say. "I love you," giggled a Demeter daughter with a grin from her boyfriend. "Then I wish you luck on your travels and pray that we will cross paths again soon, my prince," Momo said, whispering the last part in Naruto's ear, causing him to sputter slightly as his already red cheeks practically started glowing. Atropos leaned over her sibling's shoulder with a drunken smile. "Sis, come on, have a few drinks." "No need to, Atropos. I have to get this mortal's story up and done so I can have him hit by many bad reviews." Rubbing her eyes for a moment, Clotho was unprepared as her sis snatched away her device and began typing away as fast as her buzzed fingers could manage. "Oi. Oh Kothlo darling, this is far better than having your campers read. We need something better. Camp Mon Stars. Why do I feel like someone has been playing with my scalus?" A camper from the Lamia cabin as she held onto her tail. Her snake eyes glared at the resident gremlins, Connor and Travis Stoll. Is it you?" Nope. The gremlins snickered as they pocketed the hammers of the Cyclops cabin. Something is not right, Heli Apollo said before shaking his head. Rubbing his eyes he made sure he was seeing straight. "Man, that last spicy hot dog must have affected my sight." "Everything all right?" Chiron asked the sun god. "Been better. Party pooper." Atropos whined as her sister took her phone back. "Ahem, same here," the whiskered boy muttered quietly as his fellow blonde giggled softly at his embarrassment. However, her humor was cut short as Naruto suddenly started digging around in his pockets before pulling out his gear scroll. Unrolling it partially to reveal a basic storage seal, he channeled some chakra into it and his bow puffed into the air with a small cloud of smoke. Catching it by the grip with practiced ease, Naruto looked over the now useless weapon with a torn expression before holding it out towards Momo, his arm shaking lightly. Realizing what he was doing, the princess' eyes widened slightly as she tentatively reached out with both hands and grasped the bow on either side of the boy's own. "You would truly give this away, even though it clearly means so much to you?" she asked, her voice filled with surprise. "I thought about your request hard, and as much as I don't like it, this can do more good here with you than with me," Naruto said, his voice cracking ever so slightly as he pushed the bow further into her arms. "Just promise me that you'll take good care of Daipo first step for me," he asked, finally giving his weapon the name it deserved as he reluctantly let it go. "Primer paso es un buen nombre. Dijo marked con tus, pero el asesino de gigantes parece measure. Por qué hablas español y por qué yo también? Pregunto Malcolm mientras el también comenzaba a toser. Va sagiru, afh verju get egg eki tala ensku. Ki si qualcosa che non va, Nico said with a headshake. Lachesis stopped playing with the long settings. "I don't wanna, I want a more drink and unicorn puppies." Smiling softly, Momo hugged Daipo to her chest and gave a low bow. "You have my word." Nodding in acceptance, Naruto smiled back while pocketing his scroll, before flinching as his fingers nudged into something sharp. His brows furrowing in confusion, the whiskered blonde grabbed onto the perpetrator and pulled it out to reveal the princess miniature crown. "The hell, how'd that get in there?" he wondered aloud, neither him or Momo noticing as Ino smirked at them in the background. "Oh my, I was wondering where that went," Momo said in a pleasantly surprised tone. "It must be gotten misplaced during our lunch together." "He is rather yummy," sighed Selena dreamily. "You're right, dear." Demigods, hunters and immortals jumped as the tittering voice of Aphrodite and said goddess appeared in a cloud of perfume and pink smoke. Well, from the pink limousine that appeared in the butler's suit wearing annoyed face of Ares who was holding open the door of the goddess ride. The goddess seemed to skip over to her daughter before planting a kiss on her forehead. "Oh, how are my little darlings?" "Lady Aphrodite, a pleasure," Chiron said as the goddess fluttered over her children like a mother bird. Hunters glared at the goddess, but ideas about shooting said goddess were shot down with the shotgun-wielding god of war looking their way. Aphrodite glanced at Chiron's direction. "Oh Chiron, you don't need to be so formal to me. I might be a little isty bisty uppist you didn't find a girl during your vacation, but that is no reason to be so stiff. Don't worry, I am sure I can find you a nice girl to help you with these wonderful deers and poor helpless maidens." "Clearing you're talking about your spawn," a hunter sharked at the goddess who huffed before opening up her compact mirror to fix up on her makeup. "Says the girls who stayed instead of saving their dear Artemis." "Aphrodite, please don't point fun at my sister's handmaidens. Apollo said in a rare moment of seriousness. Aphrodite pouted at him and closed her mirror. Oh fine, it's not nearly as fun without Moony dearest. Without her my life is duller and boring. Ares coughed into his fist, making the goddess roll her eyes. Oh, you are bored too without the banter between me and Artie. At least this quest is doing wonders for my newest pet project, but it's a shame that the boy and girl are so dense that they can't see their attraction to one another. You better not be pairing Zoe to the satyr or the boy. Phoebe growled but stopped as the goddess giggled. Oh no, I was thinking a nice match of the sky and sea. There's so much tension that is begging to become a catalyst for their romance. Talia and Percy, all those how knew the duo didn't know what to think. Sure there was tension but them as a dating pair. At that note we better start to read before dear father learns of that. Mr. D said as he picked up the book. Cough yeah, that most likely. Naruto stuttered, his face reddening again, though not as bad as earlier. Here, quickly changing the subject, he tried to hand the tiny crown back to its rightful owner, only to blink in surprise when the princess shook her head and stepped back. You've given me something of great value to yourself on my behest, she said, adjusting her grip on Daepo. Thus, it is only fair that I give something up in return. Besides, that crown was always a bit too small for me, and I think you have someone that it would be just the right size for. As she spoke, her eyes drift upwards, getting Naruto to realize who she was talking about. Raising his free hand to the top of his head, the whiskered blonde gently nudged Tisho, causing her to hum in response and slither onto his palm and curling her tail around his forearm. Bringing her down in front of him, the little Lamia looked at him curiously while continuing to gnaw on her jerky. Petting her gently, Naruto couldn't help but smile as Tisho hummed in delight and even briefly let go of the dried meat held in her mouth in favor of hugging his fingers, before he set the crown atop her head. What do ya know, it's a perfect fit, Naruto said, chuckling as Tisho patted the side of the crown with one hand, then wiggled her head around a bit like she was trying to throw it off. After a minute or so though, she apparently decided that she either liked or didn't care about the new addition as she stopped and went back to her jerky. All hail Princess Lamia, no brother dear, Princess Leia, the stroll brother laughed, making a few grin at the joke. Thank you Momo-chan, I'll do my best to take care of it as well. I am sure you will, Momo said with a soft giggle, before frowning slightly as she glanced at the other ninja once again. You should get going now, I do believe we've made your friends wait on us long enough. Turning to look at his team and Guy's team as well, Naruto saw what she meant as he could see the impatient looks starting to form on most of their faces. Yeah, you're right, setting Tisho back where she was and turning his head to face Momo with a sad smile. Goodbye Momo-chan, I'll see you again, I promise, he said before turning back and regrouping with the others. Momo watched as he talked with his sensei briefly, then almost immediately getting badgered by his female teammate as all 8 of them hopped into the forest canopy and began tree-hopping away. As she watched him leave, she raised a hand to her neck and pulled out a sun pendant that had been obscured by her dress. Goodbye Naruto-kun, may Amaterasu's blessings protect you on your journey and hasten our reunion, she murmured while rubbing her thumb over the front of the pendant, which had the worn-down image of a bird. Apollo stopped giggling like a loon. But mom, back to present. Just tell her already, her incessant begging is really starting to really get on my nerves, Artemis said with a twitching brow. Are you really still giving me the silent treatment? I am sorry, but the number you are trying to reach has either been disconnected or doesn't. Alright, I get it. You're still mad me, of course I am still mad. I needed your help and you ditched me. And I said I was sorry Naruto, but I couldn't risk the possibility of indirectly breaking my vow of chastity. Aphrodite opened her mouth before closed it when the sounds of bowstrings being stretched filled the air. You could have warned me before it was too late. I panicked alright, besides we both know that you enjoyed yourself. That's not the point and you know it. Please Naruto, throw me a bone here, Naruto snapped out of his mental argument as Ino got in front of him and held her hands out pleadingly. I told you I don't want to talk about it Ino, just drop it already, he said exasperatedly, tired of his teammates' constant pestering. She just wouldn't give up no matter how many times he turned her down, trying everything from begging to coercion to even outright attempts of bribery. Aphrodite to a T, and lose the chance to find out how you managed to hook up with a freaking princess. So few of them these days. Ares whined while Apollo and Mr. D nodded their heads. Hell no, this is best gossip I've ever had the chance at hearing, even better than when I found out that you and Hinata were going on a date, Ino stated adamantly, and rather loudly as the rest of the group suddenly turned towards the arguing pair curiously and suspicion for one stoic Hyuga. Groaning in irritation, Naruto massaged his forehead as he felt a headache start to form. Oh for the love of Kami, for the last time Ino, Hinata-chan and I didn't go on a date. Really, so, you didn't go to the movies with her alone? Ino asked, her voice shifting to a suggestive tone at the end. Well yeah, but that was just to celebrate graduating from the academy. Naruto said. The movies are fun. Nico piped up, making the goddess of love shake her head in despair. His brow arcing when Ino moved to his side with a sigh, and gave him a comforting hug. Oh, you poor naive thing, there, don't worry, your good friend Ino will fix you. Just tell me what I want to know for whoa. Ino started to whisper in Naruto's ear, only to yell out in surprise when he shoved her away. Catching herself after a few feet, the ponytailed blonde huffed indignantly and shot the whiskered boy a dirty look. I will get what I want, Naruto, it's only a matter of time. She's not mine, but I love her style. Like a goldfish. Hunter random number that author forgot existed said. Seriously, how many hunters are there? The only way that's going to happen is if you found a way to read my mind. Naruto said, missing the look of sudden realization that popped up on Ino's face. Naruto, her clan can actually read minds, remember? Artemis stated dully, causing Naruto to freeze. Slowly turning around, his face paled dramatically as he saw Ino holding her hands out in a familiar box shape with a victorious, and ever so slightly crazed, grin. Why does she have mind powers? Ga Clotho yelled as Lachesis asked her out of nowhere, drinking sake. Don't do that. Don't do what? OFKU, I am drunk. And I am going to be drunk till the next time I am drunk. Sang the Fate as she and their other sister began to sing Irish drinking songs with the choir of drunken mortals. Off key and out of beat. Shint smack ow. Thankfully, before the girl could finish the technique, Asuma decided to intervene and smack the clan heiress across the back of the head. What the heck, sensei? Ino, unless you want to explain to your parents why you've been court-martialed. Ares and his child grinned. I am all for a court-martial. A few good men. Apollo asked, getting a thumbs up from the god of war. I highly advise you not to try that stunt again, the normally relaxed man said sternly, causing Ino to gap at him in shock. WWWA, Article 45 of Konoha's Shinobi Code of Conduct. Any use of a jutsu on a fellow shinobi outside of an agreed-upon spar or without warranted cause is considered an act of treason and is punishable by demotion, forced retirement, imprisonment, or death depending on the severity of the crime. Neji stated matter-of-factly, not even blinking as he kept his eyes on Naruto. And let's not forget Naruto's already existing mental issues. I don't think I have to describe the possible complications that could arise from having an inexperienced mind-walker such as yourself routing around inside his head. Asuma said, feeling bad internally as he saw his student lose almost all the color in her face, but knowing it was for her own good. It was certainly better than her possibly running into the Kyuubi's cage by accident and then having to explain to the head of the Yamanaka clan why his daughter was brain dead or irreversibly mentally damaged, traumatized. He makes it seem being mad or insane is a bad thing. D whined as he popped the lid off a grape soda, then a Coke. G got it, sensei. It won't happen again, Ino said with a slight stutter, her hands instinctively raising up in a placating manner as she stepped back from Naruto. Good, Asuma said with nod, giving the girl a comforting pat on the shoulder before looking ahead where the front gates of Konoha were just starting to come into view. Now come on, I am sure you must be looking forwards to telling your friends and family about how our mission went. While it was an obvious attempt at changing the subject, it was one the girl gladly took as she grinned weakly and started walking again. Yeah, I can't wait to rub it in Forehead's face that I helped save an entire country. As she spoke, Ino quickly started to perk up. Heck, I bet it'll even impress Sasuke-kun enough that he'll finally agree to go out on date with me. Then he'll see how great I am and want to go out on more dates, getting closer and closer. I am beginning to think that girl's bipolar. Artemis muttered with a raised brow as she watched through Naruto as Ino's mood quickly improved and she began to walk faster. I don't even know what that means, but I am pretty sure I agree. Naruto thought in agreement, briefly forgetting his irritation towards the moon goddess as he and the rest of the ninja got moving again. Don't get too excited just yet, we still have to report to the Hokage first. Tenten said as they arrived and their senseis checked in with the Eternal Gate guards Azumo and Katetsu. Aw man, I forgot about that. Ino groaned with a pout, hunching forward a bit and dropping her shoulders like the mere thought of their soon-to-be debriefing was tiring her out. That's gonna take forever. You think that's rough? Wait till certain campers ruin your filing system for said reports. Growled Chiron as he shattered a walnut in his hands, making certain campers sweat in fear for their lives. Sorry Ino, but that's just how it is. Asuma said after he and Guy finished talking with the guards and the gate opened up, chuckling loudly as his student Simple grumbled in response. Nothing else was said as they entered Konoha and headed towards the Hokage Tower to officially end their mission. Naturally though, their group ended up getting quite a large amount of attention drawn to them as they went by thanks to Naruto's passenger. Several ninja and civilians alike halted in the street in order to stare at Tisho, some being of shock, others of curiosity. More than a few eyed her with suspicion and disgust, muttering harsh insults under their breath, though just as many people, mostly girls and young women, would get one look at her and start ranting about how kawaii and mo she was. After a little while though, Tisho started to get bothered by all the attention and she slithered into Naruto's puffy collar until everything except her eyes and crown were out of sight, the latter of which Naruto took off and put into his pocket since it kept poking his neck and chin. Not long after that, they arrived at the Hokage Tower, went inside, up a few flights of stairs, past the secretary, and finally arrived at the door to the Hokage's office. And just like he always did, Naruto burst right through said door with a big grin on his lips and a yell of, "Hey Gigi, did you miss me?" as soon as he saw Hiruzen at his desk. However, his good mood swiftly puttered out when the elderly leader didn't smile back, opting to instead give the whiskered blonde a resigned look of tiredness and sadness. "Hello Naruto-kun, I am glad to see you're alright. What's up Gigi, I thought that you'd be excited to see me," Naruto said, his head tilting to the side in confusion. However, before Hiruzen could respond, the rest of the group filed into the office and stood before the man. Teams 9 and 10 reporting for mission debriefing, sir. Asuma had started to say in a stiff tone, only to pause at the end with a raised brow when he also noticed the old monk's attitude. "Hello Asuma-san, I am sure there is a lot you have to tell me if your messages have been as accurate as they appeared to be." Hiruzen's gaze flickered towards the small amber eyes peeking out at him from Naruto's collar. "But sadly, there is a more pressing matter that must be discussed first. Guy-san, could you and your team please step outside for a moment?" "Gigi, what's going on?" Naruto said, asked worriedly as Guy gave a quiet salute and led Tenten, Neji, and Lee out of the office. Waiting until Team 9 was completely out of the office, Hiruzen sighed heavily before intertwining his fingers and resting his chin on them. "I am sorry to have to tell you all this, but given your closeness to them, I figured it'd be best to inform you right away." "Inform us of what? Closeness to who?" Ino asked worriedly, her inner gossip radar screaming at her that something bad had happened. "There was an incident with Team 7. It was right. And now for bed." Sometimes Chiron hated his job. This was one of the times he desired that he was still on his forced vacation that Zeus imposed on him with what happened over the summer break. Lord Call Me D for Dickhead Sober God was no help as he was too busy reading his damn magazines. Chiron made a mental note to call Zeus about this and perhaps convince his younger brother Zeus to increase his pay and made the younger immortal do his god's dang duty. The reason for this, a sudden mob of demigods and hunters who refused to go to bed along with the gleeful calls of encouragement from Ares as they tied up the trainer of heroes and sent him away on a boat to float along the bay. "Sorry Mr. Chiron sir," a young nymph said with a forced grin as she helped navigate the boat along the Long Island Sound currents. "But we have to be sure that we get to hear more of the story." The muffled yells of the centaur filled the air, but only the giggles of the water nymphs were the only reply before they let him go listen to the story. And now, Camp Half-Blood, waiting for the results of the quest for the goddess and my little sister Artemis. Leto rolled her eyes as her song began to monologue before smacking his head. "Enough you, Aphrodite, please read." "Of course, Konoha Hospital, insert somber music." "Sure thing Aphrodite." Snapping his fingers, Apollo summoned a radio. "What about Hallelujah, instrumental only?" "Oh yes, that's a great choice," the goddess of love said with a grin as she held onto the book she was able to collect with the aid of Ares, who was grinning like a lunatic after the rumble that happened only minutes prior with groaning harpies stacked on top of one another like logs with large bumps on their heads along with a few nature spurts who were in the way. Grinning, Apollo pressed play and the song began to play. Beep, beep, beep. Ino felt nothing but sadness and pity wash over her like a tsunami as she looked down at the hospital bed before her, or more specifically the pinkett on it. Sakura, her once best friend turned love rival, lay completely unmoving as she stared upwards at nothing. Her skin was a sickly gray color instead of its usual soft peach, and she was even thinner than the last time Ino had seen her. If it wasn't for the fact the heart monitor was still beeping and her chest was moving slowly, it would be impossible to tell her apart from a corpse. "What happened to her?" Mark whispered to his new seatmate. "Hush," said one of his siblings. On the other side of the bed, Sakura's mother, a tired-looking dark blonde woman named Mebuki, kept saying how everything would be okay while rubbing the girl's arm comfortingly. Or at least what was left of her arm. Where Sakura's arms used to be, there was now just a pair of useless bandaged stumps, with one gone all the way to the shoulder and the other ending 2 or 3 inches above where her elbow once was. "By the fates," Leto gasped as she covered her mouth with one hand. Demigods and hunters alike were in shock at the condition of the girl, as they didn't expect it to be that bad of injuries. "I thought she was poisoned and was paralyzed," Phoebe flatly uttered as she licked the inside of her now dry mouth. According to the Hokage, the man that had hired Team 7, an old bridge builder named Tazuna from Nami no Kuni, to escort him home had lied about the difficulty of the mission because he had been unable to afford a higher rank thanks to a corrupt businessman named Gato ruining his country's economy by monopolizing the shipping industry of the island nation. Tazuna had been attempting to break said monopoly by building a bridge to connect Nami to the mainland, which resulted in Gato putting a hit out on the old man. Team 7 discovered this shortly after leaving when they were attacked by a pair of C-rank missing nin from Kurigakure known as the Demon Brothers. However, after making short work of the two ninjas, the team made the decision of continuing the mission anyway. That was stupid. Malcolm recalled what was said about Team 7 back in Chapter 5. It was most likely her and that Sasuke fellow that argued they were ready for the mission even with the client hiding information. Nods all around and chatter of agreement to the son of Athena filled the air before dying out to listen to what would happen next. This ended up being a horrible mistake as only a day later when they were almost at Tazuna's home they were attacked by Zabuza Momochi, an A-rank missing nin also from Kiri known as the Demon of the Hidden Mist and a former member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist. 7 Swordsmen? Ares asked before an image of a group of 7 individuals appeared, each with a different weapon. The god of war grinned at their looks and tools of fighting. Oh nice. After a very close fight, in which Team 7 only just managed to win by the skin of their teeth, a fake hunter nin from Kiri appeared just as the team leader Kakashi was about to finish Zabuza off and killed the rogue ninja. Unfortunately, as the masked hunter was collecting the dead body, Shikamaru called him out as a phony. Athena's children all groaned at the dumb move. What was he thinking? If your team is in no condition to fight, why set off a possible unknown that is not attempting to attack you? That's stupid and idiotic. Athena's cabin. For sure. Yeah, wasn't that last week with the Cyclops? ... After the story we get our revenge. Malcolm growled with a twitching brow to his sister who nodded with a glint in her eye. That's when everything ended up going from bad to complete shit as the fake hunter reacted aggressively. Using Zabuza's weapon, a massive 7-foot-long cleaver-like sword, and Senbon, small metal needles, the young hunter easily decimated the tired team before fleeing. Thankfully nobody had died, but the injuries all 4 of them had received were no joke. Sasuke had been stabbed in both eyes by a pair of Senbon just after he managed to unlock his Sharingan. Kakashi received a deep cut to the chest that narrowly missed anything vital. Shikamaru had gotten temporarily paralyzed by several Senbon to his spine while trying to attack from a distance, and Sakura's arms had been chopped off. Shed reflexively tried to block a sword swipe. That was horrible, Ares said as he pinched his nose in disgust. Prissy Jackson was able to fight me with a week under his belt for more than a minute, and this girl as was supposed to be trained for more than him gets her arms chopped off instead of ducked or moving out of the way. I thought you hated Pinky? Mr. D asked with a smirk. Ares sent him a glare with smoke rising from behind his glasses. Shut it, booze boy. At least he has a better combat ability than that pink Barbie doll that got her arms cut off. Top of her class, my ass. If she was the best female ninja, what does that mean for Ino who was able to survive Bowser? Apollo blinked as a thought came to him. How did you know about? I read fast and I go the highlights from my kids. Lightbulb needs a charge Rolly. It was only thanks to a combination of Tazuna's daughter, a lovely young woman named Tsunami, having enough medical knowledge to bandage her wounds once the old man managed to drag the quartet the rest of the way to his place, and the injuries somehow having frostbite that Sakura didn't bleed out within the hour. Ambrosia and nectar for the win, even if it can't restore limbs. Kawalshi rubbed her side and phantom pains flared up from the time she got bitten by a hellhound. 2.5 days later a rescue team consisting of Tsunade, Shizune, and half a dozen Anbu arrived in response to the SOS message Kakashi sent to Konoha via summon. Sadly, while the 2 medic nin were able to treat everyone's injuries, they were unable to reattach Sakura's arms thanks to the aforementioned frostbite, which caused a bad case of gangrene resulting in even more of the Pinket's arms needing removed and the severed arms rotting due to the inability to properly preserve them. Once the 4 were stabilized and the Anbu had taken care of both Gato and his mercenary force because fuck Gato and finished an unsuccessful search for Zabuza and the fake hunter nin, they returned to Konoha. Tazuna had been arrested briefly for falsifying a mission request that led to Team 7's state, but the charges were dropped since Kakashi admitted to discovering the lie earlier and still proceeding with the mission. Mr. D placed down a drink and stared at the collection of demigods and hunters. As Chiron isn't here, I'll say it. Don't lie about a quest that will lead to the injures to your allies. Do you care? Leto asked with a smile that fell when he let out a loud burp. Scratching his belly he went back to his drink while the Titan shook her head. Well, that plus the daimyo of Nami agreed to let Konoha keep 4/5 of the money and valuables collected from Gato's mansion, which totaled over 18 million ryo, $1,800,000 United States dollars, and that Hino Kuni get 5% off all trade costs once the bridge was finished. ... Why don't we get paid again? Castor asked aloud. Blame the time we were Dutch and the banking system. Apollo said with a straight face, offering no clue why he said that. Ino snapped out of her thoughts as she stepped back slightly so Mebuki could walk past her, having to get back to her duties as a kunoichi of Konoha. Once she was gone, the blonde took the now vacant seat by the bed and put up the most supportive smile she could. Hey forehead. Ino pig. Sakura replied sourly, her voice slightly raspy from lack of use. What do you want? Gonna gloat that you'll get Sasuke-kun for sure now. What? No, of course not. Ino stated with an offended look. She may be competitive about her crush on the last Uchiha, but doing something like that would be outright cruel. Oh, but the drama, Aphrodite gushed with a giggle before reading on. I wanted to see how you were doing. The Hokage told me what happened when my team got back and I was worried. Sorry Ino, I am just in a bad mood. The Pinkett apologized. Don't worry about it, I'd probably be a bit snippy too if I was in your shoes. The gossip queen said with a wave of her hand before resting it on Sakura's shoulder. But seriously, how are you holding up? Horribly, Sakura admitted with a depressed sigh, her voice cracking slightly as a single tear ran down her cheek. I messed up Ino, I messed up so badly. Random Hunter 6 shook her head. Trauma, she won't be able to do her duties without scars about what happened. Oh come on Sakura, this isn't your fault. Ino said supportingly, only for the Pinkett to shake her head. Yes it is, I didn't listen to you about those stupid diets and because of that I was completely useless. Like Cabin 10, Snap Aphrodite smiled with narrowed eyes as the son of Ares was given clown makeup with clothing covered in itchy powder, cursed not to move until she was done reading. His muffled screams behind his closed grin was music to her ears. The hunters who were about to agree however made sure not to say anything, even if they agreed with the boy. I could barely keep up with the others when we were walking, and nothing more than a hindrance to my team when we got attacked. Sakura said as more tears started to fall from her eyes. I should never have become a ninja. Hey, stop thinking like that, Ino said while clapping her hands together loudly, snapping the girl out of her thoughts. Yes you should have listened to me about the dieting, but do you really think that would have really made a difference now? Those guys were able to beat both your sensei and Sasuke-kun, so they were clearly out of our league. Yeah but, no buts, Ino cut Sakura off with a firm look that softened after a few seconds. You were put in an unexpectedly bad situation that you weren't ready for, it happens. Trust me I know, you wouldn't believe most of the weird crap that happened on my mission. Really, like what? Sakura asked curiously, hoping to change the subject, which Ino gladly did. Stop music. Ah, Apollo whined as he turned off his tunes. Where do I even start? My team got stuck with a crazy man with the worst fashion sense I've ever seen, and I mean the worst. Ino paused briefly to shiver as she thought about Guy and Lee's spandex outfits. Ares destroy. Wah, oh hell no, I don't want anything to do with them. Ares yelled as he recalled the duo's image. And his team, and we were attacked by a giant lava spitting turtle that Naruto somehow managed to kill. Speaking of, and you will not believe this part, somehow that knucklehead managed to hook up with a freaking princess, and he ended up adopting this foot-tall snake girl he found in a cave. Seriously? Sakura asked dully while giving Ino a disbelieving look. I get you're trying to cheer me up and all, but you could at least make it sound somewhat realistic. It happened, came the chorus of listeners. I told you it was hard to believe, hell I went through it and I still have trouble believing it. Ino smirked as she reached into her weapons pouch and pulled out a photograph that she held out for Sakura to see. That's why I brought proof. On it was an image of Bowser's skull with Naruto and Momo standing on top of it, Ino, Choji, and Asuma standing by the left side, and Team 9 on the right. Naruto had a sheepish grin and a heavy blush on his face as the princess gave him a kiss on his whiskered cheek while Tisho sat atop his head with her usual curious expression. Aphrodite smirked at Naruto with glee at the heartbreak the boy was going to have with the princess. The only thing that would make this better was if he was engaged to another princess. Or several. In another world several females sneezed. As she took in the picture, Sakura's eyes threatened to pop out of her skull and her mouth hung wide open, only snapping back to reality when Ino put the picture away. Holy shit. I know right, Ino said with a chuckle at the armless girl's not-so-quiet exclamation before explaining the whole story as best she could. With each word that left her mouth, Sakura's flabbergasted expression grew more and more, especially once the platinum blonde talked about Naruto's night with Princess Momo. The princess actually had sex with Naruto Baka, she demanded. That whiskered hunk, Mama needs to met him. Ares glared as the goddess of love gigged as she stared at Naruto, thinking of ways to prevent the boy from meeting the goddess of love. Went the whole 9 yards from what I can tell. Ino said with a nod. Guess I can't really blame her though, he did save her life repeatedly. But this is Naruto we're talking about. Why would anyone want to sleep with him? Sakura asked rhetorically as she pretended to gag a little. Couldn't she have just given him a medal or something instead? Hero, Ares, Mr. D and Apollo flatly said as if it was the only answer needed. You know, he's actually not that bad once you get to know him. Ino said with a small frown. He has my sister trapped in him. Sunshine dear, remember your temper. What? The blonde asked with a raised brow as Sakura stared at her with a baffled expression. Did you just defend Naruto? Sakura asked back incredulously. So what if I did? He is my teammate, Ino said with a shrug. But you hate him as much as I do, Sakura stated. What the hell do you mean hate him? Ino asked, her head tilted in confusion. I mean, I disliked Naruto a lot when we were in the academy, yeah, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that I hated him. And that was true, other than finding Naruto's over-exuberance and classroom antics irritating and childish, she really didn't have much an issue or interaction with him until after they were put on a team. Hunters blinked as all had the same idea about the twins, but it was Leto who voiced it. Apollo. What? However, the god of intelligence was not on the uptake. But he's so loud, rude, stupid, and annoying because he wasn't raised right. He doesn't have a mother or father, no one to teach him right from wrong. Sakura said while rolling her eyes, missing the look of shock and disgust that appeared on Ino's face as she continued. Leto pursed her lips. Apollo honey, how good is your aim with your plague arrows? She asked as she patted Nico's angry and upset head as he glared at the image of the pink girl. I mean, think about it, he just does whatever comes to mind. If I did things like Naruto, then forget it, my parents would get so mad at me and I'd get in trouble, so I don't do it. But if you don't have parents to tell you, then how would you know? She asked rhetorically. He's selfish and bratty, he gets to do whatever he wants whenever he wants, I say she need to lose more than her arms. Say her an eye and legs. A demigod of Demeter growled as he lost his father when he was a toddler and lived in foster care 4 years until he made it to camp. Ares sent the boy a thumbs up for the violent idea. Was completely alone. Ino cut in, causing Sakura to pause in surprise as she turned her head back towards Ino to say something, only to end up cowering under the withering glare the blonde was sending towards her. Do you realize how horrible you just sounded, Sakura? What do YUMM mean? The injured Pinkett asked with a stutter, shivering slightly from the anger Ino was directing at her. What do I mean? What do I mean? Ino repeated in outrage, before pausing briefly to take a few deep breaths to calm down, though her glare intensified threefold. Do you honestly not know, or are you just playing dumb? No, what? I have no idea why you're getting at, Sakura said shakily, unnerved by Ino's sudden change of mood. What do you think about a new mental attack? Apollo slowly said as he sharpened an arrowhead with glowing eyes. I wanted to know the effects of someone scared of air, Mr. D said as vines strangled several fat satyrs behind him who were gasping for help. Wow, just wow, Ino muttered in disappointment with a shake of her head and a sigh. It really never occurred to you that being an orphan isn't all daisies and rainbows? Did it never reach your big brain that maybe not having parents wouldn't be as fun as you think? It's not, Nico whispered as his glare settled on the hunters. They took his sister away, and while a part of his understood why she did it, he thought it was karma. They lost the goddess of the moon for her action of taking his sister away. Sakura started to say something, but Ino cut her off once again by raising her hand. Sure, we wouldn't have to worry about being punished for doing stupid things or have to follow a bunch of dumb rules like going to bed at 7:30, but we'd also lose so much. Can you imagine coming home every single day to an empty house, no one there to ask you how school went or support you after a hard day? Ino asked, causing the crippled Pinkett to freeze as her brain started conjuring up images of such a situation. How about not having your mother around to tell you that she loved you, or your dad to tell you it was alright after you woke up from a nightmare? Doesn't that just sound fan-fucking-tastic? Several hunters and demigods nodded their heads from personal experiences. Well, when you put it like that, that sounds pretty horrible, Sakura muttered while staring at her blanket, unable to meet Ino's gaze. No kidding, imagine how I felt when I found out while visiting his apartment. Ino said, her mind drifting back to that awkward day. Flashback, 1 week after Genin test. I can't believe I agreed to this, Ino thought with a dull look as she walked down the hall of an apartment building, a gardening bag hanging from shoulder filled with a few potted flowers, sprouts, and garden tools. Me and my stupid curiosity. The day before, Naruto had come by her family shop to buy a few different plants, something he did all the time, especially in the last year. However, unlike every other time, Ino had actually talked to her fellow blonde as he shopped, deciding she might as well get to know her new teammate better. Alright, fine, she was hoping to get some more details on his date with Hinata. Her love of gossip was a hard thing to quell, sue her. Gossip is fun and a good source of information about the community of the gods. Selena giggled with her siblings in the Hermes cabin, who nodded their heads in agreement. And gossip can change wars. Ares knew this from experience, as the goddess of love was always making him blab his plans, then giving said information to Hermes to sell to Athena for a share of the profit. Aphrodite was all grins and dagger polishing as she looked at the hunters. However, since just jumping into that hadn't gotten her anywhere, the ponytailed blonde had decided to take a subtler approach and started by asking about his constant shopping. As they talked though, Ino had found herself getting increasingly curious about this garden that Naruto kept talking about, and before she even realized what happened, Shed ended up agreeing to come by and help him with it. Mom would love to meet him. Yes, Apollo snickered at the idea of Demeter meeting Naruto. Or her daughter. And so here she was, walking up to the door of Naruto's place to hang out with the blonde for a good portion of the day, something Shed never thought Shed be doing. Well, might as well get this over with, Ino thought while knocking loudly. It's open, Ino, Naruto's voice called out slightly muffled, causing Ino to blink in surprise before opening the door to find Naruto and Artemis sitting at a table eating cups of instant ramen. How did you know it was me? She asked while looking around the apartment, her already raised brow vanishing into her hairline at how small it was. You told us you were coming by today, the moon goddess stated after gulping down a mouthful of noodles. Right, my bad, Ino said with a sheepish smile. So where is this garden you keep talking about? It's up on the roof, here I'll show, gurgle hold the thought. Naruto cut himself off before booking it to the bathroom as his stomach grumbled loudly. You might as well sit down, this is gonna be a while. Artemis said dryly, not even blinking as she was dragged back a few feet by the chain sticking out of her neck. A flash from Aphrodite set off the hunters as the goddess made sure to save the moment of Artemis being dragged around like a pet. All right then, Ino said, setting her bag on the table but remained standing. A long silence fell over the room after that, only broken by the occasional groan of agony from Naruto and the soft slurping from Artemis. Seeing that the goddess was content with the silence, Ino returned her attention to the apartment itself. Geez, this place is so plain. The walls were bare and painted a plain cream color, and the only furniture beside the table and chairs was an old recliner set in front of an old dinged-up TV, a couple of potted plants, a cupboard, and a small shelf a few feet to her left that held several knickknacks, a few movies, and a trio framed photos. Her curiosity getting the better of her once more, the gossip queen walked over and picked up the middle picture. On it was a picture of a 4-year-old Naruto smiling brightly as he sat on the Hokage's lap, the old mon's hat sitting lopsidedly on the little blonde's head. Squeals from the females made the males cover their ears in pain. Ino couldn't help but giggle at the cute scene before setting the photo down and grabbing the one on the left. This one was more recent, showing the whiskered blonde with a single auburn streak in his hair wearing a formal kimono with a slightly uncomfortable yet victorious smile as he held up a bag full of goldfish while Shizune stood behind him ruffling his hair. Apollo tapped his chin. That is odd. What is it, Dad? Will asked as he yawned. Oh, just there is a lack of interesting reviews from last chapter. Sorta sad about that. Mr. D snickered. What about the one about Amaterasu? I felt insulted. Apollo huffed. PTSD. Really, he knows the apprentice of the slug Sanin. Ino thought with a shocked expression, easily recognizing the raven-haired woman. The metaphoric grapevine had practically exploded when Tsunade and Shizune had returned to Konoha, so of course she knew all about them. Shaking off her shock, the ponytailed blonde put the picture back and lifted up the last one. This one she recognized immediately. How could she not? It was the group photo her team took right after passing the Genin test. She stood in the middle with a smirk on her lips, Naruto was on her right with his trademark foxy grin, Choji to her left eating a bag of barbecue chips, and Asuma stood in the back lazily smoking a cigarette. Smiling a bit as she set the picture back in its place, Ino suddenly frowned as she realized something. Why aren't there any pictures of Naruto with his parents? She wondered while looking around the apartment again, confirming that there were no other pictures to be seen. In fact, there's nothing suggesting anyone but him lives here. Where's the pictures of my sister? Apollo whined as he looked through the images of Naruto's room. He wanted to see child Artemis to lord over his sister. Ino was nothing if attentive to detail, she had to be as a kunoichi and head gossiper of her age, and what she saw confused her. The cupboard in the kitchenette was open, allowing her to see the solitary bowl and plate amongst the food. There was only one bedroom, which after taking a quick peek inside revealed a single bed and a futon, the latter of which she knew was only recently added since Shed helped Naruto buy it for Artemis. Leto frowned. So my daughter was either in the sewer in his mind or the dirty floor until then. Nico looked up to the immortal. I thought you'll be upset of the idea of Naruto sharing a bed with him. Hunters and Apollo all paled in horror at the idea. It already was upsetting she was stuck with the boy but to be sleeping with him. Oh Nico, you must be given the best love life ever for that. Aphrodite yelled with joy, drooling at the idea of Naruto and Artemis sleeping together in bed. Seriously, it's like he lives here, all by himself. By Kami, I am an idiot. Ino thought with a facepalm as all the pieces finally clicked together in her mind. All the memories she had of the whiskered blonde played through her mind, his childish attitude, his lack of manners, his over-boisterousness. He's an orphan. How did I not know that? It makes so much sense when I think about it now. Ino thought as she went over everything she knew about Naruto, with each fact practically screaming at her for missing something so obvious. However, when she got to her more recent learnings of the energetic boy, she stiffened up like a board as one key detail jumped out at her. Her eyes slowly drifted over to Artemis, who was still casually enjoying her food with a content look. He must have been so lonely. She thought with a pitying look. An orphan boy who lives alone just happening to have a second personality that he saw as an older sister. Yeah, it didn't take a genius to see the correlation there. Goddess. A voice came from the hearth, scaring those closest to the fire. Before she could delve deeper into such thoughts though, Ino was snapped back to the present as the bathroom door opened up and Naruto walked out with a relieved sigh. Oh man, that was rough. Well, maybe next time you'll listen to me when I say the milk is expired. Artemis said, an amused smirk crossed her lips as Naruto simply groaned in response. Now if you're done whining, I do believe you have a guest to entertain. Almost like a switch had been flipped, Naruto immediately perked up and turned towards Ino with a sheepish grin. Right, sorry for making you wait like that, Ino. It's no problem, Naruto, just show me this garden of yours already. Ino said awkwardly while trying to shove her recent revelation to the back of her mind with little success as she picked her bag back up. Right, follow me, flashback end. Ino shook her head with a sigh as she stood up and headed to the door. Forget it, I am going home, it's been a long day and I need to get some sleep. See you later, Sakura, she said without looking back, leaving a still stunned Sakura alone to her thoughts. It's a good thing Naruto wasn't able to come with me like he wanted to. Kami only knows how he would have reacted if heard her say that. The blonde thought as she walked down the halls of the hospital. Or Lady Artemis. Phoebe took a sip of her drink before yawning. The energetic blonde had been forced to stay at the Hokage Tower because Hiruzen wanted Tisho to be looked over first by Tsunade and Konoha's resident snake expert. Speaking of which, Hokage's Tower, Private Medical Bay. You are an adorable little thing, aren't you? One Anko Mitarashi, a purple-haired woman wearing an open long brown trench coat with mesh armor underneath, said as she held Tisho up to her face with one hand. The other was using a pair of tweezers to carefully hold the small Lamia's mouth open so she could see the small budding fangs and teeth inside. Ooh, and possibly quite deadly once you're a bit older, what fun. Putting the tweezers down, Anko moved the arm holding Tisho until it was perpendicular to her stomach before running her free hand along the tail constricting around her forearm, gently pinching it between her thumb and forefinger. Almost entirely muscle, ribs and vertebrae are stiffer than normal. Makes sense since most of the internals are in the upper body instead and you wouldn't need to expand in order to consume food. A bit less flexible, pressing her thumb against Tisho's abdomen, Anko smirked as her arm audibly groaned and started turning purple until she stopped. But more than makes up for it with triple the gripping strength. How did she not flinch from that? Apollo stated in shock as that was clearly a near break of her arm. I like her, Ares said with a shrug, not caring how or why the woman was able to take the pain without flinching. In his mind she was a warrior who knew what pain was and therefore was able to handle it. Satisho's all right, Naruto asked nervously from the other side of the room with Tsunade, Shizune, and Hiruzen beside him. Relax Gaki, she's fine, the perplet said, pulling the Lamia off her arm and setting her down on the counter. Gonna need some braces to straighten her teeth as they grow, otherwise as far as I can tell she's a picture of health. Aphrodite clicked her tongue, a shame, but at least she'll be pretty when she gets mature. Which is where we come in, Tsunade said before picking Naruto up by the scruff of his jacket. Have fun Shizune. Like a mama cat with her kitten. Leto snickered at the comment made by Beckendorf. Even if he was right. Oi, what the hell, Naruto yelled as he squirmed around in the medic's grasp. Put me down Bakaba-chan. No can do Gaki, Tsunade stated with a wicked smirk as she walked over to a different exam room with her fellow blonde in tow. I heard you had a little fun with a girl on your mission. Apollo, Ares and Mr. D started snickering as they connected the dots. Demigods were confused but Aphrodite had a glint in her eyes as she went on. What's that G got to do with anything? Naruto demanded as his face reddened. Oh, you don't know? Tsunade asked in a mocking tone as Naruto glowered at her. Whenever a ninja has sex on a mission they have to have a checkup immediately after they get back, to make sure they didn't catch anything you see. Makes sense, Artemis said as Naruto stopped squirming as much. It does, Boy 1 said, makes sense, Number 2 agreed. Why are they still laughing? Asked Number 3. This is going to hurt a lot, isn't it? He asked as he was set down in an exam chair and Tsunade locked the door. Never losing her smirk, the busty blonde dug around inside a drawer and pulled out a syringe. I'd be lying if I said no. Truth hurts. Funny. Outside the Hokage Tower. A pair of Chunin guards jumped slightly as a high-pitched girly scream filled the air. Huh, sounds like some poor sap broke the golden rule. The one on the left said. Someone was dumb enough to take the last dango from the break room. Asked the right one. No you dingus, never admit you had sex on a mission. Oh, man what a moron, and that is why you never admit to having sex on a quest either. Apollo said sagely as a roar came from the direction they cast away Chiron. On that uplifting note, run. Ah, how I love the morning. Chiron said happily as he opened the book. He paid no mind to the glares sent his way as he licked his ice cream he had liberated from the stock Mr. D kept in the big house. Around him were the wonderful leaners of sudden combat. His students had sucked up his wisdom like sponges as he gently taught them how to survive. Dodgeball practice, a relaxing set of laps with blunt objects. Their joyful and youthful screams of joy at his teachings he savored almost as much as his ice cream. And his custom hamster wheel-powered massage chair was doing wonders for his back as volunteers made sure it stayed at his preferred settings. Even better it was getting the hunters and the daughters of Aphrodite to get along, even if they were chanting praises to the gods to kill him. Oh well, picking up the book he happily began the 14th chapter. And now, Naruto's apartment. Ow, 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 Naruto whimpered as he flopped into his recliner with a bag of ice hugged to his crotch. By Kami, this hurts, I never want to go through this again. I wish. The male gods groaned as one as they held their own ice packs between their legs where the trainer of heroes shot them with multiple heated celestial bronze bricks. Ares glared at Apollo. When this is over, Sunspot, I am going to total your ride. Why me? Apollo glared at the god of war, daring him to answer. I wasn't the one to edge him on. But you were the one to improve his archery skills. Mr. D growled as he attempted to shift it on his seat. Agreed, Artemis said from her own seat with Tisho on her lap, gently swatting the Lamia's hands whenever she tried to fiddle with the new braces in her mouth. She'd forgotten to sever her connection to Naruto's senses while Tsunade had done the tests, so Shed ended up feeling the whole process as well. All males winced in pain at that. All but Ares. That's how it feels, bitch. He laughed, groaned in pain. I'd rather go on a shopping with Aphrodite again than repeat that experience. Said goddess snickered. Oh, I will lord that over Artie when I see her again. As soon as this thought passed through her mind, the moon goddess paused when she felt an odd tingling sensation in her chest. Thinking it was Tisho's tail tickling her, she instinctually reached up to brush it away, only to blink in confusion when she felt nothing there. Looking down, she confirmed that the small snake girl was still on her lap like she thought, but her tail was neatly curled up underneath her with the end being used as a headrest. Before she could contemplate this oddity for long though. No, I want to hear you miss me. Aphrodite whined as she grabbed onto Leto's arm. Who can go for matching outfits with your mom and go window shopping? That does sound fun. Leto agreed with the goddess who squealed in joy. 3. Her attention was drawn away by the sound of the window sliding open. Hello Gakis, Jiraiya said boisterously while he casually hopped into the apartment and did a silly pose. Did you two miss me? Oh great, this idiot, just what I needed right now. Artemis thought sarcastically, fixing the old man with an irritated glare. What do you want, Ero-Sennin? Aren't you supposed to be out spying on people or something? Naruto asked dully as he shifted around in his seat, small jolts of pain rushing through him with every movement. And I swear if it's because you want me to do the Oryoku no Jutsu for your research again, I will tell Tsunade Bachan that you have a picture of her in the hot springs. How did you, I mean, Jiraiya stumbled on his words as he tried to regain his composure. Now Naruto and Artemis have blackmail on you, dude. Not your smartest moment. Don't you have one of Demeter Apollo? Seriously. Have you seen her in a bikini? Apollo countered Ares, who nodded with a blushing grin. Pigs. Phoebe grunted out from her safe place. Nothing like that, Gaki. I am actually here on business. And what business would that be, Lanos? Artemis asked, wanting to spend as little time as possible in this mon's presence as possible. Well, that should be obvious, shouldn't it? Jiraiya asked back as he walked over to Naruto with an expectant look. Gasped out a hunter as she ran as fast as she could on the hamster wheel. Creeper. A sister hunter buessed out as she tried not to trip over a slowing daughter of love. Said whiskered blonde sighed before lifting up his shirt and channeling chakra, causing a complex sun-like seal to appear on his stomach and a chain tattoo that coiled around his torso all the way up to the back of his neck where the chain connecting him to Artemis emerged. Once it was fully visible, Jiraiya leaned in close and carefully looked over the seal with a critical eye for several minutes before backing off. Alright, everything seems to be alright still, no signs of degradation or damage. I could have told you that, I live in that damn thing after all. Artemis said while tugging on the chain sticking out of her neck for emphasis. And out of the two of us, which one is a seal master? Jiraiya asked rhetorically, making the moon goddess grit her teeth in annoyance. Yet you let my baby girl stay trapped in the cutie. Leto snapped at the book, annoyed. I wonder if Moon and Sunshine want a little brother. If that's true, then why can't you let Artie-chan out already? Naruto asked as he pulled his shirt back down. Yeah, it's too much a risk. The person who set that up made so many redundancies and traps that it would take me years just to find all of them, let alone disable or avoid. The pervert said with a shake of his head. Malcolm made a dog whining sound from the tree limb he was folded over like wet laundry. Think Athena could free Artemis from him. Head hurts too much to osculate that thought. Travis groaned from on top of the son of Athena. Malcolm closed his eyes, not willing to point out that osculate was the wrong word in his pain. Okay, then why don't we just get that person too? Sheer is dead. Jiraiya and Artemis cut in at the same time, making Naruto pout with a snap of his fingers, not noticing the slight amount of guilt that crossed Artemis' face. She hadn't told him that it was his mother's spirit that had locked her inside of his soul, figuring that it would have just caused unneeded strife between the two of them and she needed him as cooperative as possible. Oh, the heartbreak. Aphrodite giggled and opened up a small book and began to write quickly. Oh, I can't wait to see the break of trust in the fight they'll have. Oh, the suspense. The drama. Besides, all telling him now would do is upset him. The goddess thought with a shake of her head before returning her attention back to Jiraiya. Alright Lanos, you did what you needed to do, now leave. Oh ho, so eager to see me leave. I am hurt Gaki-chan, I thought we were friends. Jiraiya said with a mock sad face, casually dodging out of the way of the knife that was thrown at his head. If that man is friends with Artemis, clearly her sanity is slipping. Mr. D shifted his ice pack to his head. Chiron was downright nasty with his bow. I didn't just come here to check up on the seal, in fact that was actually just an afterthought I had after I got here. What, then why are you here Ero-sennin? Naruto asked with a raised brow. Instead of getting a verbal response though, he caught a small scroll that the self-proclaimed super pervert tossed to him. Confused and curious, he opened up the roll of parchment and quickly read its contents with Artemis joining him a few seconds later. Urgent notice. Due to recent unfortunate events, all newly graduated genin will be temporarily assigned to a sensei for 7 days of individual training and evaluation. By order of Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage. Okami, does this mean what I think it mean? Naruto asked as he and the goddess slowly turned their heads towards Jiraiya with looks of dread, only made worse when they saw the wide grin on his face. The anti-pervert trained by pervert. Ares began to laugh and shake as he couldn't believe the goddess' luck. He wasn't the only one as his half-brothers were rolling on the ground in stitches. Campers would have joined in but they were too much in pain to do so. The engine is slowing down. Chiron said calmly before flipping a switch. Screams and yelps from the engine from the now electric floor was all he needed to know his massage chair was on full power again as the volunteers were properly motivated. He sighed on content once more. Ah, so good. Nico, how has the replies to the reviews going? Interesting sir. Nico said with star-sparkling eyes to Chiron, who was now drinking a virgin piña colada to spite the wine god. Nico tapped the tablet with a hem. Most people are thankful for the chapter being up and such. And thank you Kakeru PB and HNHO58513 for notzing me. Nico shivered as he looked around for whomever spoke. Is the camp haunted? Nico, please the reviews. Right. Anyway there's something about Apollo and Amaterasu. Ah yes my female form. Apollo nodded sagely. The East really digs it. He really is annoying good looking as a woman. The goddess of love winked at the sun god who gave her a thumbs up. Nico shivered and went on. Someone wants to know what the rest of the gods are up to. Hermes hold still. If Apollo's son William can shoot an apple off his son's head I should be able to hit a thimble off yours with my bolt. Ares and Aphrodite shivered, and a couple want to know what your did. Nico winced as he looked over the campers and volunteers. Oh and a Spanish review. Let me see that. Ares picked up the tablet and looked it over. Sufrimiento. Sufrimiento. Naruto va a sufrir ahora. También esos lugares se usan demasiado. Un montón de basura ninja podría ser mejor para mí. I miss the Spanish conquistadors, so much blood shed. Ares smiled at the memories of the New World conquest. So much blood and it led to the best wars ever. His domain was stronger than ever before and all because of Poseidon's boy dating a Valkyrie. Chris was a pansy because of old Zap Happy wanted all the glory. Lost in his thoughts he almost missed what Chiron was saying. Yes. Oh I taught them a lesson in survival and while Apollo would heal them, I think this lesson will be very helpful in the world. Chiron smiled an evil grin. I also made sure that there is enough ambrosia to heal a quarter of you campers around the camp and I will give a map out after this chapter. ... Evil. Leto grinned at her cousin who lifted his drink to her in a toast. Starting today, you are going to be my new student, well students. Kuso, Skada, Naruto and Artemis swore at the same time with drooped heads. Hey, what's with the attitude? You're going to get training from one of the Sannin. I'll have you know that anyone else would be honored to have me as their teacher. Jiraiya said with a huff. If he's anything like Apollo I am not too sure on that. Hunter 6 said as she ran. Her sister hunters mentally cursed her for her stamina she got from her father Hermes. Whatever you say Ero-sennin. Naruto said while waving the old man off. No respect these days, Jiraiya grumbled under his breath as he walked over to the window he'd come in from. Anyway, I expect the both of you to be at training ground 3 in 2 hours and ready for a lot of pain. With his piece said, Jiraiya gave the pair a salute before leaping out the window and vanishing into the village. I cannot stand that man, his presence is intolerable, Artemis said through grit teeth as she stood up, causing Tisho to slither up to her shoulder. Just being near him makes me want to eviscerate something. I know, but Hokage Gigi says we have to work with him, so we don't have a lot of choice in the matter. Naruto said with a shrug as the moon goddess growled softly before standing up with a small wince. Now come on, we have 2 hours until then and I want to go see how Shikamaru, Sakura-chan, and Sasuke-tem are doing finally, maybe raid the med storage for some painkillers while we're at it. And Chiron made sure to have it locked and hidden up from us. The twins cursed in their heads as they plucked thorns and splinters from their bodies. We might as well, Artemis said with a shrug, picking Tisho up off his shoulder and handing her over to Naruto before dispelling. Now hurry up, those painkillers sound really nice right now. What could she say? She was tired of feeling phantom pains in her crotch. And not the good kind. Aphrodite, mom, pervert. Hi Artie Nichan, Naruto thought before hopping out the window like Jiraiya had. Still hate him for that. Apollo giggled darkly as he thought of ways to get revenge on the boy. 20 minutes of roof hopping later, he arrived at Konoha's hospital and after a bit of asking around, getting lost twice, and a quick stop for some painkillers, soon found himself inside Shikamaru and Sasuke's room. Shikamaru had his usual bored look on his face, his bed raised to just the right level that he could read the book he was holding, How to Find the Best Cloud Watching Spot, while occasionally moving one of the pieces on the rotating shogi board sitting across his lap or eat a chip from the bag beside him every few minutes or so. Athena's children when they recover, Mark slowly said as he nursed a black eye and a gash on his back. Meanwhile Sasuke looked a mixture between infuriated and depressed as a doctor had him look through a phoropter. Which one is better Uchiha-san, 1 or 2? 1. Deciding wisely, for once, to leave that ticking bomb for later, the whiskered blonde walked over to Shikamaru and waved. Hey Shika, I heard you guys ended up in a bit of a mess while on mission. It was troublesome, the lazy boy stated, not taking his eyes off his book as he idly moved another piece. Athena would love him. Nico's head jerked back and forth to find whoever was the voice. It was worse that the voice was now giggling and someone pinched his cheeks after he closed his eyes. Says the guy who thinks breathing is more trouble than it's worth at times. Naruto said, chuckling when Shikamaru shrugged in response. But seriously, how are you doing buddy? No lasting issues, they'll be releasing me tomorrow. Shikamaru said with another shrug. That's good to hear, I also came by to introduce you to my new friend, say hi Tisho-chan. Naruto said while petting the Lamia's head gently. Finally looking away from his book, the lazy Nara glanced at the snake girl with a cocked brow before going back to his book. How troublesome, Choji told me about her earlier. Ah, should have figured he would. Naruto said with a chuckle. Sigh. Go on Naruto, we both know that I am not the one you want to see right now, Shikamaru cut him off while pointing to the door. Sakura is in room 207 of the urgent care recovery ward. Ares shook his head, catered for wounds earned in combat. If she was a competent ninja instead of a sword sharpness tester. He's perceptive as ever, Artemis said, feeling a small amount of respect for the spiky-haired boy's ability to read others. Take away his laziness and he'd be an ideal man for Athena have one of her brain children with. Well he is rather endearing. A daughter of Aphrodite said as she collapsed and fell out of the hamster wheel with a cry as her left heel snapped. Not my Yves Saint Laurent heels. Unable to deny the lazy boy's statement, and ignoring Artemis' crazy moment. Mr. D chuckled, clearly she is. Naruto sighed as he walked towards the door. Thanks Shikamaru, I'll talk to you later then. Yeah, sure Naruto, whatever you say. Shikamaru said with a lazy wave of his hand, thankful that the book he was holding hid the guilt covering his face. No one died but looks like he got a wake-up call. A daughter of Athena said with a shiver. Later Tem, good luck with, whatever it is you're doing. Naruto said unsurely, not having a clue at what that weird eye device Sasuke was looking through. Said broody team responded by flipping Naruto the bird, getting the whiskered boy to chuckle as he left. Back in the hallway, Naruto walked to the other side of hospital where R was in after a bit more looking around found the room Shikamaru had told him was Sakura's. Pushing the door open and stepping inside, his breath caught in his throat as he saw the condition his crush was in. Sakura, who had been lost in her thoughts since her conversation with Ino, was jolted back to the present when she heard a shocked gasp. Looking to see who it was, the pinkett blinked in surprise when she was greeted by the sight of Naruto rushing over to her. Sakura-chan, Okami, are you alright? What happened? How are you feeling? These were just a few of the questions that flew from the blonde's mouth as he knelt beside her bed with a look of worry. While cute she's not for him. Why not? Not enough drama. He should hook up with Artemis or even that Ino girl. Phoebe shivered. First off, he's dating Hinata. Second is that he sees Mistress as a sister. I refuse that. Shut it, Apollo. Aphrodite snapped at the god. She looked at the hunter with a wicked grin. Nothing wrong with him dating Ino, as Naruto and Hinata aren't a locked couple. Add in Artemis and he will have the best love life ever. Stunned by his concern, sudden entrance, and rapid questioning, Sakura responded with the ever-intelligent response of, "What?" Of course, Naruto wasn't deterred for a second as he zipped around the crippled Pinkett worriedly. "Do you need anything? Are you comfortable? Are you?" "Naruto," Sakura yelled once she finally managed to regain her wits, causing the whiskered boy to freeze in place. "Calm down, you ba. I am alright, mostly." "Not a baka," came from everywhere. "Oh right, sorry Sakura-chan." Naruto muttered sheepishly, missing Sakura's brief hesitation when she spoke. Artemis did not, however, and within the seal her gaze narrowed as she watched the armless Pinkett through Naruto's eyes. Oh, that's her older sister mode. Oh, she's so cute when she narrows her eyes like a kitten. "It's just that I heard what happened, then I saw you there and I was so worried." "It's alright, I've been getting that a lot lately," Sakura said slowly and neutrally, like she was carefully picking out the words to say. Naruto didn't think twice about it, figuring she was just shaken up from her recent trauma. Because what reasonable person wouldn't be shaken after having their arms cut off? "It builds character," says the one who cries when he gets a paper cut. "Screw you, sober wine god. Hey, I had both my arms torn off and you don't see me bitching." I said reasonable Deidara, not batshit crazy. "I am not crazy, you're just jealous of my art." "Oh, don't you da boom." "Huh. Who is Deidara and who was the I?" Apollo leapt to his feet and pointed to the sky, only for a moment to be ruined by greensgrass. The author. Artemis knew better. She'd had many young girls of various ages join her hunt throughout her existence, most of which had been in varying states of emotional and physical distress, the latter of which usually ended with her shooting some foolish male mortal. Or one of her relatives. As such, she was easily able to recognize this girl's actions as one of unsureness and self-confusion instead of unease and depression. Somebody gave her a reality check, and a big one by the looks of it. Artemis thought, having seen similar reactions when she or her more experienced hunters would help girls who had been in denial about something. Question is, what was it about? "Your new brother." Apollo snapped his fingers. Travis now had the flu. "Still, I heard you were hurt, but I didn't think. I am sorry this happened to you," Naruto said, struggling to come up with something to say that would make her feel better. "You and me both," Sakura muttered, looking down at her arms sadly as she wiggled the useless stubs. Shaking her head to clear the depressing thoughts, Sakura looked around quickly for something to change the subject before settling her sights on Naruto's shoulder. "Sue, you gonna introduce me to your little friend there or what?" Blinking in confusion for a few seconds, Naruto smiled widely once he realized who she was talking about and gently nudged Tisho, who had started to doze. Waking up with a slight start, the little Lamia looked at Naruto with a confused hum. "Hey Tisho-chan, look, someone wants to meet you," Naruto told her while pointing to Sakura, causing the snake girl to look at the Pinkett before slithering down the extended arm. When she reached his hand, her tail coiled up around the forearm and she leapt onto Sakura's bed, her wings fluttering slightly as she soared. "Sakura-chan, Tisho-chan, Tisho-chan, Sakura-chan," Naruto introduced simply, not feeling the need to say more as he watched Tisho slither up and settle onto Sakura's chest, staring straight into the Pinkett's green eyes with her amber ones brimming with innocent curiosity. "Hello Tisho-chan, aren't you a cute little thing?" Sakura said, smiling softly with a slight tilt of her head, inwardly squealing in delight when Tisho mimicked her. "Da, you have such a sweet voice too," Sakura gushed while using her longer arm stub to pet Tisho before squealing aloud when the little Lamia started snuggling against her cheek. "I should see if Zeus would allow something similar to act as emotional support." Chiron yawned as he turned off his chair, smirking as the sounds of yelling, yelps and curses came from his volunteers filled the air as the hamster wheel stopped moving from under their feet. On the side, Naruto grinned as he saw his crush cheer up a little bit thanks to Tisho's antics, chuckling a bit when she started unintentionally tickling Sakura with her wings. "Sorry to interrupt such a sweet moment, but we need to get going Naruto." Glancing up at a nearby clock, the blonde swore under his breath as he saw that he had barely 20 minutes until Jiraiya expected them at Training Ground 3. "Aw crap, the training grounds are on the other side of the village." Looking back at Sakura though, Naruto bit his lip as he watched the crippled girl smiling and laughing as Tisho played with her. Not wanting to break the two up after such a short amount of time, Naruto tried to come up with a solution without avail. Just leave Tisho here with a clone to watch her," Artemis stated in exasperation, moments like this reminding her that her landlord wasn't the smartest individual. "I thought she was a trainer." The god snickered at the poke at the moon goddess. "We can't take her to training anyway, she might get hurt." "Oh right," Naruto thought sheepishly as he quickly formed said clone, startling Sakura by accident when the doppelganger appeared in a poof of smoke. "You know what to do." What? When could Naruto make clones? And solid ones at that? She asked herself in shock as the Kage Bunshin saluted Naruto before walking over to her bedside and taking a seat. Sorry Sakura-chan, but I have to go. Hope you don't mind me leaving Tisho-chan here with you for a bit. If you need anything, ask the clone. Bye. Naruto said quickly as he rushed out of the room. Alright then, Sakura muttered awkwardly, her eyes flickering from clone Naruto and the door in confusion while Tisho curled up in the crook of her neck and fell asleep. I am starting to think I am in a coma, cause I am pretty sure the world's going loopy. It hasn't, the demigods groaned as one, remembering their worlds expanding when monsters began their attacks on them then coming to camp. Hopping across Konoha as fast as he could, Naruto landed in Training Ground 3 with less than a minute to spare. Said training ground consisted of a large clearing surrounded by thick forests with a river cutting through one side. Camp Halfblood before the additions. The oldest dryad said, getting hums of agreement from the immortals who remembered that time. In the middle of the clearing stood 3 wooden posts, with Jiraiya sitting on the middle one with an amused look on his face. You're cutting it a little close there, Gaki. What took you so long? Just checking up on my friends really quick, Naruto said with a shrug. Now what kinda training are we doing, Ero Sennin? Fighting. New jutsu. All in good time, Gaki. All in good time, Jiraiya said while hopping off the post, landing beside the whiskered blonde with a goofy grin as he patted the boy's back. But first, I've been hearing rumors that somebody got to have a little fun with a princess while on mission. Not this Kuso again. Naruto groaned in annoyance while sending the old pervert a withering glare. I'll say it once, and only once, do not ask her else. The goddess of love tittered. Details are everything, honey. Oh come on, Gaki, you gotta tell me something, just a few details. We, see, ya, da, or in your tongue, hi. Jiraiya begged as he pulled out a notepad and pen. What did she look like? Did she have big boobs? How long did you two go at it? Very important. What positi, hey, where are you going? To Tsunade Bachan's place. Let's see how she likes those pictures of yours. Naruto yelled as he bolted off, causing Jiraiya to gain an alarmed expression before giving chase. No, anything but that. I warned you, Ero Sennin. Jiraiya learned 2 things this day. It is physically possible to tie a person into a knot, and Uzumakis do not bluff. Nor does Chiron. Phoebe yawned as she began to read as the breakfast dishes were taken away by the harpies. Sleep was good after everything that has happened, but like many in the camp she wanted to learn what happened next. In the middle of Training Ground 3, Naruto stood amidst a plethora of chopped up logs with the dancing lunar blades in hand, his breathing ragged and sweat dripping from his brow. Staring at the only intact chunk of timber still standing, the blonde raised his arms as his daggers gained a soft blue glow before swiping at the wood several times in a split second. When he stopped, nothing seemed to happen at first, but after several seconds thin lines appeared in the log before it collapsed into a pile of blocks. Not the log, wailed a dryad, falling to her knees. Well, we now know hell make a good lumberjack. The tree spirit bristled at that comment the son of Ares made. Axes are evil. I know of a dwarf who would say otherwise. Hearing a rustle, Naruto turned his head to the side to see Jiraiya limping towards him with several parts of his body covered in bruises or bandages. Not bad, Gaki. Looks like you're starting to get this exercise down finally. The old man said while picking up one of the chunks and examining it thoroughly. Pretty jagged still, but certainly better than that butchery work you did the first few times. Ares groaned and shook his head. Butchery was far better. Well, that tends to happen when you're forced to do the same thing 2 hours a day for a week straight. Naruto said as he dispelled his weapons and picking up a water bottle that was laying on the ground next to him. For the past week Jiraiya had been putting Naruto through an aggressive exercise schedule that focused on improving the whiskered blonde's chakra control and physical conditioning up to the self-proclaimed super pervert standards. This meant several tedious hours of water over a boiling hot spring, weight training with boulders, taijutsu spars that generally ended with Naruto embedded into the earth, and chakra manipulation such as what he was doing a second ago. Chiron tapped his chin in consideration. Percy needed to be punished and needed more training in control of his powers. Having the son of water have to build a hot spring for use at camp would help campers relax and as an added bonus help the sea child learn fine control. Clicking his pen, the trainer wrote down the information to look up and double-check with Athena. He was sure she would be interested in the effects of training a young child of Poseidon to stand on top of hot water while supporting weights would be. Percy whimpered in terror as a shiver went up his spine, making Grover glance at the son of Poseidon. Zoe's driving was bad, but why did he looking he was signed a death sentence? Now, I wonder if we would start with an 80-pound boulder or 100. These training sessions were so intense that by the end, Naruto would be so exhausted that Artemis would have to literally carry his battered, and sometimes passed out, form home. It was worth it though, as Naruto was already starting to show improvement, if only a little bit. You know what they say, Gaki, practice makes perfect. Jiraiya stated while tossing the chunk of wood over his shoulder. Aphrodite nodded sagely. Yeah Ero Sennin, I get it. Now are you gonna teach me a new jutsu like you promised or not? Naruto asked impatiently after gulping down several swigs of water. I am getting to that, the hermit said while pulling out a small scroll and tossing it to the blonde. Quickly unrolling it, Naruto's brow rose in confusion when all he saw was a basic storage seal. Channeling chakra into it curiously, his confusion quickly turned to disbelief, then just as quickly into annoyance when it released. Water balloons. Seriously, is this some kinda stupid joke? Naruto asked angrily as he picked up the bucket filled with said liquid-filled rubber bubbles. Water balloon fight no jutsu? Connor asked Travis. Nah, prank no jutsu. Hold your horses Gaki, let me explain before you get mad. Jiraiya said with his hands held up in a placating manner. Fine but talk fast Lanos, our patience is starting to wear thin. Artemis stated through Naruto with a frown. This entire week had been one large chore for her as she had to constantly restrain the urge to possess Naruto and strangle the perverted sage. Shoot his hash at asterisk. And percent at, miss, language. Chiron snapped at the hunter who cursed the hunter who wanted to encourage Artemi. Why did the children of Ares have such language use anyway? Especially since the man spent 90% of his time peeping on women and or writing smut, only stopping long enough to give Naruto his next task. Much like Apollo, Leto sighed and rested her cheek on one of her hands. He gets it from his father. The sun god pouted. First off, I am not that bad. Second, I thought you liked my kids. Relax Gaki-chan, I am getting there, Jiraiya said calmly, making Artemis give a scowl of annoyance that Naruto kept when she retreated back into the seal. These here are part of the first step for learning this. As he spoke, the hermit held out one of his hands as a surge of chakra expelled from it and immediately started to condense above his palm. In just a few seconds, the energy had formed into a spiraling blue ball of energy roughly the size of a baseball that Jiraiya promptly smashed into the ground, creating a large crater beneath his feet. Rasengan. Eyes glittered at the Rasengan and its destruction abilities of Apollo, Ares, Mr. D, Hermes and Hephaestus. When did you two get here? Selena yelped out as the god of thieves took her chips and dip. She wasn't on a diet. Got bored at being yelled at by Hades. The Lord of Smiths grunted out as he fiddled with some gears in his hands. Hermes shook his head at his half-brother as he made his way over to his children's table, oblivious to the look sent his way. Also male boy there needed an emergency dummy of himself to escape father again. That's Hephaestus and Hermes. Leto couldn't help but snicker at the deadpanned looks sent to the young demigod. Nico was amusing and she needed to gift him with something for making her past few days interesting. They look nothing like their action figures. Action figures. Hermes looked at his younger brother. What is he talking about D? Some game. Dionysus was not going to get into that conversation again. He still had a minor headache with the boy's ramblings about stats of the gods and how and why he had a belly when his figure was more trimmer and less clothed. Okay, you have my attention, Naruto said, drooling slightly at the prospect of learning such a technique. As do they, Mark whispered to Malcolm as they watched the gods and Titan attempt and fail to replicate the jutsu with their own power. Good, what you just saw is called the Rasengan, an A-rank ninjutsu for very obvious reasons as you can see. Jiraiya said as he stepped out of the hole head just made before grabbing one of the water balloons. There are 3 steps to learning how to use this technique, the first of which is to pop one of these by spinning your chakra inside of it, like so. Suddenly the balloon in his hand started to bubble wildly until it burst, launching water and rubber everywhere. Aphrodite snapped her head towards the Hermes twin sons. Water balloons. We weren't going to throw them. Travis yelped as he dropped the balloon he was about to throw at a hunter across the way from him. The goddess clicked her teeth at the ruined chance to see what would happen. Most slightly scenario, the hunter would catch the projectile and send it back faster, but the technique that the man used. I might be able to add a new technique in bed. Once you manage to do that, come find me and I'll show you the next step. Now if you'll excuse me, I have some research to attend to. Jiraiya stated with a perverted giggle. Make a note hunters. If found, burn his books in front of him before Artemis relatives get to him, then castration. Phoebe said flatly with nods all around. Ares, Apollo, Aphrodite, Hermes, Hephaestus and D however didn't pay attention as they were invested at trying to pop their water balloons. Otherwise they would have words about what was spoken and no demigod was willing to say what the hunter's plans were as A, scared they'll do it to th boys. B, wanting to join in girls. Before vanishing in a plume of smoke, leaving Naruto and Artemis alone in the field. Whatever you say Ero Sennin, Naruto muttered as he sat down on the ground with a huff and grabbed one of the balloons. This had better not be a stupid joke of his. Be grateful that they are water balloons. Charles whispered, mostly to himself. I doubt it is, perverted idiot that man may be, Poof, but he seemed to be speaking honestly about this exercise. Artemis stated as she possessed a clone Naruto spawned for her and took a balloon for herself. Let's just get this over with, it shouldn't take us that long too. My daughter better not have an easier time with this than us. Leto murmured as the balloon popped the wrong way. Curses. Is it strange seeing them act like this or just me? Pollux asked his brother. Bro, after everything we've seen, this isn't the strangest. Several hours later. Why won't this fucking thing pop? Artemis yelled in irritation while glaring at the water balloon in her hand as it sloshed from side to side. I am with dear droppings, this is hard. Ares calmly said before tossing a water balloon at Hermes' face. He missed, but he wasn't really trying. But fun. You know, I wonder what the effects of this would be on monsters. Apollo said offhand. Chiron paled at the grins that grew from air faces. Oh no, you'll have to test outside of my camp. I don't know, Naruto yelled back, equally frustrated from the lack of progress. Finally, his anger got to be too much and he accidentally squished the balloon. Groaning in annoyance, he shook the water off before flopping onto his back. I think we should call it a day, it's getting pretty late and we're getting nowhere right now. Sleep is good. A Demeter child didn't know why she said that other than feeling she and her siblings have been forgotten. Agreed, the goddess said while tossing her balloon over her shoulder and allowing herself to dispel. Besides, we need to go pick up Tisho. That we do, Ne-chan, that we do. Naruto said as he pushed himself off the ground, stretching a bit to work the kinks out of his stiff muscles before leaping into the air. A wolf whistle came from the Daughters of Love. So hot. Nah, Apollo is hot. Naruto is hot and sexy. MMHMM. Damn you, Naruto. Apollo cursed the blonde boy. He wasn't really, and he had already smitten multiple demi-goddesses and nature spirits. Several minutes of tree then roof hopping later, Naruto landed right in front of the hospital entrance with a grunt and darted inside, blowing right past the front desk attendant before he realized what happened. Zipping through the many hallways with ease, it only took Naruto a minute or so this time to locate the door he was looking for. Pushing it open, the blonde smiled softly at the scene he was greeted with inside. Sakura still lay on her bed, but she was looking a bit healthier than she had before, having regained both some weight and some color thanks to a special heavy-calorie diet. Dang, what are they feeling her? That looks almost like the effects of ambrosia and nectar. Phoebe looked at the notes on the bottom of the page. Rice, curry and apple juice. Not only that, but she was also clearly in a much better mood given the genuine smile on her lips as opposed to grim blankness. And all of this was thanks to a certain chibi snake girl currently sitting on the Pinket's chest with a small children's book laid out in front of her. Thus the little duckling kept looking, never losing hope that it would. Sakura read aloud, trailing off at the end when she heard the door open. Aphrodite snapped open a fan. Ugly duckling, I smell a spoiler for the future. Hey you guys, I am not interrupting anything, am I? Naruto asked with a grin while he walked into the room. Not at all, Sakura said, giggling a little as Tisho slithered over to the side of the bed and held her arms out towards Naruto expectantly. In fact, someone was really eager for you to get back. So cute. Aphrodite jumped as the voice came from the hearth. Nico shook his head as the goddess looked around frantically, seeing no one at all. Right, hope you aren't mad at me, Tisho-chan, for making you wait again. The whiskered blonde said while walking up to the pair and gently picking up the little lamia. Smiling back at him, Tisho shook her head before slithering up Naruto's arm and hugging the side of his neck. Peva here, nah mad. For the entire week, whenever Naruto was training with Jiraiya, the boy would leave Tisho with Sakura, both to keep the Pinkett company and the snake girl out of harm's way. Sakura made good use of this time though and started teaching Tisho how to speak with some help from Shizune, who'd been assigned as the armless girl's doctor. The lamia was a surprisingly fast study, having already memorized at least 3 to 4 dozen words. On the other hand though, since her vocal cords were still adjusting to the strain of actual use, she could only speak in short bursts and what she did say would come out somewhat jumbled. Like a toddler. You know, I remember how much you cursed Hermes when he could barely talk and he ate your cattle, Sonny. Leto smiled at her while he and Hermes looked away from one another. Ah, Tisho-chan, you're such a sweetheart. Yet none of that mattered to Naruto as he returned the hug. But still, I got you something to make up to you. Reaching into his pocket, Naruto pulled out a small package of sesame seed-covered tuna sushi and held it up to the small snake girl. I wonder how good they'll be as messengers or scouts. Kowalski asked in interest. Her sister Hunter shrugged. I am more interested in the birdseed tuna. Not even trying to speak, a happy hum filled the air as Tisho grabbed a piece of the seafood and started nomming on it with a content smile. With her occupied for the time being, Naruto turned his attention back towards Sakura, his smile softening as he took a seat next to the Pinkett's bed. Thanks for watching over her, Sakura-chan, I really appreciate it. It's no problem. So how did your training go? Sakura asked, her own expression gaining a hint of awkwardness to it, though Naruto thankfully didn't notice. Ever since Ino's little outburst towards her and Naruto's subsequent frequent visits, the Pinkett had began to see what her frenemy had been talking about. Ares growled, "I hate frenemies." Krian shook his head as the god of war made multiple comments. While he didn't enjoy the language being thrown out of Ares' mouth, at least the god wasn't making his campers and hunters fight. Sure, Naruto still had his annoying and/or idiotic moments that grated on her nerves, such as him speaking so informally with the Tsunade Senju, but they were a lot less frequent than she thought they would be. And that summaries Pinky Jobot to a T. Mr. D yawned as he popped another can open. Not only that, but Naruto's honest concern and dedication for her well-being and was simply astounding to her now that she'd bothered to pay attention. He'd get her favorite foods whenever she felt hungry, did his best to keep her company so she wasn't lonely, and got her whatever she asked for without hesitation. Head went out of his way this whole week to make sure she stayed happy. And she didn't understand why. He likes you. A son of love grunted with an eye roll. She'd done nothing but insult him, ignore him, make fun of him, and beat him up for as far as she could remember knowing him. Aphrodite sighed and leaned back, popping a few chips into her mouth. Like a love-sickened puppy. Boring. Yet despite all that, he still sat before her, happily telling her how his day went while gently petting Tisho's tail. It just didn't make sense to her one bit. Then Ero Senin copped out again to go peeping, leaving me and Ne-chan to figure out the first step for ourselves. Naruto said with an annoyed huff as he got to the end of the story. Artie Ne is still pretty steamed at him. Understatement, Artemis said dully. That man is lucky that I am trapped inside here, otherwise he'd be enjoying a new life as a jackalope. I hope she has made attempts at shooting him. Indeed, Apollo. I can imagine, Sakura said while sitting up, frowning a bit as she thought of the hermit, well aware of both his status as a Sannin and his infamy as a proud pervert. Thunder boomed, making everyone jump. Hephaestus arched a brow as a flame flickered in his beard. Sounds like Zeus broke my decoy. Hermes. D snickered. And now he's more mad. Huh, think turning you over will end my sentence. Castor and Pollux groaned as their dad once again schemed to escape his sentence again. Sometimes it wasn't worth having a godly parent around you couldn't escape from. Well, Artemis-san, my condolences for having to deal with that. On the third day of the week, Naruto had accidentally let his condition slip when he mentioned Artemis while was telling Sakura about how his day went. When the Pinkett naturally became curious about this Artie Ne, Naruto soon caved and told her about the goddess currently living inside his soul. Your words are appreciated, Artemis said, briefly taking control to give Sakura a nod of gratitude. So how are you doing? Naruto asked, getting Sakura to smile once more. Pretty good actually. Shizune-san said that she and Tsunade-sama have almost gotten a set of workable prosthetics made for me. Apollo and his more medically prone children leaned in. Prosthetics weren't anything new, but they wanted to see what a ninja prosthetic would be like. Inspired by Suna's puppet users, the two medic nin had come up with a set of wooden arms with special chakra conductive cords lined inside. In theory, these could be attached to Sakura's stumps and her chakra set to flow through them, thus allowing her to manipulate them like real arms. Any wood works as long as it can channel chakra. Perhaps something that can. This would allow the Pinkett to at least gain some normality in life, such as being able to feed and bath herself without assistance. Far better than anything we have yet. Really, that's great news, Naruto said while pulling Sakura into a hug, one that she allowed for a whole 5 seconds before shaking him off, a new record. Don't get too excited, Naruto, it'll still be at least another week before they are even ready for testing. The Pinkett said with a roll of her eyes before grinning somewhat mischievously. Now, what's this I hear from Ino about a second date you have planned with Hinata? Ooh, what's this? First a steaming meeting and now a date with another girl. Artemis, I take back everything I said. You know how to make a man a lady killer. Oh, for the love of, it's not a date. Naruto exclaimed in exasperation as he slumped into his seat. Methinks thou protest too much. Selena smiled back at her mother, who sent her a thumbs up for the bad Shakespeare. Yesterday the whiskered blonde had run into his shy brunette friend while shopping, and after a bit of back and forth ended up agreeing to meet up at the former's apartment tonight to catch up on recent events. Unfortunately, Hinata had gone back to Mrs. Yamanaka for advice, and a certain gossip happy blonde had overheard their conversation, who then proceeded to tell Sakura, having gotten somewhat over her anger with the Pinkett over the course of the week. Iris hand her messaging system suck, Hermes declared with a twitching brow. The gossip line he was sure the goddess of rainbows, along with Love, who was besties at the time, made to spite him. All because he misplaced a few hundred letters and such. Giggling loudly at Naruto's reaction, Sakura fixed Naruto with a knowing look. Oh really, are you not having dinner with her tonight? Well yeah, and isn't said dinner going to be at your place? Yes, but then it's a date, Sakura stated victoriously as she settled back down on her bed. Speaking of which, you should get going soon or you're to be late. Naruto and Hinata sitting in a tree. A nymph giggled before sighing. So many demigods kissed on or under her branches. Kissing, apine and water nymphs went on with a laugh. Grumbling under his breath, Naruto glanced at the clock hanging on the wall before standing up and walking off, Chisho waving goodbye over his shoulder. Once they were gone, Sakura giggled softly with a slight shake of her head. Now I get why Ino loves to do that with people, that was funny as hell. The goddess and children of love nodded with glee. 20 minutes later, Naruto's apartment. Why does everyone keep insisting that me and Hinata are dating? Naruto asked as he made some bear meat stir-fry, Chisho still sitting on his shoulder only now chewing on an apple slice while occasionally holding something for Naruto with her tail. I mean, can't a guy and girl hang out together without everyone assuming it's a date? Yeah, what he said. Nico ignored the gruff laughter of the gods while several hunters and demigods nodded in agreement. Only if the male and female in question are related, although that isn't always true at times. Artemis stated bluntly as she sharpened an arrowhead. Apollo and the hunters made a strangling sounds as Leto snickered. Context dear, cough context dear. Adding the last bit since her family wasn't exactly shy about incest. Hell, her father was married to his sister for crying out loud. Giving the goddess an odd look, Naruto instinctually scooched away from her slightly as he finished cooking and started divvying up the food. Okay then, if you say so. Noticing his odd reaction, Artemis raised a brow in confusion. Before palming her face with a light blush of embarrassment as she realized how easily misunderstood her words could sound out of context. Snickers, laughs and giggles filled the air at Artemis' embarrassment. Before she could try and clear that up though, a soft knocking echoed through the air, causing the siblings to turn their attention to the front door. Not siblings. Chiron rubbed his head. Lord Apollo, please stop, he's a book character. Never. That's gotta be Hinata now, Naruto said, quickly setting the served plates and Chisho on the table before walking towards the door and pulling it open. Hey Hinata-chan, you're just in tea. Naruto trailed off mid-sentence, his jaw practically hitting the dirt as he stared out his open doorway with bugged-out eyes, or more specifically at the person standing in front of it. It was indeed Hinata like he thought, but that is where what he was expecting ended and surprise hit like a semi-truck. Wait, they have cars there? Charles asked to confirm what he heard as he wiggled a finger in a ear to make sure he was hearing properly. Phoebe checked, something about a train but no cars. So either Artemis told him or perhaps their connection gave him it. No one answered the head of Hef's cabin. Instead of her usual cream-colored jacket and blue short pants that he was used to seeing her in, the shy Hyuga was wearing a lovely violet sundress with matching sandals while a soft mauve flower was resting just above her left ear. The lavender-eyed girl herself was blushing bright red as she fidgeted slightly under her crush's gaze. Hello and Naruto-kun, may I see come in? What the, Artemis, haven't you trained him in the art of a proper date after everything I've told you? I've heard the Amazons have great vacation spots. Thinking that perhaps we should go to avoid the fallout. Kowalski nodded her head along with her fellow hunters at Hunter 14 Plan. Snapping out of his stupor, Naruto nodded his head rapidly while moving to the side, his voice refusing to work at the moment. Looks like somebody is finally pulling out all the stops. Artemis thought with a cocked brow when she saw Hinata, easily able to figure out why the normally shy and reserved girl was dressed as such. The girl had almost definitely heard about Naruto's lunch with a princess and had decided upon finally taking a more aggressive approach towards getting the oblivious blonde's attention. She'd seen similar reactions many times in the past in both female animals and humans, and was usually one of the first signs that a hunter was about to go astray from her group. Deciding to break the tension that had built up between the two, the moon goddess cleared her throat just loud enough to get both of their attention. Hello Hinata, I am pleased to see you could make it. I was concerned that your father may have prevented you from leaving due to the late hour. Artemis the matchmaker, this is so weird. Kate never met the goddess but from what she gathered from the hunters and the recruitment flyer, that seemed strange. Father did voice his worries, Hinata said with an understanding nod, but IIW was able to convince him that IW would be able to take care of myself. At the Hyuga estate, Hiyashi Hyuga had a neutral expression as he sat in his office with his fingers steepled, not even blinking as a young Hyuga woman walked up to him and bowed. Hiyashi-sama, Hinata-sama made it to her destination without incident. Did she notice you following her? The man asked neutrally, getting the woman to shake her head negatively. Good, continue to check up on her every 15 minutes until she comes home. And remember, if that boy upsets my daughter or tries anything that she does not consent to. Connor snickered. Poor Naruto. He left the sentence hanging but the message was loud and clear as the woman saluted with a firm yes Hiyashi-sama, before leaving once more. Ares grinned. Now that was an interesting tactic to prevent and scare wimpy boys who wanted to date a female warrior. Nobody messed with his little girl, and anyone who tried will end up suffering unimaginably. I like him. Only you Ares. Back at Naruto's. Naruto shivered slightly as a cold feeling of dread ran down his spine, before looking around in confusion at what caused such a feeling. Not finding anything to explain the sensation, he shrugged it off for the time being and returned his attention back to Hinata, who was still making some small talk with Artemis. Your dress is lovely, is it new? And no, it's actually one of my mother's old dresses. Ah, well I am sure she would have been very pleased to see you in it, it suits you well. You really think so? I do, and I am not the only one, Artemis said. I wonder if this would have been if Apollo wasn't her twin. Artemis teaching him about dates and making sure he is not as big of a pervert he is now. Mommy, Hermes is being mean to me. These are the gods. Nico winced as the immortals began to argue like he did with his sister and mom before that time. While giving Naruto a pointed look, causing said boy to blush while Hinata's grew slightly darker before the goddess motioned to the table. Please have a seat, the food is starting to get cold. Oh, of course, the shy girl said as she sat down across from the goddess. Thank you for the food. Don't worry about it, I've been meaning to try this recipe for a while now anyway. Naruto said with a wave of his hand, taking his own seat next to Hinata. It would seem that you weren't the only either, Artemis said, pointing down to her lap where Tisho had curled up and fallen asleep, having finished her entire plate already. We best start eating ourselves before she decides to eat it for us. Good idea, Naruto said with a chuckle while Hinata giggled softly before the pair turned their attention towards each other. So, how have you been doing? Waiting to see if this book will happen because Zoe failed or won't happen because she was successful. Phoebe didn't voice her thoughts but she did say the next part. So, who is next? Wait a minute, we're forgetting something. Leto handed Hephaestus a piece of paper. The reviews from the last chapter. Hephaestus, if you would please. Fine. The god grunted as he took the paper from the Titan. Opening it up, the god scanned the paper. Let's see. Naruto stories to Apollo. If you are so adamant on not accepting Naruto as new brother, do you prefer him as brother-in-law? I would like Aphrodite's input as well. Oops, sorry Naruto, but it looks like Apollo is out of it now and Aphrodite is rolling around laughing. Now I'll have to listen to her complaining about how the washer isn't working again. The god went on. Tengo muchas dudas que siento que se aclararan más adelante así que no preguntare, pero, que opinaria hestia al saber que los principales usuarios de fuego eran el clan con la maldición del odio. Ella estaría triste si esto fuera cierto. See, a small figure from the fire chimed in. Golden Wind God, fiction. I don't know what he's saying. Did one of you mess with my machines again to prove alternate realities exit? Kids. The god glared at the likely individuals but got nothing. Figures. Anything else interesting? Hep. Bosque demurred. Forest of Death. Hey people from across the world, it's me, your favorite god of messages Hermes. This chapter has to get redone due to technical issues with the site. Therefore as the one who has to deliver this message I got to say. What the BSROMANTROOPER? You had one job. 1. Post chapter 16 of US reading this story at the camp so that the mortals of your world can enjoy it. Hermes, stop attempting to break the fourth wall. Let the half-pint yell. This is almost as good as the time he lost the race to the train. Apollo, use that divine sense of yours to tell me, US, when the next chapter will be out. Calm down speedster, it shouldn't be too long. And who is Roman Trooper? I demand the story. 1 day later. Hermes cursed out loud one last time. Okay, so it took longer than expected but hey, it's here. Happy now Hermes. Zip it Apollo, Hermes growled out as he stabbed a voodoo with a dagger. Then let's see what shit this chapter has now. Mark quickly said with a satisfied smile as he flipped open the book. Phoebe stared in horror as the son of Ares, Mark, took over the reading from where she left off. Not because he was reading. No, it was far worse, but because his fingers were covered in syrup, sugar and butter from the waffles he inhaled. Hermes huffed. This better be worth the wait. Inside a dark chamber, a pale-skinned man with pitch-black hair, snake-like eyes, and pale purplish coloration around his eyes sat on a throne surrounded by a large stone serpent as a pale-haired young man wearing rounded spectacles bowed before him. So, your cover was blown thanks to the actions of your late subordinate's carelessness, Kabuto? The snake-like man asked with a slightly raised brow as the now-named Kabuto nodded. So Glasses was the one we were told about in chapter 9. Mitchell asked with a frown on his face. Why couldn't there be a connection to Naruto? His sister shrugged. Not everything happens around a single person but it would have been interesting if he was acquainted with Narumis. Narumis. A Prohodite blinked before grinning. Oh, a pet name for them, how cute. Unfortunately so Orochimaru-sama, it would appear that despite my constant insistence, Kemik-san was foolish enough to leave his notes devoid of any form of coding or security. He was a horrible spy. Malcolm covered his face as he groaned. How can he, Kemik-san, have been so smart yet so stupid. Kabuto said, a scowl set on his face as he spoke. So when the teams Konoha sent to Imoka happened upon his lab before the sterilization team I sent, they got full access to everything right away. Apollo choked on his drink as he EHL'd back a laugh. Anything Bauer didn't destroy Spy Boy. Humming lowly at these words, Orochimaru steepled his fingers as he leaned back into his seat. That is most unfortunate. This puts a hamper on my plans for Konoha, which already has enough problems if what you've told me of Sasuke-san's condition is true. Indeed, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto said while bowing his head again. Orochimaru was a man of great ambition, the main of which was to learn all there was to about the world, particularly ninjutsu. To help achieve this goal, Head intended to acquire Sasuke for his Sharingan eyes. Acquire eyes? Nico asked disturbed. Phoebe shivered. Sounds like something a Harpy or Ares would like. Duh, Ares toasted to the hunter. Which could copy any technique they saw that wasn't based on a bloodline. The damage was mostly fixed by Tsunade-san and her apprentice, but his Sharingan is now stuck in its semi-mature state with less than a 3% chance of full recovery. Ah, such a shame, and I had such great plans for those eyes. Looks like I'll just have to wait until I manage to collect a fully functional pair through other means. He's creepy, Katie whispered to her friend. Orochimaru said with a dissatisfied sigh. You wouldn't happen to have any good news. Actually I do, sir, Kabuto said, his head rising in time to see the brief flicker of surprise that crossed his master's face before he held out a small vial. Before the Hokage increased security, I was able to both successfully implant a new mole into Konoha. Ares crackled with glee. Spies and traitors, this is getting better each chapter. What's next? Naruto meets an Amazon ninja. I would like to see a hunter who is hiding as a ninja. Phoebe piped in. She blushed as all eyes went to her. What, did you think that we would just roll over and hid away here at the camp if our mistress went missing again? And swipe this from the hospital's deep storage during my escape? Accepting the vial, Orochimaru smirked as he read the kanji written on the side. I knew there was a reason I kept you around, Kabuto. Even in the face of these unexpected circumstances you never failed to both surprise and please me. The fire spat and crackled as Mark took a drink of water. Bored Charles took a look at the reviews from the last chapter. I agree with you, God of Wind 200. Is this Aeolus? Wow, no wonder you know about Sailor Moon. The son of the smith said as he read the review. Sailor Moon. Charles jerked to the left to avoid a dagger from a hunter. Never, ever, speak of that show to us. ... Yes, I live to serve you, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto said proudly with another incline of his head. And if I may be so brazen, I do believe I have an idea that could help us overcome those unfortunate setbacks you mentioned. ... Oh, this got interesting. Ares grinned as he leaned forward. I am listening, Orochimaru stated as he carefully tucked the vial away inside a hidden pocket of his vest. Well, as you may already know, supposedly the Kyuubi Jinchuriki will be in the Chunin exams this year. And it would be most unfortunate for Konoha if something unexpected happened to said Jinchuriki during the second stage, would it not? He did not just. Apollo busted into flames. Leto leaned over and patted his shoulders. Ah, my dear baby sunshine, you do like him. I do not. Like what Akakiru said, dear. Think of it of having a niece. Apollo went pale while the other gods fell over laughing. The mad grin on Orochimaru's face was all the answer he needed. Mr. D shuffled a deck of cards. Yeah, that man is crazy. Anyone for poker. Konoha Training Ground 10. Is Naruto alright? Ino asked as she, Choji, Asuma, and Anko, who was holding a napping Tisho since she would be looking after the Lamia for the days since Sakura couldn't, looked down in worry and or confusion at the whisker-faced boy. He was sitting against a tree with a shocked expression frozen on his face, staring towards the sky with glazed eyes and red handprints on both cheeks. Beside him, an exasperated Artemis stood rubbing her forehead. He's fine, just recovering from a rather unexpected big surprise that happened last night. Artemis said dully. A breeze rustled the leaves of the trees and a crow's call filled the air as the listeners and the reader processed what was said. Artemis, you kissed him. Oh wow, I didn't know she had it in her. A pink-face Aphrodite fanned her face with one hand as a grin threatened to split her face. Hermes was tapping away at his phone. Who made the bet she wanted a relationship with a brother figure? Artemis kissed Naruto. Leto clapped her hands. Please let Mark continue. I want to know if we are right or perhaps just jumping to conclusions. Yes, thank you, mother. Personally, I am for Artemis kissing Naruto. She might have enjoyed it and I am hoping she used tongue. Mom. Lady Leto. Yes, shaking her head as she remembered what happened. Flashback. Last night. This was a great night, Hinata-chan. We should do something like this again sometime. Naruto said as he opened the front door for the blue net. Apollo and the hunters sighed while Leto, a Prohadite and her children groaned. They had forgotten that Hinata was there from last chapter. Why yeah, I agree, Hinata said with a small nervous smile as she shuffled past her crush and into the hallway before looking back towards Artemis, who was seated back in one of the recliners sharpening an arrowhead. I mean, as long as that's okay with you, Artemis-san. For the walking glow stick she better. Ares was barely holding in his laughter as Apollo muttered on ways to get even with the blonde. I don't mind, it is rather nice to have some female company to talk to. The goddess said while looking over her work with a critical eye. Naruto may be one of the few males in existence that Artemis could truly say she liked, she still preferred to hang out with members of the fairer sex. Leto pursed her lips. I blame Zeus for that. Before she got the talk she was rather close with a few of the boys that found her fun to play with. Perhaps that is why she pardoned of children. See, no problems, Naruto said with a wide grin before yawning deeply and rubbing one of his eyes. But let's talk about that more later, it's getting pretty late and we both got team training tomorrow. Good night, Hinata-chan. With that said, he started to close the door, but was stopped halfway through when Hinata's hands shoved it back open with a meek shout of wait. What's wrong, Hinata-chan? Did you forget something? The whiskered boy asked, his head tilting in confusion while he watched the shy girl fidget, her face a bright embarrassed Hinata red patent pending. Blood red is better, one of Mark's sisters yelled out, getting a cheer from her siblings and a nod from her father. As she seemed to be coaxing herself up for something. Hello, Hinata, what the? Naruto was cut off mid-sentence as the lavender-eyed girl gained a sudden look of courageousness and grabbed the front of his jacket. Selena blinked. Wow, the mouse went after Foxy. I am more concerned about what the reviewers are going to think about Apollo being tousled up like a Christmas ham. Connor said as he watched Leto calmly sipping tea on top of the tied-up sun god. Pun intended. Artemis paused in her work as she noticed the complete lack of sound coming from the doorway. Peering in that direction curiously, honest shock spread across her face at the sight she found herself viewing. Hinata was pressing her lips right up to Naruto's, her eyes gleaming with pure excitement and happiness even as steam was literally erupting from her head like a geyser. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, in reality 2 minutes, the shy girl broke the kiss and practically teleported away from how fast she ran, leaving a trench in the floor from the speed she was moving as a high-pitched squeal rang out. Choo-choo, Hephaestus blew a train horn making everyone laugh. Breaking out of her stunned state after a few more seconds, Artemis adopted a dull expression as she stood up and walked over to Naruto's unmoving form. As that lazy friend of yours would say, you are an extremely troublesome blonde. She said before smacking her landlord across the face in an attempt to snap him out of his shock, only to end up sweat dropping as he fell over like a statue, even swearing she could hear a ceramic shattering sound when he hit the floor. The dryads and naiads were up in stitches, rolling around on the grass laughing up a storm. Even the hunters were giggling, but because they were happy that their lady didn't French kiss the boy. End flashback. Ever since then Naruto had been completely frozen in shock, even after Artemis smacked him a grand total of 101 times and gave him a 3-hour-long ice-cold shower. Just like Deadpool, Apollo yelled out, oh, I need to remember this for the video game industry. I think Deadpool slapping an unconscious Wolverine would be a perfect comedian scenario. She could only imagine how Hinata herself was doing right now. Training Ground 8. Well, somebody seems to be in a good mood, Kiba said as he, Shino, and Kurenai arrived at their regular training ground to find Hinata already enthusiastically practicing her clan's signature gentle fist with a bright smile. I wonder what happened. So am I, Kurenai muttered with a raised brow, extremely curious why her normally shy and withdrawn pupil was suddenly acting like she could take on an army single-handed. Magic of a kissing Naruto, a Prohadite sighed. A shame it wasn't Artemis. Or because of their connection a minor part of Artemis' power entered her, giving Hinata a boost. A Prohadite stared at the hunter who suggested an alternative with something akin to having sucked a lemon laced with chili peppers and salted hard. Back to Artemis and co. Oh, well, try doing something that is just as or more surprising to him, that supposedly does the trick. Ino said, having heard of people being stuck in shock through the grapevine. D smirked. I know nothing about why that is. Liar, was the unspoken thought of his sons. Worth a try I guess. Artemis said with a shrug before randomly taking Tisho from Anko and whispering something into the scantily clad Kunoichi's ear that made her eyes widen briefly before a mischievous grin spread across her lips. Travis and Connor grinned, making Chiron groan. They knew that look all too well, given it was a trademark look of Hermes. You really want me to do that? She asked, getting a nod from Artemis while the others wondered what exactly Artemis said. Well, I'll admit that sounds funny as hell, but what's in it for me? I'll give you double the dango for babysitting Tisho today and tell you exactly what happened to leave him in this state. Artemis offered, getting Anko to hum in interest as she considered the deal. Alright, but tell me what happened first. The perplexed said after a minute, getting another nod from the goddess before whispering in the former's ear again. By the time she finished 30 seconds later, Anko's whole body was shaking as she struggled to suppress the laughter that wanted to escape her. BWAHAHA. Oh my Cammy, that's priceless. BWAHAHA. She failed, badly. Whilst the dango-loving woman rolled on the ground howling in laughter, Ino felt her own curiosity skyrocket as her gossip radar was ringing at full alert. However, despite how much she wanted to simply wring the information out of Artemis at that very moment, the platinum blonde restrained herself. There's a speech as silver and silence as golden. Leto shook her head as Apollo paled. He went paley as she went on. It goes back to when they were only a few days old and… Read. Apollo prompted the demigod frantically before his mother continued. She knew that if she tried to push for the info, the chained goddess would either give her another of those terrifying looks that would haunt the gossip queen for days and make her crave carrots for some odd reason she still didn't understand, or would lay her out on her ass, just like she did last time Ino got too pushy. Carrots craving by Artemis. A satyr sighed in wishfulness, making the other counselors and guide satyrs drool. The hunters shook their heads at the crush the male nature spirits had on their patron. Never again, Ino thought with a shiver as she remembered that particular incident. It had been while she was at Naruto's garden for the first time, and Shed wanted to get to know more about both Naruto and Hinata's relationship and about Naruto in general after the surprising Shed found upon her visit. Shed tried the same thing Shed did in the alleyway with Naruto, and Artemis didn't take too kindly to it, at all. Oh Artie dear, let the girl have some gossip. She can't hear you. Ares flinched at the look the goddess sent his way. But then again, this is a story and you know it, and I am going to shut up now. Smart. Once Shed finally managed to get her laughter under control, Enko got back up to her feet with a Cheshire grin as she turned to Artemis, who was busy trying to coax a now awake Tisho back to sleep. Man, that was the funniest thing I've heard all week. You have definitely got a deal, Gaki. Then would please hold up your end of the bargain already? The goddess demanded somewhat impatiently, her eyebrow twitching a little when the perplet ruffled her hair playfully. You got it, Enko said before walking over to where Naruto was sitting and hoisting him up to his feet. I hope you've got a sweet tooth, blondie, cause you about to get some sugar. With this statement made, Enko pulled Naruto into a kiss, and not just some simply lovey-dovey just lips kiss. Oh no, this was Enko Mitarashi we're talking about, and she either goes all the way or not at all, proven by the slight wiggling of Naruto's cheeks. Damn, a princess, then classmate and now an older woman. Dude has game. Wolf whistling. Oh my, she's ravishing, Artemis boy. Aphrodite licks her lips at the detailed animation on the screen. Mama likes. It did the trick though, as Naruto lost his glazed gaze before the whiskered blonde blinked a few times in confusion when he found himself staring into a familiar pair of pupil-less brown eyes and felt something soft and spongy wrapping around his tongue, causing the small appendage to wiggle reflexively. Once his brain finally caught up with what he was seeing though, Naruto's eyes practically popped out of his head from surprise before he jerked away from Anko, breaking the lip lock with a loud pop and a gasp. Gah, what the hell are you doing, Anko-san? He demanded as he squirmed around uselessly in the woman's grasp. Just doing a quick favor for someone, Enko said while letting the blonde go, causing him to land on his ass with a grunt and shoot her a dirty look. You're not a bad kisser by the way, not superb but definitely pretty, got some talent. I knew she and her girls paid attention to my talks about how to kiss a boy. Kowalski shivered at the look the goddess sent towards her and her sisters. No we didn't. Aphrodite pointed at the screen. He has more game as Ri's generation of morals call it than most of my children. His face turning red at these words, Naruto sputtered out several incoherent sentences, making Anko chuckle as she took the once again napping Tisho back from Artemis. This has certainly been a fun way to start the day, but it's time for me to get going, ciao. The perplet said with a wide grin before her, and Tisho vanished in a swirl of leaves, leaving Naruto a stuttering mess that only stopped once Artemis pinched his cheek with a dull look and pulled him up to his feet. Why couldn't I have a normal team? Asuma asked himself quietly with a sigh. Blame the effects of having a goddess trapped after only being freed from being a prisoner. Ares grunted out, how in Hades does she get capture in less than 10 minutes? Before clearing his throat loudly to get the group's attention. Well, now that excitement is over with, I have some big news to share with you all. Is it a mission? Choji asked, being the least affected by the odd series of events that had just transpired. I like him, Hephaestus declared with a yawn. No, but good guess, Asuma said before pulling out 3 packets of paperwork and handing them to his students. The actual news is that all of you have been nominated for the Chunin exams that will be starting tomorrow at 11 a.m. What? Ino exclaimed, making Naruto and Choji jump from the sudden yell. The Chunin exams? Seriously? Oh boy, the Chunin exams, what is it? Nico mocked the girl. Yes Ino, that's what I said, Asuma stated, sighing once more as Ino gasped dramatically before jumping around excitedly. What are the Chunin exams? Naruto asked worriedly, hoping that it wasn't some sort of extra classes or worse a paper test he'd have to take. The Athena campers pouted. What was wrong with a paper test to prove their smarts? Having an idea what the blonde was thinking, Asuma rolled his eyes before explaining further. Calm down, Naruto. The Chunin exams consists of 3 trials which vary each time that one has to pass on hopes of getting promoted, so you won't be doing any paper tests, probably. That sentence does not inspire confidence, Entatsu-sensei. Naruto stated dully. Leto tapped her chin. Perhaps it's a higher mission rank exam, proving they can take more dangerous tasks. What happened to Team 7 is a good indicator of that. Ares agreed. He knew all too well what happened whenever some hotshot rookie took command without proving himself. Yeah. Anyway, we won't be training today since I want all of you to consider whether or not you actually want to participate in this event. This isn't something you should just jump into half-cocked. People have and will die in these exams. Asuma said. Getting Ino to stop cheering as an air of seriousness enveloped the group. Ares grinned. Chance of death to complete an exam. This was getting good. I was planning to tell you all about this a week ago so you'd have more time to decide if you were ready or not, but recent events got in the way. That's all I have for you today. See you tomorrow. With his piece said, Asuma was engulfed in a puff of pungent cigarette smoke that left the quartet coughing. By Hades, I hate when he does that, Artemis said between coughs angrily while waving the smoke out of her face. Which is why he does that, I am sure, Naruto said, equally irritated before turning around and walking off. Come on, Artie-chan, we better go get Tisho since training is cancelled for the day. Malcolm shook his head. Enko knew. Yeah, wait a minute, Artemis cut herself off as she realized something. Being a special Jonin, Enko almost certainly knew about this upcoming event and that Asuma would be telling Team 10 they'd been nominated for it, which also meant that she'd known that Tisho wouldn't need babysat today. Snickering filled the air at Artemis' realization of her blunder of a deal. As she pieced these bits of information together, Artemis developed a deep scowl as her face turned an interesting shade of purplish red. Why that sneaky little? Across town. Aaankoo. Sounds like she figured it out already, Enko said to herself with a chuckle as she heard the scream of anger and frustration ring out. The perplet was reclined in a tree with Tisho curled up on her exposed stomach, both happily munching on sticks of dango. Mama Mav, Tisho said between bites, getting Enko's smirk to widen as she patted the Lamia's head. Yep, Mama very mad. Artemis the mama, not a stupid thing given she adopted her hunters. Apollo said calmly as he relaxed. Naruto is her father. I hate you. Meanwhile, Hokage's tower. Hiruzen was calmly going through the numerous stacks of paperwork that his position entailed when he heard the distinct sound of the window opening. You know, there is a door for a reason. Doors snore. Windows are cooler, says the god of thieves. Hermes smirked at Mr. D before saluting the one god with his own cola. Guilty as charged. It would take too much effort to engage you, Hermes. Yeah, but I still prefer this way, Jiraiya said cheekily as he climbed in the window and took a seat before the elderly cage. So what did you call me in for, sensei? I was in the middle of my research when I got your summons. Phoebe growled. She and the other hunters knew too well what kind of research the man liked to do. Jiraiya, enough joking around, I need you to be serious right now, Hiruzen said, making the self-proclaimed super pervert drop his joking attitude and adopt a blank face. Since teams 9 and 10 returned with the notes from the lab they'd discovered, we have discovered no less than 6 spies working for Orochimaru under our noses for years, with all but one having gotten away before we could apprehend them. Kami only knows what form of intel they took with them. That certainly is a cause of worry, Jiraiya said as his brows knit together. So what do you want me to do, dig around and see if I can root out the rest of them? Yes, make sure you torture them slowly, Ares cheered out before ending with a menacing low voice. And that is how we got good villains in media, Lee said to his brother who laughed. No, we both know that any remaining spies have either fled or gone to ground deep enough to hide until this blows over. What I want you to do is personally oversee the security for the Chunin exams, since according to the one spy we did catch, Orochimaru has something planned for them. Hiruzen said, getting his old pupil to nod in understanding. Got it, sensei, I'll set up every precaution I can think of right away, Jiraiya said as he stood up to leave. Oh, hold up, before you go, Hiruzen called out, making the Toad Sannin stop mid-step. Have you made any progress as to why Naruto has been unable to sign the Toad contract? The Aphrodite girls let out a collective ew. That is gross, one daughter said with a yucky face. Wart makers. Random Hunter 9 shook her head. Toads don't make warts, says the one who likes to frolic in mud. This had been a bit of a puzzle for the pair since Jiraiya had attempted to teach Naruto summoning during the week of remedial training. For some reason, when Naruto tried to sign his name on the contract it had fizzled away into nothing a few seconds afterwards, which should only happen if someone tried to put a fake name upon the document. Oh, so I have a son now. This one looks better. A stunned Apollo opened and closed his mouth at his mother who smirked at him. Yeah, Seems Kushina's last work caused a few more issues than we'd thought. Jiraiya said, making Hiruzen quirk a brow. Explain. The seal Kushina used to contain Naruto's other personality was basically a patch job by Fuinjutsu standards, something she likely slapped together with what little time she had to work with. Now don't get me wrong, it's still one of the best damn seals I've ever seen, but she was clearly rushing when she made it. Chiron shook his head. He knew of many mortal mothers who attempted to save their child from the gods. This one however felt more sad as Naruto never met her and the imprint of her soul was destroyed in her attempt to protect him from Artemis. Granted, the goddess wasn't likely to kill the boy once she had recovered, but the situation was one that was rare. You already told me this when you first examined the seal, Jiraiya, get to the point already. Hiruzen stated impatiently. Ma, I am getting there, sensei, Jiraiya said while holding his hands up placating. Anyway, instead of using a proper containment seal, it looks like she was forced to use a simpler binding seal that is held together by the 8 trigrams that had already been there in parts of a soul connection seal. This is why Naruto and Artemis are able to interact with each other so easily, because she is quite literally anchored to part of his soul. And it seems that the more these two interact, the stronger that anchor between them gets, which has resulted in their minds gradually overlapping over time. So, they are one and the same sunspot? Ares asked Apollo, given he was the god of medicine. Yes, but also no. Apollo tapped his chin. Could explain why she ended up with him. Hermes flipped a coin. The camp looked at him and he rolled his eyes. Oh come on now. Blonde hair, blue eyes and lots of energy. Huh, didn't expect that. Artemis went to the closest Apollo-like mortal she could find. Katie said, making the sun god grin. Oh, I knew she loved me. I take back almost every negative thought to Naruto. Ard pouted and dropped his axe. He wanted to see what would happen if Apollo got his hands on the boy. Glancing at the reviews, the god of war grinned. Byron Sanchez 2993, you just made my day. CESOS Cierto, Jajaja. What about Byron Sanchez 2993? Leto asked before reading. Oh. Hence the contract no longer recognizes Naruto's name, since by its standards he is no longer recognized as just Naruto Uzumaki. Hiruzen finished with an understanding nod. Yep, so unless either him and Artemis fully remerge into one mind again or they somehow sever that connection for good, he'll never be able to use a summon contract. Jiraiya said with a defeated sigh. Shame too, I was really looking forwards to teaching him just like his old man. You win some, you lose some, Jiraiya, you'll just have to be happy with what you can teach him then. Thunder boomed and the gods groaned. Here I wanted to finish the story. Ares whined as he dusted off his pants. Dad is the one to blame, but hopefully we can get back to the story once the solstice is over. Think this is what is going to happen if they failed to find your sister? Hermes asked Apollo, who grinned. Oh Hermes my bro. If they somehow failed the quest, I am sure not going to stay mad at Naruto. Apollo said with a wicked grin and glowing eyes. He took a deep breath. You know, was the chapter worth the wait? Are you kidding? He's a day late. I bet the mortals are sending him reviews to complain right this second about how mean he is. Chiron smiled as Nico eagerly took the book after the silence that came after chapter 16. For some reason something felt off. The trainer of heroes looked, yes, there was still the hunters and campers all there, plus himself, the satyr and nymph waiters. And the annoying sober lazy wine god. But he felt as though he was forgetting someone. Shaking it off, he went to listening to the story. Far from the camp, 3 immortals cursed to themselves as they tried to fix the treads of fate due to a happy stray cat. And now, standing outside the academy building, Naruto grinned while Ino and Choji stood on either side of him, the former a mix of excited and nervous while the latter was calmly munching on a bag of chips like he always was. You guys ready for this? Naruto asked while glancing at his 2 teammates. Is it just me or does it feel like final exams? A camper asked to the right of Nico as she shivered. I hate finals. As ill ever be, Ino replied while Choji simply nodded his head. Alright, then what are we still standing out here for? Naruto asked rhetorically as he rushed towards the building, with the other 2 soon following after, impatient to use the front door. Naruto leapt up the side of the building and walked straight to an open window on the 3rd floor. Ah yes, the enter through the window method, like my father, a pastime of his. Mr. D yawned out before glancing at Nico. Did you mess up that last part, newbie? No sir. The moment he hopped inside though, the whiskered blonde suddenly found in front of a familiar bun-haired girl and her teammates as they walked up the staircase. Oh hey Ten-chan. Sharp object gal. Clarice raised a goblet with a smile. Bushy brows. A daughter of love shivered. He needs a haircut and a shave. Neji Tem. Pervert. A hunter muttered in the crowd. You guys here for the Chunin exams as well? Yep, we've actually been preparing for it a while now, Tenten stated, giggling a bit when she saw Neji's eye twitch in annoyance while Lee exclaimed something about the flames of youth. And let me guess, the Hokage was so impressed by what happened in Kanoko that he let Team 10 join this time as well. I guess, Entatsu-sensei didn't really say anything other than we were allowed to enter, Naruto said with a shrug, glancing behind himself briefly to see a humored Ino and still chill Choji clamber inside through the window as well. He just told us what it was and said to show up today. And a heads up on the fake-out test I see. A pale Malcolm raised his hand making Chiron groan. No need Malcolm, I know that you don't like fake tests. No sir, there's a spider, Malcolm whispered as the eight-legged beast of death looked at him with evil in its eyes as it cleaned its poison fangs in front of him. The spider twitched and the son of Athena let out a whimper before a satyr came quickly to remove it from his and his siblings' sight. Tenten added with a faux dirty look, only to stop when she saw the honest confusion on Naruto's face. What fake-out test? The whiskered blonde asked with a raised brow. The one where you missed out because you wanted to get to the third floor via window like a thief. Connor slapped his brother's hand. Takes one to know one. Dude. You know, the one they're doing on the second floor, where they try to trick you into thinking you're on the third floor, so you can't make it to the actual meeting area. The bun-haired girl described, only to be met with more confusion. Isn't that why you came in through the window? Lee laughed at the idea. Naruto isn't that smart. No, we just did that because someone seems to keep forgetting what a door is for. Ino said while playfully swatting the back of her fellow blonde's head. Like the other blondes in my family. Dee smirked at the sky. In my defense, it is faster than taking the stairs, Naruto said, even as he smiled sheepishly. And it even helped us avoid a trap this time, even if unintentionally. Already the campers in Ares, Athena and Hermes' cabins began mentally working on plans concerning traps for windows. Touché, should have figured it was something like that, Tenten muttered with a soft giggle before gesturing to her head. So how's Artemis doing? She's still up in your noggin somewhere. That I am Tenten, it is good to see you again. Artemis said through Naruto, making the bun-haired girl's smile widen a little. Same here, sorry I didn't visit like I said I would, you know how hectic the last week and a half has been. Perverted teacher. Clara gashed her teeth in remembrance of the earlier chapters. Of course, the circumstances weren't exactly favorable at the time, Artemis said with an understanding nod. Though it should be Tisho you apologize to, she has missed you quite a bit. Hey guys, not to butt in or something, but I think we should get going. The first test is supposed to start in 20 minutes, Ino said while pointing to a clock that was hung on the wall. Right, we should miss this opportunity to show the world our flames of youth. Lee cheered before rushing off ahead, leaving an exasperated Tenten and Neji to follow after him with Naruto and co. Inside, they didn't have to go very far though as the meeting room was just around the corner, indicated by the Chunin waiting by the door to take the admission forms they had. After quickly handing him the filled-out paperwork and getting the stamp of approval, Naruto and Lee excitedly pushed through the double doors and the six of them found themselves standing within a large weren't the only ones there either as several dozen other teens could be seen meandering around with either bored, excited, or nervous expressions. Most of them were clumped together with others of their village, with the only exceptions being Konoha's and a few solo genin that were cautiously scouting out the noticing Team 9 and Team 10's entrance. More than a few of the gathered ninja immediately started to send the two newly arrived teams death glares and small flares of ki to intimidate them. The Ares cabin were pouting. Now these guys knew what a test was. This had almost no affect though as neither Naruto or Lee noticed the dark looks. Tenten, Ino, and Neji simply shrugged them off, and Choji just kept munching on his seemingly never-ending bags of chips. Does he steal them the vending machines and stalls? Connor asked with a twitching brow. Ninja, his brother answered his brother. But, yeah. Man, I didn't think this many people would be showing up, this is gonna be way more fun than I thought it would be. Naruto thought with a grin, happy at the prospect of a decent challenge. Don't get too excited Naruto, you'll need to keep your guard up at all times from here on out. Artemis told him, making her host deflate slightly. Way to be a buzzkill Ardine. Naruto thought with a pout. Yeah. Phoebe took a sip of root beer to avoid cursing the one who spoke up. Someone has to be, otherwise you'd never be able to focus on what you needed to do. Artemis said, rolling her eyes good-naturedly. Kowalski leaned over to Phoebe. Hey, doesn't it seem she's training him like one about hunting wolves? Hell make a nice golden wolf. Phoebe stiffed a giggle at the idea of Naruto as a wolf for the hunters. Hey I am not that hey look, Hinata is here too. Naruto froze as Ino's sentence registered in his head, a blush cropping up on his face as he saw said Hyuga Eris walking up to them shyly along with her teammates Kiba and Shino. Hey guys, I am glad to see that you made it. Hinata said, only stuttering a little bit for once as a light blush spread across her cheeks. Selena sighed, recrossing her legs after shaking a leg cramp out. Young love. Yeah, we were starting to wonder if you guys would actually show up. Kiba said with a wide grin, Akamaru yipping in agreement from his spot in the feral boy's coat. That's cute, Selena whispered, not seeing Charles taking notes. He wasn't going to let a chance to score points go by. Sorry about that. Naruto had to find a new babysitter for Tisho at the last minute because Sakura's surgery got bumped up to today. Ino said, getting Hinata to nod in understanding while Kiba tilted his head in confusion. Who is this Tisho you speak of? Shino asked what the dog boy was wondering, his eyebrow raised in mild curiosity. Oh right, we never did introduce you guys to her. Hang on, I think I got a picture of her on me somewhere, Ino said before reaching into her kunai pouch and pulling out a small folded up picture that she looked over quickly with a smirk. Yep, this is the one. Holding it out for the pair to see, Kiba and Shino found themselves looking at a small photo of the little Lamia atop a smiling Naruto's head while the whiskered blonde himself was resting his chin atop an amused Artemis, all three of them at Ichiraku's with noodles hanging from their mouths. Meanwhile, Ino and Choji were seated in the background, the former holding up her hands behind Naruto and Artemis' heads doing a bunny ears gag while the latter was happily chowing on a large bowl of beef ramen. Click. Mr. D smirked as he took a picture of the image for later use before texting Leto the image. It was adorable and he was sure he could get some brownie points from Zeus with a chibi Artemis, but, glancing over, he noticed that the story was no longer being read. Nero, why aren't you reading anymore? It's missing the rest of the chapter. Nico shook the book before showing the immortal the ripped out pages. Silence echoed like a dull roar before screams of outrage filled the camp as all wanted to know what happened next. Nico barely had time to react as the book is ripped from his hands and passed around the fire pit that glowed multiple different colors to represent the mood of the camp. Accusations were flinged back and forth as campers and hunters yelled at one another. Hermes did THS. Yelled one hunter. It's the Ares cabin. They hate books. Yelled someone else. Don't let the Athena cabin get that book. On and on everyone yelled or screamed, shoving began and the book was suddenly up in the air. And everyone gasped as it landed in the fire. All eyes stared as it cracked and burned, edges turning into ashes like their dreams on what would happen to what I miss. Apollo asked as he popped back holding a god-sized popcorn bucket with a face-splitting smile. It fell quickly as the god of the sun took a step back as all heads swiveled over to him with shining eyes filled with madness. Leto smiled sweetly as she took several steps forward. Dear, mommy wants a few words with you with these nice campers. ... This is Tisho, Naruto's recently adopted daughter, Ino said while pointing to the small snake girl, pausing a moment to think of the best way to describe the situation. As do I, Apollo thought as he pouted with an ice pack to his head. Okay, that was certainly the last thing I expected to see today, Kiba said with a flabbergasted expression as Ino put the photo back away. That was most unexpected indeed, Shino said with a small nod. Though now I am curious about that other girl in the picture, I do not believe I have seen her within the village before. As if the village should be blessed by Artemis walking around, Hunter 12 said. Oh, that's Naruto's sister, she's pretty reclusive so it's no real surprise if you haven't met her. Leto rolled her eyes. I could never get her to join me for mother-daughter dinners in cities. At least she likes picnics in Central Park. Ino explained, already having a few excuses as to why no one had really seen Artemis before since she knew Naruto didn't like talking about his condition. Wait, you have a sister? Kiba asked Naruto with a surprised look, who nodded his head slowly while avoiding looking towards Hinata, who couldn't help but giggle at his bashfulness. Why didn't you tell us? Because you're a horndog that would have probably never stopped hitting on her if I did. Naruto stated bluntly, making Ino, Hinata, Tenten, and Choji laugh at the dog boy's busted face. Phoebe and another hunter, Iphigenia H12, snorted in disagreement. Artemis would either neuter the boy or scare him for life. He's got you there, Shino said before Kiba could say anything in his defense, making his teammate shoot a betrayed look at him. Anyway, we also came over here to give you all a warning. A warning? What, are you guys seriously trying to scare us off too? Ino asked incredulously. Won't be much a test if they didn't have a warning. Mark crossed his arms with a feral grin. No, nothing like that, I just meant that you should be careful, particularly around those three. Shino said with a small shake of his head before pointing over to a corner where a trio of young women wearing headbands with a flower symbol stood, each one carefully eyeing the occupants of the room. The ones to left and right were pretty similar in appearance, with short brown hair, narrow faces, and lightly tanned skin, while the one in the middle, an apparent leader of the group, had black hair, green eyes, and wore a tannish white cloak. All eyes went to the hunters who rolled their eyes. It wasn't them, but there was something interesting about those genin. That chick in the middle has been taking swings at people ever since they arrived. Kiba said with a frown, baring his teeth slightly when the cloaked girl looked in their direction. We believe she is testing the waters so to speak since she only strikes once or twice before withdrawing, though for some reason she has only instigated attacks with other kunoichi. Shino explained further. She even attacked Hinata, Kiba growled, causing Naruto's gaze to snap towards the blue net as the dog boy pointed to a long scratch in her jacket. It was completely out of the blue, no reason or anything. Well, don't worry, if she tries anything with us, she'll regret it. Tenten said confidently, twirling a kunai on her finger. Oh really, and is that an actual threat or just a hollow threat? An unknown female voice asked from behind the weapon user, making her freeze up in surprise for a split second before spinning around and swinging at the cloaked girl that was there. However, thanks to her brief hesitation, she was just a little bit too slow and the unknown girl landed a slash across the bun-haired girl's chest with a small ornamental dagger, leaving a shallow gash in her outfit identical to the one on Hinata's arm. Aries' cabin cheered. That was how one made an proper hello. Then, faster than anyone else could react, the girl seemingly vanished from sight and reappeared in front of Ino with her dagger raised. Squelch. Or so she thought. In contrast to her prior apathetic expression, the unknown girl showed visible shock and surprise on her face when a silver-eyed Naruto suddenly popped up between her and his teammate, stopping her blade mid-swing by allowing it to stab straight into his palm before socking her straight in the gut. Gasping as the wind was knocked out of her lungs, she was left defenseless to follow-up punch to the jaw that sent her tumbling back across the room. And Naruto makes a greeting of his own. Apollo called out like a sports fan. Thanks Ardine, Naruto thought while pulling the knife out of his hand and throwing it away, his eyes fading back to blue as he did so. Snickering filled the air at Apollo who retreated to his ice pack and popcorn. The goddess had sensed the girl's attack a split second before it happened and reacted for Naruto since she knew he wouldn't be able to fast enough himself. Don't mention it. Ignoring the glares he was getting from the girl's teammates as they helped her up, Naruto turned to Tenten with concern in his eyes. You okay Ten-chan? I am fine. She only got my clothes, Tenten grumbled, adjusting the torn fabric so that she wouldn't be exposed anywhere too personal. Should invest in clothes that won't get cut easily. If this was a real fight or if she had prepared her blade with something she could have lost. Chiron smiled as several demigods mulled over his words. It was an important teaching moment that might save a camper, 2 or more in life from monsters and other rouge elements. Besides, I should be asking you that, you're bleeding quite a bit there. Ma, it's just a small flesh wound. Naruto waved off her concern while wrapping the stab wound with some bandages he kept handy. If he'd been paying closer attention, he would have seen the intrigued expression on the cloaked girl's face as she reclaimed her dagger, wiping off the blood on the weapon with a small rag before tucking both away somewhere within her cloak. A hunter groaned. Looks like we have an Aphrodite and Amazon ninja here. Connor looked over to the hunter. What do you mean? You'll see. With Naruto's luck she'll try to get him to marry her, or kill him. Naruto's luck isn't that bad. Tenten opened her mouth to comment on how having a knife stabbed through your hand was most certainly not just a flesh wound but was interrupted when an intimidating man with a bandana covering his head appeared in a puff of smoke along with 24 chunin behind him. All of you shut up and pay attention, he said in a cold tone that could have frozen lava solid. Apollo and D snorted. Please, he could wish we could freeze lava solid, he was just immortal. Immediately getting everyone's attention as he held a stack of cards with names and numbers on them. I'll give it to you all short and simple. My name is Ibiki, proctor of the first exam, which means for the next 2 hours all your fates lie in my hands. Now get up here, take your card, and go to your assigned seat. Despite speaking in a calm, and even somewhat relaxed tone, the mere presence the man exuded was enough to stop anyone from questioning his orders as they quickly went up and got the card with their name on it before moving to the seat that was labeled for them. Naturally, the assigned seats resulted in everyone being separated from their teammates, likely to make the actual test itself that much harder. When it was all said and done however, Naruto found himself clenching his fists with a twitching eyebrow as a single thought ran through both his and Artemis' heads. Is this some kind of divine joke? The fates like to mess with everyone so it's up there. Quiet lightbulb, Nico said quickly, glancing up from the new book that was liberated from the god of the sun minutes earlier. The young demigod went back to reading before the stunned god could make a comeback. The reason for this was because the whiskered blonde found himself seated right between Hinata and the cloaked girl, the latter of which was continually glancing at him from the corner of her eye. Looking around the room, he found Choji seated on a corner seat by a sandy blonde girl from Suna who had cautiously accepted a few chips had offered and Ino in a middle seat like himself with Kiba on one side and an extremely pissed-looking redhead girl wearing an odd cap on the other. Now that you all are seated, we can start the first exam, a written test. Ibiki said while holding out a stack of papers, making Naruto slam his head against the desk with a groan. Chiron smiled and reached into his bag. As Naruto has to do a written test, we'll see if we can't solve them as well. The sounds of groans made him smile. Oh come on, seriously, he thought in disbelief, barely listening as Ibiki explained the rules while the Chunin passed out the test and took their own seats on either side of the room. Said rules included how everyone had to solve 9 questions before getting a 10th one near the end of the 2 hours and if anyone was caught cheating 5 times they and their team would be booted. Ardine, I need your help again. Don't worry, I am right here, but you'll have to stay in control for now, too many eyes on us to risk sinking right now. Artemis stated, getting Naruto to mentally nod in understanding before flipping the test over and read the first question. If you throw a shuriken at target X at a 36-degree angle and approximately 50 feet per second with a 10-mile-per-hour wind blowing towards your left, how far will the weapon fly off its original course of direction and what would you need to adjust to compensate this change to still hit target X? This could be a bit more trouble than I thought. 1 hour and 45 minutes later. Or 1 hour in real time with campers and hunters alike foaming at the mouths. And, done, Naruto thought as he wrote down the answer for the 9th question and flipped the sheet over before dropping his head on the table with a tired sigh. Oh Kami, my head hurts. Your head hurts. I was the one who had to do all the math. Artemis snapped grouchily as she rubbed her forehead. Just be happy that I remembered those rants Athena would go into. She said that I am making sure she attends math classes with me for a year. Apollo, you don't know how to do the math to track an arrow, my ass. Apollo raged, sprouting curses as he tried to escape his mother's arms as she shielded her sons from the mortals he flickered rapidly. Each question had been absolutely head-churning, involving complex equations and calculations that only those who were really intelligent would be able to solve without any issue. All had one name on their lips as they stared at the only cabin what wasn't nursing headaches. Halfway through the test, Artemis figured out that the point of the test was to cheat after discreetly observing the other genin through Naruto's eyes. Fuck, Travis whispered in awe, if this was how Ninja did tests he wanted to join. She didn't mention it to the blonde though, since neither of them had a viable way to do so without getting caught, which meant they were stuck doing the test the legitimate way. In that time nearly a third of the teams had been booted out due to being caught too many times, and a guy dressed in what looked like a cat onesie asked to go to the restroom. The biggest downside in his opinion though was that the cloaked girl beside him, Shizuka according to the name on her test, not only managed to quickly finish the test, but the moment she did immediately went back to staring at him. Yeah, whatever you say Ne-chan. Naruto thought, before groaning as Ibiki clapped his hands to get everyone's attention. Alright, it's time for the 10th question. However, before I tell you what it is, you all must decide whether you're willing to take it or if you want to give up now. The man said, getting a chorus of confused mumbling in response. What kind of bull is this? Of course we're gonna take it. A random genin in the back exclaimed, with several others voicing their agreement. Naruto would have been one of them but was cut off by Artemis. Hold up Naruto, I've seen this sort of situation before, he's most likely going to reveal a catch. I wouldn't be so sure that if I were you. I haven't gotten to the good part yet, Ibiki stated calmly as the classroom fell silent once more. If you quit now, you and the rest of your team will forfeit from the Chunin exams. However, for all of you who decide to take the 10 question and fail to answer it correctly, you will not only be dropped out but you will forever be a genin for the rest of your ninja career. Yep, there it is. Artemis said as the entire room erupted into chaos, with almost every single genin crying out in outrage at the monk's words. Oh, he's good, Mr. D snickered as several campers began to panic for Naruto and Artemis. Standing there calmly for a minute and letting the complaints wash over them, Ibiki eventually raised up a single hand up in a silence motion as he released a strong blast of ki that made everyone fall silent once more. Those are the rules and no amount of bitching is going to change that. With that said, this is the moment of truth, do or die, raise your hand if you wish to quit, you have 5 minutes to decide. With his piece said, Ibiki sat back down in his seat and watched them all consider what he had told them. So we still going through with this? Artemis asked Naruto as he stared down at his test sheet intensely. That would be a pretty big setback towards your goal of becoming Hokage if you're stuck as a genin forever. But if I don't try then I'll still be a genin anyway, Naruto thought with a small shrug. Besides, you would kick my ass 6 ways to Sunday if I gave up now since that would mean you just did all that math for nothing. You aren't wrong. With his mind made up, Naruto sat there quietly, watching as the tension in the room gradually built up until some of the genin finally snapped and called it quits. It wasn't many, just 6 teams out of the 30 or so that were left, but it still was enough to lay the pressure down on the remainder extra hard as Ibiki stood back up. Last chance, any more quitters? He asked while sweeping his gaze across the room. Upon not getting any response whatsoever, the man nodded his head approvingly. Alright, then it is time to congratulate you all on passing the first exam. What, huh? Almost the entire room exclaimed in shock and confusion, making Ibiki chuckle softly at their surprise. But what about the 10th question? Naruto couldn't help but yell out. Nico nodded his head. What about it and was the reader? Oh, he was the reader. You just answered it, the intimidating man said while taking off the bandana he was wearing, revealing the numerous scars and burns covering his bald head. As a ninja, You will find yourself in numerous missions that require you to undertake substantial risk in order to succeed. The meaning of this test was to determine if you would be able to handle the pressure of such a situation, and since you all are still here, then that means you pass. Chiron made a mental note to use this test later on his charges. It had merit, and many campers had died on quests because of the pressures and strain. A secret test hidden underneath 2 false tests. Clever, Artemis said with an approving nod, before frowning as a realization hit her. Since the first and second tests were fake, that meant the written test itself was completely pointless, which also meant that she just gave herself a huge headache for no reason. Oh son of a... Artemis, Cynthia, Luna, and you Nico, language. Leto snapped before blushing. Oh sorry Nico dear, got caught up in the moment. It is okay madam. A timid Nico whispered. Crash. The goddess was cut off from her swearing tangent before it could begin when a black mass suddenly smashed through the window and unfurled, revealing itself to be a large banner that tacked itself in place directly in front of Ibiki with Kanai. Said banner had introducing the sexy and amazing second exam proctor and her adorable assistant in bold white kanji. Apollo grinned and held up a sign with the numbers 8/10 on it. And standing in front of the newly placed banner was none other than Enko with Tisho seated on her shoulder, the little Lamia wearing a miniature version of the Perplet's outfit. Hello Gakis, are all of you ready for the second part of the oof? Almost the epicness Anko had going for her was completely ruined when Naruto pounced on her angrily. Anko, what the hell is Tisho-chan wearing? Fashion you simpleton, Selena yelled before ducking her head down, making her sibling snicker in good humor. And that's the chapter. Feels short, but then again, this took me months to wrangle. So time for Chapter 18. Only a daughter of love would think that outfit is fashion. A hunter grunted as she stabbed several items on an arrow to make a kebab. Oh, well that was fun, Anko said with a giggle as she held a tied up and gagged Naruto over her shoulders while everyone else in the class stared at her with sweat drops running down their heads. It had taken her all of 3 seconds to catch, restrain, and detain Naruto after his attempted assault, with most of the class barely even able to keep up with the flurry of movements that proceeded. Travis and Connor paled at her speed. She might be sexy, but they won't be able to prank her without getting caught. Where she even got the rope to do so was a mystery everyone was wondering, since she seemed to just pull it out of thin air. Hammer space, ninja, plot armor. Malcolm rolled his eyes as his younger siblings began listing ways that Anko could have gotten that rope. It was only rope, she could have just had it prepared to use after she tricked Naruto and Artemis. Anyway, back to business. For those of you who can't read, I am your second exam proctor. As for what that exam is, meet me at Training Ground 44 in 20 minutes to find out. My assistant here will show you the directions now. As she was speaking, Tisho slithered up to the top of Anko's head and unfurled a small scroll which contained a map of Konoha, or at least that was what it was supposed to be. A good majority of it had been doodled over with crayon, thus obscuring the aforementioned map and directions pretty badly. It looks less gore-over than Aries' old map collection. Apollo made a face as he looked over the drawing. Just so you know, if you're even a second late then you're disqualified. Of course Anko either didn't know or didn't care, likely the latter, as she took the mess-up map and tucked it away between her breasts while walking back towards the window she came in from. Now if you all don't mind, I have places to be, dango to eat, and coffins to pick up. Ciao. Coffins. Hestia shook her head as she looked over the copy in her hands that everyone thought was burned away. She liked to read the reviews even if they were outlandish. Akakiru was nice to call her a good girl, but she had no answer for him. Naruto holding Artemis didn't make him divine, at least she assumed so. Then there was Satoshi 12, whom made the same but slightly different way too, as if Naruto was now part immortal. Perhaps Artemis might take him back with her, and being connected to her he might become a minor god, unless Zeus blasted him for him being too close to his daughter. He was very protective of his daughters. He once tricked Athena to kill Pallas as he thought the child giant of Triton and Gaia was going to defeat his daughter in a spar. Hestia had to comfort the horrified young goddess, who then skinned her friend's corpse in a fit of madness to make her cloak. Was it any wonder that she helped trap her father in a net? Glancing upwards she smiled as Nico nibbled on a hot dog. She still had time to answer a few more. Nope, he was about to read again. And just like that she was gone, her laughter echoing through the room as most of the genin scrambled to meet up with their teammates and rush for the door. The only exceptions to this were the angry redheads team, who simply marched out the door with a flurry of curses, the Suna team, who walked out calmly with a redhead boy carrying a massive sand gourd in the lead, the mystery girl who poofed out of sight with a shunshin along with her teammates, and the remainder of Team 10 who stared out the window that Anko left. Did she forget that she still has Naruto with her? Ino asked dully, making Choji shrug as he munched on some chips. Probably. Are we ever going to meet somebody normal? Probably not. Never. The demigods and hunters deadpanned. Sighing in defeat, Ino slumped over a bit as she and Choji shuffled out of the room. It's days like this I really regret becoming a ninja. Would being a florist have been all that bad? Try not being killed by grain monsters when all you want is fresh cereal. A daughter of Demeter whined. Or pruning the strawberries when Mr. D is upset. A satyr said before paling when said individual's eyes glowed. 15 minutes later, Naruto's eyebrow twitched rapidly in annoyance as he lay face first on the ground just outside a fenced-off forest, still firmly tied up from head to toe and gagged while Anko sat on his back with a teasing grin as she and Tisho snacked on some dango. Is this going to be familiar? Yep, Ninja Forest of Death. Certainly. Full of dangerous monster-like animals. For sure. Lots of fighting without rest for a prolonged period of time. Classic. Popcorn. Sure. Soda. Of course. Popping open a soda for his brother, Mr. D and Apollo settled down to see what horrors were to happen. On the plus side though, not only was the ground soft and grassy but his little Lamia was out of the mini Anko outfit and now wearing an adorable purple dress with blue trim and even had her crown atop her head, giving her the appearance of a princess. Finishing the last few bites of her snack just as the first few genins started showing up, which just so happened to be that cloaked girl's team, Anko stood up with a satisfied sigh and stretched her arms before casually pulling Naruto to his feet and cutting him free of his bindings. Thanks for being my seat Gaki, your back is surprisingly comfortable. Not like you gave me much a choice, Naruto said with a glare after pulling the ball of cloth out of his mouth. I'll get you back for that Tabeo. Ah, don't be so fussy Gaki, it wasn't that bad, Anko said while patting the whiskered blonde on the back. Besides, if it makes you feel better you can keep the panties. Apollo sprayed his drink all over his brother's face in surprise. D didn't react as he was stunned as well as popcorn dropped one by one from his hand. Nico however had to watch as Phoebe took the book from him to read on. What? Naruto asked after a brief pause. You heard me, I said you can keep the panties, Anko stated pointedly with a mischievous smirk while gesturing to the wadded-up cloth in Naruto's hand just as it unbundled to reveal a pair of light purple women's underwear covered in his saliva. Awkward laughter filled the area as several of the ladies present hoisted weapons. Damn, this woman is almost as good as Aphrodite at teasing people. Artemis said with begrudging respect as Naruto's face practically melted from how red it became. And her daughters. A said daughter smiled at her current boyfriend. Biwahahaha. Oh man Gaki, your face is priceless. Anko howled in laughter, doubling over as she held her shaking sides, not even caring when Naruto threw the spit-soaked undergarments in her face and stomped off to meet up with his teammates. Once she managed to regain her composure, the woman pulled the underwear off and tossed them into a nearby trash can along with their packaging, revealing that they were in fact not her actual underwear. As for why she just happened to have a set of brand new panties on hand, we will never know. She's got game. Apollo grinned as he looked at the ninja. Leto rolled her eyes and smacked the back of his head. Her child was too horny for his own good, his father's side no doubt. Wiping off the rest of the spit off her face with one last chuckle, Anko's grin suddenly took on a more sadistic edge as she turned her attention towards the crowd of gathered genin now standing before her. Hello Gakis and welcome to my personal playground, Training Ground 44, otherwise known as the Forest of Death. Her grin widening at the nervous expressions that popped up on almost everyone's faces, the perplete reached into her trench coat and pulled out a pair of scrolls, one with the kanji for earth and the other heaven. Your second exam is simply, well in concept at least. Each of you will go into there with either an earth scroll or a heaven scroll. Your task is to retrieve the opposing scroll by any means necessary and head towards the tower in the exact middle of the forest with both in your possession and as a full team. You have exactly 5 days to do this, and if you are even a second later then you best not let the door hit your ass or your corpse on the way out. She explained with a dark chuckle that made several teams even more nervous. Apollo's children would kill to have her as a villain actress, Artemis said with an approving nod. To be able to switch from her natural playful and teasing personality with a faux sadistic personality so flawlessly was an impressive feat. Hell, if it wasn't for the fact she and Naruto already knew the woman, she'd probably been convinced by the act as well. Apollo rubbed his hands. We, see, ya, and all the other forms of yes they and I would. Before you are given your scroll though, I need each one of you to sign of these little waivers, Anko continued while Tisho held up one of the papers for everyone to see. That way, when the weaklings amongst you die in there, Konoha can be in no way held accountable for your untimely yet inevitable demise. Now get your asses moving before I punt you into that forest myself. And yet somehow no one seems to remember to give them to their mortal parents. Chiron muttered under his breath. With her piece said, the scantily dressed woman walked off with another bout of dark laughter while the teams lined up at a series of curtained booths to get their scrolls. By Kami, that woman is terrifying, Ino said with a shiver as she, Naruto, and Choji walked out of one of the booths and headed for one of the multiple gates leading into the Forest of Death, the Mind Walker carefully hiding a tiny storage scroll in her shirt which held their heaven scroll. Yeah, she can really scare ya when she tries, but Anko-chan is actually pretty fun to hang out with, most of the time. Naruto said with a shrug before frowning heavily. Now how am I gonna get her back for that panty prank? A daughter of Hermes grinned. Super spicy dango and have no bathrooms available. Add laxatives to all her drinks. Perhaps you could make her eat a pair of you boxers, Artemis suggested jokingly. Or that, making Naruto scoff with a good-natured roll of his eyes. How about an idea that doesn't end with me going to the hospital so Suba-chan can reattach all my fingers? That would be smart. Beckendorf agreed as he fiddled with his hammer. I sure that Tsunade would be happy. His seating partner said with a sigh. At the other side of the fire several hunters were making bets. So we are in agreement then. Naruto should be able to best any ninja because he's hunter trained. Unless he does something stupid. I say something strange happens to him. Like what? That covers way too much. Okay, he'll get attacked by a giant before this test is over. Fine. Hello, testing. 1 2, testing. Is this thing on? Enko's voice called out over a speaker system before Artemis could come up with a witty comeback. Well, if all you lovely gakis can hear me, then let me just say, THREETWOONEGO. Startled by the sudden screaming along with the gates flinging open at the same time, Team 10 instinctually darted into the forest at top speed, quickly crossing over several hundred yards of terrain in just a minute via tree hopping before slowing down to catch their breath. Fun to hang out with, huh? Ino asked sarcastically as she panted for air, sending an annoyed glare at Naruto's back. I said most of the time, Naruto shot back with a sigh before taking in their surroundings, not even winded from the sudden sprint. We need to keep moving, we have maybe 3 hours until it starts getting dark. And on that note, seems like Dad is calling. Apollo grunted as thunder boomed. Enjoy the meeting, sweetie. Leto waved as her son and Mr. D disappeared from the camp with a musical tone or the smell of grapes respectfully. Okay, then that's how long we have to try and find a team with an Earth Scroll. Choji said as he and Ino got ready to get going again. Idiots. Lee shook his head. You're in an unknown area and you want to charge head first. What are you, spawn of Ares? The son of Apollo unapologetically ducked as plates and silverware were lobbed his direction. However, the instant both of them tried to jump off and start tree hopping once more, Naruto stopped them cold, grabbing them by their shirt collars. Nope, bad idea, the whiskered blonde said, getting a pair of confused looks in response. How is doing what we're supposed to do a bad idea? Ino demanded with an incredulous look. Because we are in unknown territory filled with things that probably want to kill us, along with over 24 different teams looking to steal our scroll, and probably kill us as well. Naruto said, adding the last bit as an afterthought. Well, that's, Ino started to say angrily, only to trail off once her brain registered what Naruto said. Actually a pretty good point. Our best bet right now would be to find a relatively safe place to hunker down for tonight. Then I can have my clones scout out the area so we can get a grasp of our surroundings, see what we're dealing with, and possibly start setting some traps. Naruto said as he kept looking around. Guys, Naruto asked as he turned back to his team after several moments of silence, only to be met with blank stares of disbelief. What? That was so Artemis' plan, wasn't it? Ino asked with a raised brow. Phoebe shook her head, might be more like her coaching in play rather than her plan. Hey, I would never steal one of Artemis' ideas like that. Naruto exclaimed, insulted that Ino would even think he'd do something like that. For your information, me and her go out on hunting trips all the time and she taught me a lot about. Naruto suddenly stopped mid-sentence as a chill ran up his spine and his hair started to stand up on end while his danger senses started screaming at him to leave. All noticed. Is that, spider sense? Malcolm shivered at the mention of spiders. He is not Peter Parker Connor. But he's not a demigod. Unless, Chiron is he a sort of demigod of Artemis? The trainer of heroes shrugged. Well, find out if we are quiet. What is this feeling? What's going on? Naruto thought as he staggered slightly. Nay. I don't know either, Naruto, but I'd suggest we heed that feeling and get out of here. The moon goddess said with a frown, knowing from experience that it was never wise to ignore one's instincts. We need to go, Naruto said curtly as he started fast walking, making Ino and Choji blink in surprise at his sudden attitude change before quickly following after him. Whoa, chill out, Naruto. What's wrong? The big-boned member of Team 10 asked, seeing the worry written all over the whiskered blonde's face as his eyes darted all over the place looking for something. Yeah, what the heck? You look like you've seen a ghost or something, Ino said, admittedly feeling more than a little annoyed yet nervous since she'd never seen Naruto look so spooked. I don't know why, but something about this place feels wrong, like we should be here. Naruto said seriously while fiddling with his holsters, ready to summon the lunar blades at a second's notice. What? Ino yelled incredulously as she grabbed the scruff of Naruto's jacket and pulled him right up to her face. That's it. You have a feeling. Stop trying to show off, you idiot. Ino, stop talking. Naruto cut in, his eyes going wide as he stared behind her along with Choji, the latter of which looked ready to crap himself. What did you just mmmph? Ino started to yell more, only for Naruto to clap a hand over her mouth and pull her close. Ino, shut the fuck up right now or we are all going to die. Naruto whispered in her ear in a dead serious tone that Ino ignored at first. Grr, until she heard the deep growling behind her. Slowly turning around in her fellow blonde's grasp, the Mind Walker froze in fear as she saw the source of the noise. Hellhounds, werewolves, a hungry cyclops, the were-rabbit. All eyes went to the nymph who huffed and stumped her foot. Were-rabbits are evil. In Monty Python and the Holy Grail, sure. Iphigenia hoped that was the case. Otherwise that carrot that one time. Nope, not going there. Wolves, at least a dozen wolves, each one easily bigger than a full-grown bear, slowly stalking towards them with their large and very sharp-looking teeth bared. And judging by the scars covering their bodies that were clearly caused by either kunai or jutsu, definitely not friendly towards humans. Giant wolves, Phoebe said in awe. Wolves that know how to fight and can take damage. Dad might want some. Sherman said in agreement. How did I get here? One moment I was in bed and the next I am listening to a story and know what has been going on, at least I think I do. Ino, get behind me, slowly. Do not try to run away or they will attack. Naruto whispered, getting a small whimper in response from the girl before she slunk out of his loosened arms and doing as he said, her eyes never breaking from the approaching canines. Kuso, we must be walked right into these guys' territory. No, if that was the case they would have just killed you or driven you off by now. And they're not hunting, otherwise they would have surrounded you first before revealing themselves. Artemis stated with a frown as she watched the wolves through Naruto's eyes. Are you sure, because it looks like they're fixing that up right now Ardine. Naruto said as the massive canines started to encircle the trio. Okay, fighting these guys will just tire us out, so maybe we can escape by tree thump, or not. Naruto couldn't help but stare in disbelief as a wolf that was slightly larger than the rest suddenly dropped out of the canopy right in front of him, whilst also noticing the several other shadows amongst the leaves that growled softly. It was at least 8 feet long and 4 feet tall with yellowish-brown fur and a dull gray underbelly and vibrant green eyes that shined with intelligence as it stared straight into his. Mark chuckled and popped his knuckles. So that's what's happening. Hope he's able to rumble. Shit, so that's what's going on. Artemis said with a groan. Ardine, explanation please. Naruto asked, sweating heavily as the wolf got right in his face and sniffed. To put simply, these guys most likely started tracking us the instant we entered the forest because my presence is making you a default pack leader due to wolves being my sacred animal. That's why you felt so nervous, your instincts were warning you of another top dog coming near, Artemis said just as the wolf growled softly at him while her companions settled into a wide ring around them. This is a challenge, she's the leader of this pack and wants to fight you to reassure her pack of her authority. The child of the war god nodded sagely. They all knew this rule as it was custom to fight it out to decide who was the boss of the cabin. Even if he lost to his